So hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if neglected Naruto was a Namikaze Prodigy. Part 1. If you guys enjoy this, what if? And if you want to part 2. Comment down below. And let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content. And leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And also share this video with your friends. And check out the description. And check out my playlist. So let's start the video. Chapter 1, the night that started it all. The day was October 10th, the day most had recognized as any other ordinary day, just like any other, as the citizens and shinobi of Konoha settled down and began to drift asleep as the midnight slowly began to approach them. However, none of the residents of Konoha were prepared for the surprise attack by none other than the nine-tailed demon fox. Roaring as loudly as it could, it began to tear into the village as its shinobi began to rush towards the fox and protect their homes and families. As that happened, the village civilians as well as the younger generation of Leaf Shinobi were taken underground, though the younger shinobis against their will, since they wanted to protect their homes. "We can help fight, don't just sit and stand here and watch." A 17-year-old raven-haired girl with red eyes declared as a man of similar features stood a little in front of her, just out of reach of the barrier they were being kept behind. "This fight is for the older generation. If we fail, then it will be up to you, the younger generation, to carry on our will of fire and protect the village." "Kurenai," he said, looking at the raven-haired girl. "Become a great Kunoichi and make me a proud father and a proud grandfather one day," he said before he disappeared into a swirl of leaves, intent on joining the fight to protect the leaf from the rampaging. Kurenai shook a little angrily as her father left and let a stray tear go down her face before a hand placed itself on her shoulder. Looking over her shoulder, she saw Asuma Sarutobi, a 17-year-old recently promoted jonin, give her a look that said believe in him and follow his words. Not liking it, she nodded her head in agreement despite still not liking it. Beside her, her fellow graduation class members and current Anbu Kakashi Haddock and his self-proclaimed eternal rival Might Guy stood there silently as they observed the beast attacking their home with emotionless looks on their face. Despite that, she knew they, along with everyone else, all had the same feeling of wanting to do their duty and not feel so useless against the Kyuubi. As they observed and watched, a small whimper came from behind them, making them turn around and make their eyes soften. Standing behind them was little 5-year-old Naruto Namikaze, still wearing his blue pajamas with little shurikens decorating around them and a little grey robe wrapped around him. He looked just like his father, the fourth Hokage, with his tanned skin and blonde hair, and even had a similar personality to him, which made him quite quiet but smart for his age. His eyes, though, were violet just like his mother's Kushina Uzumaki and had bursts of her personality at times. He was born on October 3rd and had just celebrated his 5th birthday a week ago with his father and his heavily pregnant mother, who was expecting twins. His parents adored him and spoiled him to a degree, though they were happy that Naruto never got bratty. He was a very kind, fun-loving though quiet little boy who in return loved his parents very much, especially his mother Kushina. He was very excited when he found out he was going to be a big brother and had done his best to help his mother around the house and try to cause her as little trouble and stress as he could. Sometimes he even talked to his little siblings in his mother's tummy, which always made Minato and Kushina smile at him proudly. "Where are Kachan and Tusan?" he asked as he watched the fox destroy his home, shifting in his spot a little nervously. Kurenai went down to her knees and picked him up into her arms, trying to soothe him. "Your Kachan and Tusan will be okay, Naruto. Remember, your Tusan is the strongest in the village and your mother is no pushover either," Kakashi said, trying to lift the boy's spirits. "But Kachan has my baby brother and sister in her tummy. What if she gets hurt? That won't happen to Naru-chan. Your Tusan won't let any harm come to them. You have my word on it," she said as Naruto nodded and watched as he nuzzled into the older girl's neck. The rest was silent as they continued to watch as the shinobi of the village tried to push the Kyuubi away but were getting thrown away effortlessly by the fox. Just as it looked like the Nine Tails was going to storm forward, a large elongated staff hit it square in the stomach and slowly started pushing the fox away and out of the village. When the fox looked to see where it came from, standing on top of one of the buildings was none other than Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage. "Gigi," Naruto said, just managing to see his grandfather-like figure battle the Kyuubi, while the younger generation smiled at the arrival of the powerful Leaf Shinobi. As he watched the 3rd Hokage battle the Kyuubi with long-range support from some of the other Leaf Shinobi, Naruto felt 2 strong energy signatures appear nearby and land just beside the 3rd Hokage. Naruto smiled though when he recognized the signatures. "Pervy Sage and Bachan are here," he said as the Kurenai, Kakashi, Asuma and Guy looked at him in confusion, not entirely sure what he was talking about. As soon as they did, 2 large plumes of smoke appeared in front of the Kyuubi, revealing a large white slug with blue stripes going down its back and a large purple frog with a shield in its hands. On top of their heads is none other than Jiraiya and Tsunade, 2 of the leaf villages of Sannin. When they saw Jiraiya and Tsunade begin battling the Kyuubi, the four younger shinobi looked at Naruto in surprise. How did he know they were there? I did not even sense them, they all thought, but left it alone for now and would get back to it later. Jiraiya-kun, Tsunade-chan, Sarutobi greeted a little out of breath as the two Sannin nodded towards him. Sensei. If the Kyuubi is here I can only guess something went wrong with Kushina's while she was in labor. Jiraiya asked. That seems to be the case. Though I have not seen her or Minato yet, I don't know where they are, but we have to keep the Kyuubi away. No matter what, he said, stealing his voice as they both nodded. However, just as the fox was about to launch an attack towards them, Minato appeared above the Kyuubi's head, looking a little beaten up, and then disappeared with the Kyuubi in a yellow flash away from the village, making everything suddenly go quiet. Where did they go? Tsunade asked as they began to scan the areas before they saw a large explosion a few miles out from the village. There, Jiraiya said before the three cage-level shinobi began running as fast as they could towards the site, with the summons following after. The other shinobi watched as the fourth Hokage and Naruto's father vanished with the Kyuubi making many cheers, though only four and a little boy knew it was not over yet. Naruto closed his eyes and searched for his dad. Having never told anyone this, he had always been able to sense where people were. He recognized his parents' signatures like the back of his hand. After a minute of searching he found them outside the village, but he sensed his mother was hurt. It made him want to go to her and stop Kyuubi from hurting her. He hopped out of Kurenai's arms and started running forward, but Kurenai and Kakashi caught him. Naruto, you mustn't. Just because the Kyuubi is not there does not mean it is still not dangerous, Kakashi urged, but the little blonde struggled as Kurenai placed him gently against her chest despite his wriggling. But I have too. Kachan is hurt, I know it. She is with you Sam and Kyuubi. Now that made the others have their eyes widened. He can sense that far away. They thought since they knew the Hokage must have teleported the Kyuubi a fair distance away from the village. The range that Naruto seemed to have of sensing people was vast. Definitely need to look into that on a later date, Asuma said to Kurenai who nodded, since a sensing ability of that magnitude sounded like a real blessing. Have faith in Naru-chan. They will be okay, Kurenai said as Naruto's violet eyes look out across the village. Battle site. Kushina breathed in heavily as multiple chakra chains were shot out of her back and kept the Kyuubi in its place, while Gamabunta, the chief toad was on its back trying his best to keep it pinned down. Moments later Minato suddenly flashed in front of her. In his hands was their newborn daughter, one of the beautiful twins his wife had given birth to not long ago. Her body was in pain all over after the Kyuubi was ripped out of her, but she willed herself to stay awake. She could not let her family and the village down. I'm sorry Kushina, but this is the only way, he said solemnly. If we seal the beast back into you then you will die and I can't let that happen. I can't let the twins and Naruto live a life without their mother. Kushina did not like it, but she knew it had to be done. A newborn baby was the best option to seal the beast away. But to make her children carry such a burden made a dent in her heart. It was a burden she never wanted one of her children to have to hold. How are we going to seal it? Kushina asked as she tried to stand up but felt the Kyuubi struggling against her chakra chains. Though she was a master, there were only a few methods of sealing that could contain the nine-tailed fox and knew there would be a struggle since the Kyuubi no doubt did not want to go back to be sealed away again. I have a plan for that. I can sense Jiraiya-sensei, Tsunade and Sarutobi are on their way here. When they get here we will perform the four-corner sealing method. Once we get it trapped, I will seal it away with the 8 trigrams. The four-corner sealing method might not work Minato, it was designed to hold up to the 6 tails. The Kyuubi might be too powerful for it, Kushina said, concerned since they only had one shot at this. I know but with 5 cage-level shinobi here and 4 to perform the ritual, it can be done. It will be close, but it can be accomplished. Kushina bit her lip. It was not the best idea but it could work. The 8 trigrams would definitely hold the Kyuubi, she just hoped the 4-corner barrier seal would be enough. Incoming, Gamabunta shouted as the Kyuubi got one of its claws out of the chains and sent it towards them. I will not be sealed away again, he roared showing his target was the baby Mito. No, both Minato and Kushina shouted as they jumped in the way to protect their daughter from harm. They waited for the strike to hit but suddenly felt a large shockwave hit them from behind. Looking around they saw Gamaken deflect the Kyuubi claw with his shield. Minato, 3 voices called Hiruzen, Tsunade and Jiraiya appeared beside them. While Gamabunta and Gamaken kept the Kyuubi pinned down, Tsunade began to heal Kushina as Minato explained the plan to them all. The 3 newly arrived adults looked down at the baby girl in sadness, knowing she had rough patches she was bound to encounter in her life. They did not like it, but they knew it had to be done. Does anyone know if Naru-chan is okay? Kushina asked, thinking about her oldest and firstborn. She saw Hiruzen nod his head. Last I checked he was in the protective barrier being looked after by Kakashi, Asuma, Guy and Kurenai. He is safe and is unharmed. Kushina nodded and breathed a little easier knowing her Naruto was safe and had not been caught in the fox's rampage. As Tsunade healed Kushina's body enough for her to move and access her chakra, Hiruzen stood in front of the Kyuubi with the intent of helping keep the Kyuubi at bay, while the other four took the 4 points around the Kyuubi to begin the sealing. From Minato's spot he placed his hand on the ground and summoned a small altar and gently placed his new daughter on top of it. She was sound asleep which surprised him from all the noise, but he guessed that was more a good thing. He began drawing on the necessary symbols and blood around the baby and onto the baby girl's stomach. After a moment the seal was ready. "Everyone a time now," Minato declared as Kushina retracted her chains which released the 9-tailed fox and made it roar from its spot. Anakin and Gamabunta did their best to keep it down as did Sarutobi, but the 9 tails was the strongest of the tailed beasts for a reason and was very quickly getting out of their grasp. Minato nodded to everyone as he, Kushina, Jiraiya and Tsunade all prepared and channeled their chakra and made the necessary hand seals. Dog, snake, boar, tiger, 4-corner sealing jutsu, the four all shouted as their blue chakra burst from all around them and began to create a large net. The net began to expand before it was big enough to cover the Kyuubi. In each of their hands was a kunai that once the net was securely placed around the Kyuubi, they would drive the kunai into the ground and hold the Kyuubi in the sealing barrier. Anakin, Gamabunta and Sarutobi saw the sealing get activated and quickly jumped out of the way as the sealing barrier began to close in around the Kyuubi and began to wrap around him. "No, I will not be sealed again after just getting free," it yelled as it fought against the sealing barrier around it, making the 4-cage level shinobi grit their teeth, while Kushina who still aches form earlier had to fight form passing out. "Keep going. We need to use more chakra," Minato said to the others who nodded and gritted their teeth as they all poured out more chakra. The Kyuubi tried to move around, but Hiruzen elongated his adamantine staff and hit the Kyuubi right in the snout, causing it to twitch in surprise. The Kyuubi struggled and struggled, but Gamabunta and Gamakin appeared by its side and slammed into its sides, panicking it between their giant bodies. "Take that giant furball," Gamabunta declared as the net of seals began to cover over the entire giant form of the Kyuubi, despite its declaring that it would not be sealed into some brat. Knowing that the sealing was about to be completed, Sarutobi stood in front of the Kyuubi looking it straight in its red eyes, not showing a hint of fear, even when it turned to stare at him. "You are too dangerous to be allowed to roam around freely," he said, making Kyuubi go wide-eyed at Sarutobi's words, as someone familiar from the past said the very same words. Hashirama Senju stood in front of the Kyuubi as the giant fox demon was being pinned down to the ground, with large wooden roots bursting out of the ground, which wrapped themselves around the Kyuubi and kept in submission. The first Hokage looked into Kyuubi's eyes with a sad but determined look on his face. "You are too dangerous to be allowed to roam freely. I am sorry but to protect the village and this world, this must be done." The snarl ripped from its mouth as the Kyuubi began to struggle against the net of seals, making the 4 sealers have a moment of struggle as it fought against them, but the net had already covered the Kyuubi completely. Kushina drove her kunai into the ground, first signaling she was done, then Tsunade, and then followed by Jiraiya and finally Minato. "Nu!" The Kyuubi roared. Minato threw one of his 3-pronged kunai at its head, which when hit, dispersed an 8-trigram seal on top of its head. Minato looked down at his daughter with a sad and apologetic look on his face before he made the necessary hand seals. 8-trigram seal, he called out as the blood marking in kanji he made earlier began to move onto the baby's stomach and wrap around in a spiral-like formation with 8 symbols around it. 4 at the top and 4 on the bottom. The Kyuubi's body changed in a giant shroud of orange chakra as it continued to try and break out of the 4-corner sealing barrier, but the 8-trigram seal appeared on its stomach before it just became a cluster of chakra. Letting out one last roar that seemed to echo and be louder than the rest, the Kyuubi began to get sucked into the 8-trigram seal on Mito's stomach until eventually the Kyuubi had completely vanished, leaving only the 5 shinobi and a baby left in the area. When it was over, the area was just silent as they all looked at the baby solemnly thinking how unfair it was that after being born not even an hour ago, she already had to carry such a heavy burden. "Mito," Kushina muttered as she went to walk over to her daughter. Though the toll of the sealing and getting the Kyuubi finally began to hit her as she tripped over her feet and collapsed onto the ground, sheer exhaustion took over. "Kushina," Minato called out as Tsunade put the little girl in her arms and watched as Minato ran to his wife. The 4 all appeared around her as Minato rested her gently in his lap with a worried look on his face. Tsunade checked her pulse and her breathing, but smiled and breathed out easily. "She will be okay. She is just exhausted, which I am not surprised about after what she had been through today. Let's get them both to the hospital. I have the nurses looking after IG along with a few bodyguards to be on the safe side. And we have a private room set up for her which we were going to transfer to once the twins were born," Minato said as Tsunade nodded. "Flash her there and make sure to put her straight to bed. She will be weak for a few days, but her Uzumaki blood will do the rest. And take me with you so that I can check on the other bay, she said with Minato nodding in agreement as he picked Kushina up in a bridal style. Minato was about to go before he had a pained look on his face and looked over at Sarutobi. I am sorry I could not protect Bawako, he said, wanting to send the older Hokage his sympathies. The third got a sad look on his face as he silently mourned his wife's death, but he knew such a thing would have to wait until later. So for now he just nodded his thanks to Minato, while Jiraiya patted his sensei's shoulder. Minato was about to flash this time when Tsunade grabbed a hold of his sleeve with Mito still in her arms, but then another thought crossed him. Naruto. Someone will need to collect Naruto. Jiraiya looked ready to offer to get him, but Hiruzen beat him to it. I can do that. I will bring him to the hospital since I am sure he will want to see that his family is safe. Minato nodded his thanks and within a second disappeared in a yellow flash, along with Kushina, Tsunade and Mito. No longer needing to stay in the area, Sarutobi and Jiraiya took off back to the village. In village, what's happening? Naruto asked for Kurenai's arms as they watched as the barrier that was stopping them from leaving disappeared and a few of the men Jonin that fought against the Kyuubi appeared in front of them. They explained how the Kyuubi was defeated, though they never said how. It did not matter though since the younger generation all cheered. The only one who was not cheering was little Naruto who just wanted to find his Kachan and Tusan. Naruto the young boy heard as he looked over from all the chattering around him to see Sarutobi approaching him. Jiji. Naruto cried as he jumped out of Kurenai's arms and jumped into the embrace of the old Hokage. Kachan and Tusan. Are they okay? He asked with tears threatening to spill again. Sarutobi soothed him and calmed him down as best he could, but he knew the boy wanted to see his parents. They are fine Naruto, they are at the hospital with Tsunade, Jiraiya and your baby brother and sister. Naruto's eyes went a little wide when he heard brother and sister and it only made him want to get there quicker. Your mother will most likely be asleep, so remember to be quiet when we get there since today has been very taxing for her, he said as Naruto quickly nodded his head. When he did Sarutobi said goodbye and thanked Kurenai, Asuma, Guy and Kakashi for watching over him in this time of need and quickly set off for the hospital. It did not take him long though when he did get to the hospital it was all in a rush as stretchers with people being carried on it were brought in and some of the nurses working on the injured in the lobbies or in the hallways. He spotted Tsunade's apprentice Shizun, ordering a few nurses while helping a young Kunoichi, quickly showing how far her studies with Tsunade were coming along. Are all these people going to be okay, Jiji? Naruto asked, looking around at all the hurt shinobi. Eventually they will. They had a hard-fought battle tonight and a lot of people got hurt because of it. However we have some of the best doctors around in Konoha, as well as Tsunade, so they will be back on their feet in no time, he said as Naruto nodded. They walked up a few flights of stairs before they arrived at the prenatal zone. Naruto saw a few of the pregnant moms women around who had been sent to the hospital to make sure their babies were okay. One of which was his mother's friend Hitomi Hyuga, who as far as he knew was expecting a young girl. Leaving that little area Sarutobi walked them down a quiet corridor before stopping at the third on the right. Here we go, Sarutobi said to Naruto as he opened the door and walked inside. As soon as they walked in he spotted his father with Jiraiya and Tsunade in the corner of the room, talking with serious expression on their faces. He saw they were all looking tired, especially Minato, and his clothes were ripped in a few places, and he rubbed his eyes a little. Tusan, Naruto quietly remembered what Sarutobi said about him needing to be quiet. He saw Minato look in his direction, and a smile appeared on his face. Nari-chan, he said, leaving the corner and taking his son from Sarutobi. I missed you too San. I thought you and Kachan were hurt, Naruto said beginning to sob as his father held him close and soothed him as best he could. It's okay Nari-chan. Your Kachan and I are made of some pretty strong stuff. It will take more than that overgrown fuzzball to hurt us, he said, trying to make his son smile, though he just sobbed a little harder. Wanting to calm his son down he made Naruto look at him. Hey Naruto-chan, would you like to see your new baby brother and sister, he asked. Naruto's eyes went a little wide but nodded his head. Minato smiled and led Naruto over to the other side of the room. Naruto turned his head and saw Kushina sleeping on the bed with her red hair swept onto one side. Kachan, he said looking at her. She is okay with Naruto. She has had a long and tiring night and just needs the rest. I know she was very worried about you, but I know she will be very happy to see you in the morning, Minato said as they reached who they were looking for. Situated next to Kushina's bed was a cot with two little bundles sleeping peacefully inside. One was wrapped in a blue blanket while the other was in blue. The little boy had tanned skin like Naruto and Minato and had blonde hair but could see a small red streak in it. The little girl had similar hair like her twin, but her skin was a lighter shade like Kushina's. However Naruto noticed that on her cheeks she had whisker-like marks. Though he and his little brother had similar marks, the ones on his sister were more noticeable and definite. Nari-chan I would like to meet your brother and sister Igi and Mito Uzumaki Namikaze. Minato leaned down with Naruto still in his arms and towards the sleeping twins. Naruto gasped a little as he looked at his younger siblings and outstretched his right hand and gently stroked his sister's cheek. "Mito-chan," he said as a smile made its way onto his face. Minato, Jiraiya, Tsunade and Sarutobi smiled as they watched Naruto interact with his two new siblings. After such a long day and after all the tragic occurrences that had happened, it was good to finally see something good happen, considering the twins' birth, which should have been a joyous moment, was interrupted by a madman and the attack. He did the same with Ig and laughed when the baby wrinkled his nose from the contact. "Who-san, can I hold them?" Naruto asked, looking his father in the eyes. Minato smiled and nodded. "Okay, but one at a time," he said as he put Naruto down and the boy sat on a nearby chair. Minato gently picked up Mito and walked towards Naruto. "Remember to be careful of her head," he said to his oldest son, who nodded and gently put her in Naruto's arm. Tsunade and Jiraiya sat beside him looking down at the little girl. Her tiny little body lay against Naruto's as she rested in his arms, though since he was only 5, she also laid across his lap. "Hi Mito-chan, I'm your big brother, Naruto," he said, making the others smile as Minato watched him with Ig resting in his arms. Just as he spoke, Mito's eyes began to flicker before she opened her eyes, revealing a pair of blue eyes looking up at him. "She has your eyes too, San," he said looking up at his dad, who was now a little in front of him. "It seems she does and it looks like Ig has the same eyes too," he said showing that Ig was awake as well now and showing his similar blue as well. Naruto looked down at his sister and saw she was looking up at him with a curious expression on her face, as if she was trying to figure out who he was. After the two looked like they were having a staring competition with each other, Mito then giggled a soft yet melody-like laugh that made everyone smile. "I think she likes you, Naru-chan," Minato said laughing a little. "What's not to like about my little Naru-chan?" a tired voice said, making them turn around to see Kushina with her eyes open and looking at the scene with a smile on her face. Kushina, the adults all said, was surprised to see her awake, while Naruto looked at his mother and a new set of tears began to form. He gave Mito to Tsunade who happily took the little girl before he made his way towards Kushina. "Ah-chan," he said as he crawled onto her bed and lay next to her. "Naru-chan doesn't cry. Everything is okay," she said softly, but quickly found him hugging her side. She kissed the top of his head and wrapped her arms around him. "I thought you got hurt, Ka-chan. I was worried," he sobbed as Kushina rubbed his back soothingly in circles, trying to calm her down. "I felt you and San and you felt hurt with a big vile horrible chakra nearby," he said, catching the attention of everyone in the room. "Naruto, what do you mean you felt everyone?" Minato asked, looking at his son with a curious expression. "I don't know how to describe it. I could just feel where everyone was. I could feel when Pervy Sage and Bachan appeared on their big animals and I could feel you and Kachan were out of the village." "Naru-chan can describe what you felt when you sensed your parents?" Sarutobi asked, getting a little intrigued about this information. "Well, I could feel San, and he felt calm but worried and a little scared. Kachan felt warm but tired and frustrated. Then there was that big chakra that just felt so big. Like there was no end to it and it felt so dark." Everyone was surprised at what Naruto described. "The sensor," Jiraiya said surprised. "Naruto has some kind of sensor-like ability. And to feel the two of you almost 2 miles away from the village means it is powerful and has a long range." Both Minato and Kushina looked at Naruto a little proudly, though they did feel a little worried. They were not going to begin training him until he was 6, but now that these sensor-like abilities had revealed themselves, they knew it was time to start a year early. Plus by the large chakra he said he could feel, they knew it was the Kyuubi he felt. However, they were not sure how to train him since they knew they were going to be extremely busy with the twins, Mito being and making sure the seal is functioning correctly. Plus there was healing the village from the damage of the attack. The adults began to talk to each other about Naruto's surprising new ability and the events of the night, not seeing Naruto slowly falling asleep in his mother's embrace. Chapter 2, The First Step. Life in the Leaf Village slowly began to return to normal a month after the attack, as the civilians and shinobi of the Leaf Village worked together to fix the damage the Kyuubi had caused. Most of the building that had been destroyed was at the front half of the village, leaving the back half mostly unscathed, which thankfully included the hospital, the academy, the graveyard and most of the shinobi clan compounds. The only clan compounds that had any damage was the Inyazuka and the Abiram, though thankfully they were only minor and had been rebuilt and put back to normal within a few weeks. The civilian and shinobi worked away to help rebuild their homes, while large groups of Leaf shinobi went out to complete the day-to-day mission they were given in order to show that the Leaf was still strong and they were not going anywhere. At the Namikaze residence all was quiet before a baby's cry rang out through the house, alerting those that were inside. The Uzumaki Namikaze family could have had their own clan compound or lived in the Hokage mansion if they wanted, but Minato and Kushina never wanted the big lavish lifestyle. They were more than content with their 6-bedroom house which has a cozy, warm and family feel to it. Plus with only 5 of them, there was just no need for a big clan compound. Naruto raced from his room and into the nursery, where he already found his mother holding and rocking his sister Mito back to sleep. "Is Mito-chan okay, Ka-chan?" he asked, walking in front of his mother as he saw Mito's wriggling form in his mother's arms. Kushina looked towards her oldest son and smiled. "Yes, she is okay, Naru-chan. She is just being a little fussy. She seems to have a lot of energy like another little someone when he was this age," she said, laughing a little at his big smile he was giving her. Naruto turned towards the crib and as his little brother Iji was still sleeping peacefully. Both babies were very active, he had noticed, though they never seemed to wake up at the same time during the night. He looked at his mother and saw her yawn a little. "Are you okay, Ka-chan? You look sleepy," he asked with a worried look on his face, touching his mother's sleeve. She nodded her head a little and noticed Mito was calming down and her eyes were beginning to drift off again. She delicately placed her back in the crib and saw she stayed quiet. "Don't worry about me, Naru-chan. I'm just feeling a little tired. Having 2 new babies will do that to someone. I will be fine, I promise," she said as Naruto nodded, though the little frown on his face showed he was not all that convinced. Kushina was about to move but saw Naruto holding a book in his hands. "Naru-chan, what do you have there?" she asked, taking the book gently from his hands and crouching down in front of him. Looking at the book, she saw it read Chakra for Beginners. She looked at Naruto and saw him shuffling a little. "Is my little Naru-chan wanting to become a ninja like his Two-san and Ka-chan?" she asked teasingly and saw him nod his head, though he was looking down at the floor in embarrassment. "What brought this on?" I want to get strong so I can protect you," he said quietly to himself, though Kushina had heard him and was a little surprised by his answer. "To protect me?" she said in a sweet voice. "To protect you and Two-san, Mito-chan and Iji-chan too, I don't want you to get hurt again," he said, sniffling a little, but felt his mother's arms wrapping around him. Kushina had a smile on her face as she kissed the top of his head. "My brave little Naru-chan, how lucky am I to have you as my baby. My big strong boy," she said, leaning back and cupping his face in her hands and kissing the end of his nose, making him wrinkle it. "Do you think you could help me?" he asked with a hopeful look on his face, since he knew his mother was a powerful shinobi who was on par with his Bachan Tsunade. Kushina bit her lip a little and shook her head a little, making Naruto feel a little disappointed. "I am sorry, Naru-chan, but I am too busy to help you at the moment. Plus I have some of the other moms coming over in a little while. I would love to help you, but it will have to be another time." "But hey," she said, giving him a smile. "Why don't you ask Two-san? I'm sure he would like to help you," she said. Naruto thought about it and nodded. "I guess I could," he said with a smile. "I'm sorry again, Naru-chan." "It's okay, Ka-chan, you're busy, so another time," he said, making his mother smile as she watched him leave the room. She felt a little disappointed that she could not train him, but she really was busy and just did not have the time. She had some of the other new shinobi moms coming over so they could catch up and so she could have them all meet Iji and Mito. There was her oldest friend and childhood rival Makoto Uchiha, who was bringing over her youngest son Sasuke. Then there was Tsu Minazuka, who was bringing her son Kiba. Then there was Yoshino Nara and Inori Yamanaka, who were bringing over their babies Shikamaru and Ino. Shaking her head knowing she could help him another time, she continued with her work and prepared the living room for when the other mothers stopped by. Naruto meanwhile went into his father's office at the back of the house and knocked on the door. "Come in," he heard from behind the door and opened the door and walked in. Minato was hunched over his desk filling out some paperwork when Naruto walked in. Since the twins' birth, he spent some of his time in his office at home instead of the Hokage office, just so that if Kushina needed any help with the twins, he could be there to lend a hand. "Hey Naru-chan," he said, seeing Naruto walk through the door. He scooped Naruto up and put him on his lap, getting a small laugh from his son. "Is your Ka-chan okay?" he asked, wanting to know how his wife was managing. "She is okay. She is getting ready for some of the other moms when they come over." "Ah, well then we best stay out of the way. You know what your Ka-chan is like when her girly friends come over," he said as they both laughed. Whenever Kushina and the other moms got together, Kushina and Makoto always ended up arguing over something as trivial as who has the best cooking to who won the most matches from their past spars. Even where they were pregnant, there was a sense of competition from the two that drove both husbands into the crazy house. "So is there something you need for Naru-chan?" Minato asked, looking at his son. Naruto nodded and showed him the book. Minato took a look at the cover and smiled at the title. "So you want to start training to become a shinobi? You have already impressed me and the others with those sensor abilities you seem to have." Minato and the others were still a little astonished that Naruto had it, since there was no indication of it before, which made them think that Naruto was either not aware of it or it only manifested during the attack. Naruto nodded again. "I was wondering if you could teach me how to use chakra since I want to get stronger." "And why do you want to get strong, Naru-chan?" he asked. "So I can protect my family and the village," the little boy in his lap said. Hearing his words, Minato smiled a big smile and ruffled Naruto's hair. That's a great reason for wanting to get strong, Naruto-chan. If you have a goal like that, then you will definitely become a strong shinobi one day. Do you think so? Naruto asked so innocently that if Kushina was there then she would have put him in a tight hug. I know so. Minato responded, making Naruto smile. So do you think you could help me train? Toussaint asked, hoping that his father would say yes. However, his hopes were dashed when he saw him shake his head with an apologetic look on his face. I am sorry, Naruto-chan, but I am too busy right now. I need to get this paperwork done soon and then I have a meeting in half an hour. I don't have the time. Oh, Naruto said, looking sad that his father could not help him either and now wondered who could help him. Maybe another time, huh? I can show you a few cool moves and I am sure your mother would like to show you a thing of too. He said encouragingly, hoping it did not get him down. Okay, Toussaint. He told Naruto to take the book back from Minato. He got off his father's lap and went towards the door. Toussaint, is it okay to go down to the park? He asked just as his father was about to get back to work. Minato bit his lip. He did not mind Naruto going to the park, but seeing as Naruto was only 5, he did not want him going out on his own. He had made that mistake a few months ago and it ended with him getting a beating from his livid wife, who was worried where her baby was all on his own. Of course, he was then almost smothered to death by the hug his mother gave him when he returned with Sarutobi bringing him back. Well, I guess that would be okay, but I want you back here by 3 o'clock, he said, getting a nod from Naruto. And you only go to the one that is a few minutes away, not the one in the center of the village. He got another nod. Plus you have to have an Anbu follow you. Naruto nodded again before Minato sighed. Alright, go on and have fun. But be careful. I will too, Chan, I promise. He said before he walked out. Minato sighed again before calling out Anbu. When he did, an Anbu male with a lion mask appeared beside him. Follow my son and make sure he does not get into any trouble or gets hurt. Hi Hokage-sama. Anbu said before he shunshined away and left Minato to get back to work. But Naruto arrived at the small park and saw it was completely empty, with only the wind moving the swing seats. His mother mostly took him here when she could, while his dad did on the occasions when he was not busy. The park was only small, but it was nearby and was a peaceful little spot that he always enjoyed. That was one thing Minato and Kushina had noticed about Naruto when he first started speaking. Naruto had always been quiet and only really spoke if it was worth saying or was important. But when he did, he was very polite, which many liked about him, since most his age tended to blurt out whatever came to mind. Walking over and sitting on the seat, he began to swing slowly before he looked at the book in his hand. He had bought this book from a shinobi bookshop the other day when Kakashi was taking him round the village. Apparently Kakashi needed to collect some kind of book that Naruto was not allowed to see, which made him pout. While that was happening, Naruto was looking at the shinobi section. Though he could not read most of the titles very well, he did pick up the Chakra for beginners. He then asked Kakashi if he could get it for him. Kakashi took one look at the book before shrugging and paying for it, much to Naruto's delight. Naruto opened the book and tried to read, but the words were a little too long for him and he could not pronounce a few of the words correctly. He sat there trying to read it for about 10 minutes with squinted eyes before he got a little frustrated and put the book down on the ground beside him. How can I be a good ninja like Kachan and Toussaint if I can't even read well? He thought as he began to swing. He looked up on the top of a roof where he felt a fairly strong energy reside. Maybe that is the Anbu-san Toussaint sent to watch over me, he thought. After another few minutes of silence, he heard a voice calling him from behind. Looking behind him, his expression brightened a little when he saw his Bachan's apprentice Shizun walking towards him with her usual kind smile on her face and with Tsunade's pet pig Tun-Tun in her arms. Hi Shizun-san. He said politely as the 17-year-old medic Nin took a seat next to him. He had met her a few times when Tsunade visited his family and she always found him adorable and cute. Plus she was always very kind to him. Hello Naru-chan. What did I tell you about calling me San? She said, tapping his nose. You can either call me Shizun-chan or Shizun-ni-chan. Naruto nodded with a small smile on his face. Okay, Ni-chan. He said, making her smile. Oink, oink. Naruto giggled a little and petted Tun-Tun. Hi Tun-Tun. He said as the pig nuzzled his leg. Now what are you doing here all by yourself? Is your Kachan or Toussaint not here? They were busy. Kachan has the other clan mommies over for lunch and Toussaint is busy with paperwork. What about Kakashi or Jiraiya? She asked since she was aware Tsunade was at the hospital making sure the staff did not slack off. Naruto shook his head again. So you are here all by yourself? Shizun asked, not liking that Naruto was here on his own. He shook his head once more. No, Anbu-san is up on the roof though he feels a little bored. He said pointing to the roof of the nearby building which made Shizun look up. The Anbu is up there? How do you know? She asked, looking a little skeptical. I can feel him up there. Oh that's right, Shizun thought. Lady Tsunade mentioned Naruto had some kind of sensor ability. Though I wonder how strong it is. For one so young to have sensor abilities was quite a feat in itself. It showed her just how strong Naruto might be when he grew older. Plus sensors were always a boost since shinobi that could detect others were very well looked upon and respected by others. Then how come you could not feel me coming towards you? She asked with Naruto struggling with his little shoulders. I don't know. I was not really paying attention, he asked, pouting a little, making Shizun laugh into her sleeve. So do you think you could tell me what I am feeling at the moment? She said wanting to test how good these sensor abilities were. Naruto started as he stared at Shizun. Shizun though had to stop herself from cuddling him since he looked very adorable when he tried to focus. They stayed silent for about a minute before Naruto answered. You feel happy and cheery but a little cheeky as well. He said. When he did, Shizun clapped her hands showing she was impressed. That's very good, Naru-chan. I see your botch-an's not over-exaggerating when she said you had sensor ability. You could become a very strong ninja just like your parents with that ability. Really? You think I can? Two-sen, I could be strong because I want to protect my family and the village. He squeaked out. Then your two-sen is a very smart man. She said before she grabbed him and began tickling his stomach. No Ni-chan, stop, ha 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 ha, it tickles. He cried out, making Shizun laugh, while Tun-Tun looked like she was trying to link him too by licking his ear. Sitting up as she watched Tun-Tun lick Naruto, which made him giggle loudly, she noticed a book to the side and went to pick it up. Chakra for Beginners, she read before smiling and looking at Naruto. Naru-chan, did you come here to try and learn how to be a ninja? She asked as Naruto sat up after Tun-Tun stopped licking him and saw him nod his head. I tried to but I could not read it. There were too many big words and I did not understand it very well. He said, looking a little embarrassed, though the 17-year-old lifted his head up gently with her index finger. Don't worry, Naru-chan, there is nothing to be embarrassed about. I think it is a good thing that you are trying to learn this, it shows that you understand that to be a ninja you have to start right at the bottom and work your way up. Really? He asked with her nodding. If you like I can go over it with you and teach you how to access your chakra. She said, making him get a hopeful look on his face. Really, you would do that? Don't you have other things you need to do today? I already finished my shift at the hospital and it is either help you or get bored sitting at home. And how could I ever not want to help little Naru-chan? She picked Naruto up from his spot and put him in her lap as she leaned against the swing bars. The book was placed in front of them and together they began to read. Chakra is the mixture between spiritual energy and the body's physical energy. It is essential to every technique that has and ever will be created. Once molded, it can be channeled through the chakra circulatory system, which is to chakra as the regular circulatory system is to blood, to any of the 361 chakra points in the body. Through various methods, the most common of which is hand seals. Hand seals perform many ninjutsu and other secret arts other than taijutsu. The exact amount of chakra necessary to perform a simple technique is manipulated through hand seals. This will vary between the simplest of jutsus to the most dynamic and most powerful. The hand seals are bird, boar, dog, dragon, ox, tiger, serpent, rat, horse, monkey, hare and ram. The two sat there for about an hour as Shizun read about chakra to Naruto and explained certain parts that he did not quite understand. She also made sure he was aware of what made up chakra and how many chakra points there are in the body, even pointing to the places where certain ones were on her arms. Do you understand, Naruto? She asked him as he sat there on her lap and saw him nod as he looked at one of the pictures that represented physical and spiritual energies coming together to make chakra. Can we try to see if I can use my chakra? He asked since he looked a little eager to begin. Sure, Shizun said warmly as Naruto hopped on her lap and sat in front of her. Get in a meditative pose like I am doing, she said as Naruto watched and tried himself, though Shizun had to help him a little since his legs were still so little. Are you comfortable? She asked and with Naruto nodding his head she began. Okay Naruto-chan, first I want to make this hand sign. This is the ram hand sign. Using any one of the hand signs will help to bring out your chakra and bring it to the surface. The ram hand sign is the one most used when starting out to first draw their chakra. Like this? He asked as did his best to mimic the hand sign Shizun was showing him. She observed and made a little tweak with two of his fingers before he had it right. Now to draw out your chakra you have to dig deep inside and try to draw it out. Search deep down and wait until you feel a warm sensation in your stomach. When you feel it, try to focus in on it and then pull it out to the surface. I will demonstrate. Naruto watched as Shizun closed her eyes, taking a few deep breaths before exhaling. After about 10 seconds Naruto felt a strong burst of energy come from Shizun, which caught him a little off guard. He could feel how warm it was and thought it was anywhere near as big as his Usan's or his Kachan, but he felt it flowing smoothly from her. If he squinted a little he could just about make out a blue-like aura appearing around her. Was that chakra? He asked her when she stopped and opened her eyes. The blue thing around you? It was. If you manage to surge out enough chakra then it can become visible around you and will be a light blue color. "Now it is your turn," she asked as he nodded. "Though don't be sad if you don't manage to do it, Naru-chan. It takes time to activate your chakra for the first time." "Okay, but I will try my best," he said eagerly as Shizun smiled at him and petted Tonton who was beside her. She watched as Naruto closed his eyes and took deep breaths similar to what she did moments ago. The ram hand sign he made was shaking a little, but she knew it was because Naruto was a little nervous since he obviously did want to let her down. Up on the building, the Anbu assigned to watch over Naruto also looks interested, wanting to see if his Hokage's son would be able to activate his chakra for the first time. Though he leaned forward to get a better view, he still remained hidden from view. After a few minutes had passed, Naruto opened his eyes with a sad look on his face. "I couldn't find it. I did not feel that warm feeling in my tummy." "That's okay, Naru-chan, I did say you might not be able to do it the first time around. It takes a few tries to first do it. You just have to keep trying and eventually it will happen." "Okay, I guess I can try again," he said as he got back in his meditative pose and made the ram hand sign again. He closed his eyes and took a few more deep breaths. Shizun observes again with Tonton staring at him too. "I have to find a pull in my tummy," he thought as he searched around while keeping as calm as he could. After another minute he still could not feel it, so he gritted his teeth a little. "I need to unlock my chakra so I can protect Ka-chan, Tu-san, Mito-chan and Iji-chan. I won't stop until I find it," he thought. Just when he finished he felt a pull in his stomach and felt a warm sensation appear there. "Could this be my chakra?" he thought before doing as Shizun said, and he did his focus on the warm sensation and to pull it to the surface. When he did, it felt like his whole body suddenly became warm and felt his fingers and his toes tingle. Outside, Shizun smiled a big smile when she saw a tiny blue aura appear around Naruto. She was about to go forward and hug him, well done for activating his chakra for the first time, but was a little caught off guard when she felt the size of his chakra. His chakra is about the size of a fresh one already. Is this because he is in Uzumaki? "I know Kushina-sama had large chakra reservoirs when she was young, but I didn't even have this much when she first activated it." Though she also felt how untamed it felt. Once Naruto got used to activating his chakra, someone would most likely have to show him one of the basic chakra control exercises. Up on the building, the Anbu was all a little surprised, though his mask hid that surprise. Though he was not all that surprised considering who his parents were. Shizun shook Naruto a little, which made him lose focus, and the chakra he was emitting stopped. He opened his eyes to see Shizun and Tonton looking at him with joyful looks on their faces, which made him smile a big smile. "I did it," he said, jumping up. Though when he did he suddenly felt tired and his body got a little stiff and fell to the ground. However, Shizun was in front of him and caught him in a warm embrace. The Anbu on the build was about to move when he saw Naruto's fall, but saw Shizun had it well covered. "Why do I feel sleepy?" he asked as he yawned in Shizun's arms. "Silly Naru-chan, you pushed out a lot of chakra when you activated it, which has now left you feeling tired. Don't worry, after some rest and some food in your tummy you will be fine," she said as Tonton nuzzled into his leg. "I think this is enough for the day. Let's get you home," she said as picked up the book under arms while carrying Naruto in her left. They left the park as did the Anbu and quietly watched over them as they made their way back home. Halfway there Naruto spoke up. "Hey, Ni-chan." "Yes, Naru-chan?" she asked, looking down at him. "What kind of a ninja are you?" he asked, surprising her a little, though she answered. "Well, I am a medic nin. I practice medical ninjutsu, which is why I work mainly at the hospital." "Medical ninjutsu? What's that?" he asked, making Shizun giggle a little at how he said medical. Medical ninjutsu is a type of ninjutsu that is used to heal people when they get hurt. Like when people are sick and not feeling good. "Exactly, I am okay at fighting, but I prefer healing people, which is why I am Lady Tsunade's apprentice. She is the best medic in the whole world." "Wow," he said quietly to himself. "Ba-chan is really strong." She is. She is one of the strongest in the village and is known all over the world as one of the strongest kunoichi there has ever been. "So does that mean you are really powerful too?" he asked, making her laugh again. "I am nowhere near as powerful as your Ba-chan, but I like to think that I am capable of looking after myself. I am a level ninja, so I know how to defend myself, which is the main thing." Naruto just nodded and felt his eyes begin to get heavy. They appeared in front of his home and walked inside. He could hear female voices coming from the living room and recognized one as Kushina's. As Shizun walked towards the stairs she passed the living room where Kushina and the other moms were. She sat beside Makoto Uchiha and Inori Yamanaka, while on another seat was Yoshino Nara and Tsumin Yuzuka. All the mothers were holding little wrapped bundles in their arms, while the twins were in a little crib just in front of Kushina. The mothers all looked up to see Shizun in the doorway holding Naruto in her arms, looking like he will fall asleep at any moment. "Hello Shizun," Kushina said, standing up as the other moms all said hello to the teenage girl. She looked at Naruto and saw him giving her a wave hello. "Did you have fun today, Naru-chan?" she asked and saw him tiredly nod. He has been great today. He unlocked his chakra for the first time. Shizun said, surprising the women in the room before they all smiled and told him well done. Thank you, he said almost half mumbling and not really paying much attention, making the moms coo at him. Kushina went up to him and kissed him softly on the forehead while he nuzzled into Shizun. My little Naru-chan, already beginning his path to becoming a shinobi, I know your two-san will be proud when he gets home. Little Naru-chan has gotten big since I last saw him, Mikoto said as she appeared next to Kushina and gave Naruto a small wave. He is the same size as my little Itachi. They saw Naruto yawn and Kushina asked if Shizun could put Naruto to bed for her, which the Shizun quickly said yes to. Walking up the stairs and entering his room, she saw how neat and tidy it was and put him down onto his bed with blue covers with little shuriken on the front. She placed his book on the small desk beside the bed and quietly left the room, leaving the door unlocked a little. Thank you for helping him today, Shizun, Kushina said while Shizun just waved it off. I was happy to help him. I love spending time with little Naru-chan. In that case, might I ask you a favor? Kushina asked as Shizun nodded. With the twins, I might not have much time for Naruto, and the same can be said with Minato with him helping rebuild the village. I was wondering, would it be possible for you to help Naru-chan with his chakra? Shizun was a little taken by surprise by the request, but she could see where Kushina was coming from in a way. With two newborn babies, her focus would without a doubt have to be on them, which would have left little time for Naruto. Plus Minato with his responsibilities as Hokage and the state the village was currently in meant the same thing towards Naruto. Of course Kushina-sama, I would love to help Naru-chan. Thank you Shizun, Kushina said before the two said their goodbyes and she walked back into the living room to continue her conversation with the other mothers while Shizun left the house. Chapter 3. The art is in our blood. How is the exercise coming along Naru-chan? Shizun asked from her seat besides the young blonde as she read a book on medical ninjutsu, as well as watched Naruto who had 5 leaves in his hand. Currently the young blonde was trying to balance the leaves on the end of his fingers by only using his chakra. Shizun had told him that it was an exercise that was used to help learn to control one's chakra. It's coming along okay Ni-chan. I think I almost got it. He said from his seat on the ground as he shakily balanced the 5 leaves on the tip of his fingers. Shizun leaned in to take a good look and a small look on her face that showed she was impressed. She couldn't help but feel a little amazed that despite how young he was and how big his chakra was at his age, Naruto had surprisingly good chakra control and learned at a very quick pace. He was eager to learn and loved anything that was ninja related. Plus he was always full of questions which Shizun knew to be a good quality since the best way to learn is to ask questions and ask for help which Naruto had no problem doing. She had been teaching Naruto for almost a year and had mainly taught him bits of history on the leaf along with its clans, taught him more about chakra and over the last month beginning to take control since Naruto now had a decent understanding of it for a 6-year-old. That's very good Naru-chan. Your control is very good. Your parents would be very proud. She said. I guess, he said with a half smile that was not full of the usual cheeriness that he usually carried. One that Shizun had recognized. She had an idea of what had him so down. She had noticed that over the last few months Kushina and Minato had made very little time for Naruto and had spent almost all their time with the twins. The twins both looked almost identical, though they could tell them apart by the deep-looking whiskers marks on Mito's cheeks. The twins had celebrated their 1-year birthday a few weeks ago and the mother and father had made a big deal of it, wanting their first birthday to be something to remember. Only a week before that it had been Naruto's birthday which was a quiet affair. He got presents and cake of course as he saw Hiruzen, Tsunade and even Jiraiya and Kakashi, who were always away on missions. Though Shizun had noticed that despite it being Naruto's birthday, Kushina and Minato had spent most of it focusing on Mito and Iji, which Shizun had to admit, she was not all that impressed. She understood the twins needed more looking after what Naruto did for their age, but she did not like that Naruto was getting a little left out. Let's take a break Naru-chan. You have done very well today. I think you have earned yourself a little treat for today. Naruto's face seemed to brighten at the word treat and let the leaves drop from his fingers and float to the ground. We will take this stuff home first and then how about we get some ice cream since it is quite warm today. Does that sound good? She asked as Naruto quickly nodded his head in agreement. She took his hand in hers and together walked towards Naruto's house. They talked a little as they made their way to Naruto's home with Naruto once again asking questions about Shizun being a medic nin. Ever since she told him about her being a medic nin, he had asked many questions over the years about why she wanted to be a medic nin and what kind of abilities they have. She thought maybe Naruto was interested in taking up medical ninjutsu which she would be a little surprised about but would also love if he would. He had shown at 6 that his control was pretty good and if focused, could be one of the best at controlling chakra. Though a medic nin was not what she pictured Naruto as despite liking the thought of him being one. But it did not hurt to maybe show him some medical ninjutsu in the future. I want to make sure little Naru-chan is prepared for the life of a shinobi as best as I can. Some of the civilians and shinobi they passed gave a small wave to the two and greeted them warmly since the village had all but loved Naruto the moment he was brought into the world. As they approached the Uzumaki Namikaze home they saw Kushina just exiting the door with the twin strapped into a stroller. Ig was fast asleep while Mito had a dummy in her mouth. "Hi Ka-chan," Naruto called with a bright look on his face and walked up to his mother, making Kushina look in his direction and giving him a smile. "Hello Naru-chan. How was our study session Shizun?" She asked as she checked the stroller had everything she needed and that the twins were safely strapped in. "It's going great. I can balance 5 leaves on my fingers now." "That's great Naru-chan," she asked not looking up from the stroller. "So where are you going?" He asked with a little frown on his face. "I'm taking the twins for a walk around the market and then we are visiting your father at the office," she said as she patted his head and gave him a small smile. "Maybe I can." He started but saw Kushina had already begun to walk away, said goodbye to them both and left the house. "Go with you?" He finished looking at the ground, sighing a little. Shizun meanwhile had a frown on her face. It was like she had thought before. Kushina, although giving Naruto her attention at first, quickly shifted back to the twins. "You okay Naru-chan?" she asked in slight worry. I'm fine Ni-chan. Ka-chan is just busy again and I understand." He said with a half smile again and quickly went inside to put away his equipment before quickly returning. Shaking her head and getting rid of the frown on her face, she took Naruto's hand into hers again and the two walked into the center of the village to get some ice cream. 20 minutes later the two walked out of the ice cream shop with Shizun licking a mint chocolate chip ice cone while Naruto had orange flavor. He was devouring it rather quickly. "Slow down Naru-chan or you will give yourself a brain freeze." She chided a little and tried not to laugh when she saw Naruto had got ice cream on the tip of his nose. With the end of her sleeve she wiped it off his nose but then found that he had now got orange ice cream around his cheeks as well as was smiling a big goofy smile at her. "You are so messy at eating ice cream Naru-chan," she said, now wiping the rest of his face while tickling him a little. "No Ni-chan or I will drop my ice cream," he said which thankfully made her stop. The two walked for a few minutes before they sat on a small bench and just enjoyed the sun and watched as the people went past on by. After a few minutes though Shizun tapped Naruto's shoulder which got his attention. "Naru-chan, tell me what Genma is feeling at the moment," she said pointing to a shinobi who had in his mouth and a bandana around his head that was the other way around. He hummed as he focused on the as he walked past before he spoke. "He feels a little bored but a little lazy at the same time, like he does not know what to do." Sounds like Genma, she thought before she pointed over towards an Inyazuka clan member with their ninja hounds walking beside them. "He feels happy and excited and maybe a little bit too cocky as well," Naruto added while Shizun nodded, believing that completely considering Inyazuka males tended to be a little too overconfident most times. Though what they were doing might be seen as a little rude to some people, Shizun had found it to be a great way for Naruto to get used to his sensor abilities. Plus by feeling the energies of people around them, it helped him get familiar with those that lived in the village. That way when he was older it would help him know who was a resident of Konoha and who was not and whether they had good or ill intentions towards their home. "That's very good Naru-chan. You are getting better with those sensor abilities of yours," she said, making him smile. Though when he did he felt a familiar signature walking up to them from behind them and it felt quite strong. He looked behind them which also prompted Shizun to do the same but grinned when he saw who it was. "Hey Asuma-san," he said, giving the young Jonin a wave while licking his ice cream. "Hey Naruto, hey Shizun," he said giving her a nod as well as he took a drag on his cigarette. "Hello Asuma-san. Just getting back from a mission?" she asked since he looked a little tired. He nodded his head. "Yeah just a few minutes ago actually. Guy is giving the mission report to the Hokage." Shizun nodded though felt a little bad for Asuma. Though she liked Guy and he was a good friend, the man was a little full on and could be a little much. "Asuma-san you know you should not smoke. Ni-chan says it is bad for your health." Naruto chided softly making Asuma raise an eyebrow while Shizun giggled a little into her hand. "True, but I summon a bit of chakra round my lungs so that it does not do as much damage. Plus I am as healthy as a horse." "Yeah, but Ni-chan says if a horse has to be put down when it breaks its legs. Does that mean you will have to put down when they make your lungs go bad?" he asked with complete innocence in his voice. Asuma looked at Naruto in slight disbelief while Shizun was just laughing her eyes out. "You have to admit Asuma, he has got you there," she said, trying to regain control over herself. Asuma mumbled something under his breath before shaking his head and trying to get himself out of this embarrassing situation of being outwitted by a 6-year-old. "Anyway I am about to head home and back to the Sarutobi Manor. If you two are done with your session today why don't you come along? My pops should be there and I am sure he would like to see Naruto." He recommended it. Naruto looked happy at the prospect of getting to see his Jiji and looked at Shizun with a pleading look. "Can we Ni-chan? Please?" he asked, giving her a puppy dog-like look. It made her want to hug him to death, though she managed to keep her calm. "Sure Naruto, I don't see why not. Plus who knows, maybe your Jiji will have some shinobi wisdom to give you," she said, making Naruto smile even more. "If there is anything my dad has, it's wisdom by the shed loads," Asuma said before he began making his way back home with Shizun and Naruto now following behind him. As they walked to the Sarutobi Manor, Asuma spoke about the mission he had, which was to take out a bandit encampment that had been established 2 days outside of the village that was terrorizing a nearby village. Naruto tried to listen, though the 2 older teens were making sure Naruto did not hear any of the gory parts since he was still a kid and they did not want to expose him to the killing, part of a shinobi duty, until he was a bit older. They arrived at a large manor house about 3 stories high and very wide that had fresh flower beds decorating the outside. They walked in and took their sandals off before Asuma called out, "Yo, Dad, I'm back and we got guests. I'm in the dining room." They recognized it as Sarutobi's voice and began to walk towards it. As they walked further into the home and arrived in the dining room, they saw Sarutobi sitting at the low table, sitting on a cushion with some ink, brushes and paper lay out in front of him and was writing elegant-looking giant kanjis on them. "Gigi," Naruto barreled towards Sarutobi. The former Hokage took notice of Naruto and smiled a grandfatherly smile at the young blonde. "Naruto-kun, this is a nice surprise," he asked as hugged the blonde and settled him on the cushion that was stationed beside him. "And Shizun-chan, it's nice to see you again." "Hello Sarutobi-sama," she said, bowing a little before taking up a seat besides Naruto. "How did the mission go, Asuma?" Sarutobi asked as he looked at his son standing in the doorway as he finished the smoke in his mouth. "It went well, but I am feeling a little tired, so I'm going to head to bed to get some rest," he said as Hiruzen nodded to his son and watched him go before he turned to Naruto. "So Naruto-kun, it's nice to have you over today. If I had known, I would have had some tea and sweets ready," he said. "That's okay, Gigi. Ni-chan said I did well today in my studies, so we went to get ice cream. And how are your studies going? I'm sure your parents are very pleased to see you on your way to becoming a great shinobi." Naruto half smiled again like he did earlier, though Hiruzen had noticed the small flash of sadness appear in his eyes that worries him a little. He looked at Shizun, who just gave him a look that said, "Tell you later." "Ni-chan taught me the leaf balancing exercise for my chakra control. I can already balance 5 leaves on one hand now," he said, feeling proud of himself. "Well, that's very good, Naruto-kun. You're well on your way to becoming a great shinobi. Everybody starts at the bottom and I am glad that you know that and are not trying anything that is currently out of your reach. You want to see?" he asked as Hiruzen nodded his head indicating he would. Naruto jumped up from his seat and opened one of the doors to the giant garden and training ground behind the manor house. As he went out the door, Sarutobi looked towards Shizun, who sighed a little. "You saw it too, didn't you?" she asked a little sadly. "Why did he look a little sad when I mentioned Kushina and Minato? Everything is okay at home, is it not?" he asked. "Everything is fine from what I can see, but I think Naruto is having a hard time due to the twins," she said. Sarutobi asked her to elaborate on what she meant. "I can't help but notice that over the last couple of months, Kushina-sama and Minato-sama's attention has been fixed mainly on the twins lately, and they seem to be spending most of their free time with them. I think Naruto has been feeling a little left out due to the lack of attention they have been giving him lately. Also, when he asks them to help him with his session or just to play a little, they are normally busy." "Well, something like this was always going to happen," Hiruzen suggested. "After all, with the twins being so young, it is only natural that their attention should be focused more on them." "Oh, I know, and I am probably just looking into it too much, but at Naruto's birthday a few weeks ago, I noticed that their attention was again mainly focused on the twins and not on Naruto. Don't you think that is a little odd?" she said as Hiruzen sighed a little. "I understand what you mean, Shizun, but unfortunately sometimes these things are to be expected with having more than one child. Plus, since Mito is there is always that small chance that something may happen with the seal. They are probably just being cautious." Shizun was the one to sigh a little now. "Yeah, I guess you are right, I am sure it is just temporary," she said, shaking her head. Just as she was about to speak, Naruto came back in, halting their conversation. Though she was a little surprised when she saw Tsunade walk in from behind Naruto. "Lady Tsunade, what are you doing here?" she asked as Hiruzen greeted his old student. "I thought I would visit sensei while I had some time away from the hospital. It's an added bonus that I get to see little Naru-chan. I have not seen him since his birthday," she said, hugging Naruto from behind and making Naruto smile up at her. They all sat around the table as they watched Naruto show them he could do their leaf exercise. When he succeeded, Sarutobi and Tsunade clapped while Shizun patted him on the back. As Shizun moved over to speak with Tsunade, Naruto focused on the stuff on the table. "Gigi, what are all the scribbles and kanjis for?" Naruto asked as he looked at the equipment on the table and the paper with the kanji written on them. He looked a little interested in them. Ah well, this is my calligraphy equipment, Naruto-kun. It helps with keeping my writing abilities neat and readable. Plus it is a practice that is great for practicing to write Kenjutsu seals, he explained as he took a brush with a bit of ink on the end and made the kanji for fire on one of the pieces of paper. Naruto watched in interest. Foof Kenjutsu? He said aloud with a thinking pose on his face. Is that the one where you make things go poof and put them in another object? He asked Sarutobi as Shizun giggled into her sleeve at his description. Sarutobi chuckled a little as well and ruffled his hair. Yes, that is one way to describe Naruto-kun. It's also a type of shinobi practice where Tusen and Kachan are masters. When it comes to Kenjutsu, your parents are the best there is. Really? He asked with slightly wide eyes as Hiruzen nodded. Are you good at Kenjutsu too? Sarutobi tapped his chin as he thought it over. Well, I am not bad, I guess. Do you know how the art of sealing works, Neri-chan? He asked but saw Naruto shake his head. So Sarutobi explained while Shizun listened in on the description. Well, Kenjutsu is a type that seals objects, living beings, chakra, along with a wide variety of other things within another object. Kenjutsu can also be used to unseal objects either from within something or someone. That you are already aware of, he said as Naruto nodded, prompting him to continue. Well, with Kenjutsu there are 10 levels of sealing, with level 1 being for beginners and then level 10 being for masters. Your Kachan and Tusen are both level 10 Kenjutsu masters and are most likely the only level 10 Kenjutsu masters in the world. Jiraiya meanwhile is a level 8, Tsunade 7, while Kakashi is a level 6. Whoa, that's so cool, Naruto said, getting a nod from Sarutobi. So then what level are you at? It must be pretty high because you're so strong. Ah well, I am not as good at sealing like your parents or Jiraiya. I do know my way around seals and I can spot a great seal when I see one. My Kenjutsu skills are level 7 like your Bachan. Cool, he said as he looked at the equipment before turning back to Sarutobi. Could you teach me, Jiji? He surprised a former Hokage before he smiled and nodded at the request. However, before you learn about sealing you need to have a steady hand and be able to write and draw neatly and elegantly. That way the seal will be able to work. I can teach you calligraphy first as a first step. He said with Naruto nodding. Putting a few large sheets of paper in front of Naruto and giving him a brush and small palette of ink, he guided Naruto with what to do. Though he knew Naruto had good handwriting for someone his age, he knew it was better to practice and get the symbols spot on, since one wrong marking could lead to a disaster. Okay Naruto-kun, first we will start easy and we'll draw the kanji for fire that I did moments ago. I will go slowly so you can follow the movement. He said as Naruto nodded and tipped his brush into one of the ink palettes. Naruto watched as Sarutobi's brush glided along the paper and Naruto slowly and carefully did his best to follow the movements. From the side, Shizun and Tsunade were watching with interest since they were wondering when Naruto would gain an interest in seals. Considering his Uzumaki blood and who his parents are, it was almost required for Naruto to have a strong interest in the art of sealing. Naruto's tongue poked out of his mouth, showing how hard he was concentrating, and licked his lips a little. After Hiruzen finished the symbol, he placed his brush down and looked at Naruto's, who had just finished the last part, until he made the last little swish movement with his brush. Like Sarutobi, he placed his brush down. Hiruzen looked it over and narrowed his eyes as he looked it over, checking for any little mistakes. Then a couple of seconds later he smiled. This is very good for a first try at Naruto-kun, he said, placing the paper back down on the table, making Naruto smile at the praise. Though next time try and make the bottom right leg of the kanji a little longer since the one on this is a little short. Naruto nodded seriously before he attempted it again. The two worked on calligraphy for a few hours as Hiruzen taught Naruto to draw all the element symbols as well had him write sentences as quickly as he could, whilst trying to keep the writing and symbols as neat and elegant looking as possible. Hiruzen had to admit that Naruto was doing very well for his first real go at calligraphy. The first time he drew a new symbol there were only small things that needed to be tweaked. From then on all of them looked very professional looking and Hiruzen could not spot a flaw in them. The Uzumaki blood runs strong in you, Naruto-kun, he thought as he went on to show him the symbol for iron. The little guy is doing well. Tsunade said to Shizun as they quietly spoke and watched Naruto work with Hiruzen and found it very cute how determined he looked. You know, Neri-chan has been asking me a lot of questions about medic nins lately. She said, making Tsunade's eyebrows rise up in surprise. Really? I did not think medic nins were something little Neri-chan would be interested in. Tsunade said honestly, since not many children really knew about medic nins. You would be surprised. He is very curious about all the different types of shinobi there are and always asks me about the things I do as a medic nin. So you think he could be a medic nin one day? No, I don't think Naruto would be a medic nin, however, I do think he would be interested in learning some medical ninjutsu. You think he could? Tsunade asked since she was not fully aware of what Naruto could do or what he was good at since she was busy a lot of the time at the hospital. He is very smart for his age, and he always asks questions, which is a good thing. Plus for the amount of chakra he has for his age, and having pretty good control over it, which he demonstrated earlier, I think Naruto learning some medical ninjutsu could be possible for him and be a big help to him. Tsunade tapped her fingers against her chin as she thought it over. She did enjoy showing people how great medical ninjutsu was, since it was an art that many took for granted. It was medical ninjutsu that helped her create her creation rebirth technique and to discover the superhuman strength she was known for. And I would like to teach Naru-chan. Since Kushina and Minato are his parents, he will without a doubt go on to do great things, and if I could help prepare for the life of a shinobi like Shizun already is, it would give Naru-chan a great start. I will think it over. Perhaps teaching Naru-chan a little medical ninjutsu would not be a bad thing, she said with Shizun smiling. Later on at Uzumaki Namikaze's home, Naruto sat on the floor in the living room as he sat in front of the coffee table. A little time after his working on calligraphy with his Jiji, Sarutobi had taken Naruto out and got him a little calligraphy set of his own so that he could practice at home. Since Sarutobi told him to make sure he could draw the kanji on the paper as if it was second nature and at a quick speed, that was what he decided to do with the rest of his time for the day. Nah, he heard from beside him and smiled when he noticed Mito was crawling towards him. She and Ig had spoken their first word a few days after hers and Ig's first birthday, which happened to be Tusan. It of course made Minato extremely happy since Naruto's first word was Ka-chan. "Hi Mito-chan," he said as his little sister continued towards him before rolling around beside him. "Did you have a nice dinner?" he asked since he saw a little bit of mushy carrots and beans on her face. Picking up a napkin, he put his baby sister in his lap and wiped off the mess from her face, which made her flay her arms around, indicating she did not like it. When he was done, he saw she was staring at what he was doing on the coffee table and was pointing towards one of the brushes he was using. "You want to go?" he said down at Mito, who just gave a delighted squeals as a response, just as Minato walked in with Ig in his arms and Kushina following behind. "So that's where you went, Mito-chan, went to see what your big brother was doing," Minato said as he saw his daughter on his eldest's lap and he put a brush in her right hand. Together Naruto dipped the brush in the ink and with Mito's in his own, together they slowly drew the kanji for water on the paper. Mito showed she was enjoying it by giggling, while Ig, who was still in Minato's arm, had his arm stretched out, showing he wanted to go too. Kushina and Minato sat on the sofas behind the coffee table and watched Naruto and Mito interact with each other before noticing the calligraphy kit. "Naru-chan, where did you get this kit?" Minato asked. Naruto smiled back at Minato. "Jiji got it for me. We went to see Jiji today and he taught me calligraphy. He said it was good practice for seals." He is right, they are very important for someone who wants to learn seals. "Does this mean you are wanting to learn Kenjutsu?" Kushina asked, watching as Naruto had let go of Mito's hand as she was just drawing squiggles on the paper. Naruto nodded his head and saw the two equally proud smiles appear on their faces. He watched as his father got from his seat and went upstairs, but quickly returned a minute later with a book in his hand. "Dear Naru-chan, if you want to learn seals, then take this and have Shizun or your Jiji read it with you. This is a beginner's guide to Kenjutsu that I wrote with Jiraiya. This will help you learn the basics and level 1 Kenjutsu. Did your Jiji tell you about the 10 levels?" he asked as Naruto nodded. "If you are anything like us, Naruto, then you will fall in love with Kenjutsu. Most think it is a dead-end area of ninjutsu, but it can be very powerful and so helpful if used right," Kushina added while watching Mito have fun with her drawing squiggles. "Thank you Tusan, Ka-chan, but can't you help me with learning sealing? Jiji and Shizun ni-chan said you both are the best with seals," he asked, thinking his parents would say yes to this. But to his disappointment, both his parents shook their heads. "Sorry Naru-chan, we just don't have the time to help you right now, maybe some other time," Kushina answered. "But your Jiji can help you since I know he is quite well versed in seals. He will definitely be able to help you," Minato said as he patted Naruto's head. "Oh, that's okay. Maybe another time," he said to sound convincing despite feeling sad that they said no. "Thank you Naru-chan, thank you for understanding," he said as Kushina picked Mito up, which got a disappointed gurgle from the girl since she was enjoying her squiggle time. Kushina kissed Naruto's forehead before standing up. "Come on Miss Messy, let's get you nice and clean with a bath," she said as she and Minato left the room and headed upstairs with a twin in each arm. As the two left, neither heard the slight sniffle come from Naruto as he started a new page and began to draw again. Chapter 4, The Meeting of Two Geniuses. Naruto jumped over a log as he ran around in a small forest just a little ways away from the Sarutobi Manor as he did his best to jump and dodge out of any obstacles he ran into. He huffed a little as he stopped and tried to catch his breath. He had been running full out for about 30 minutes, which for a 7-year-old most would find impressive. Though he wondered if that was due to his Uzumaki blood, he would think about that another time. Strapped to the side of his pants was a small pouch that carried some kunai and shuriken which Sarutobi had bought for him a few months ago. Since he started studying under Sarutobi just over a year ago, Sarutobi, Shizun and Tsunade had been surprised at how quick he was learning what they were showing him. After just 3 months of learning calligraphy from Hiruzen, the boy's handwriting had become so neat most would have thought an adult had written it. So Hiruzen began teaching him level 1, which of course Naruto took to like a sponge. Anything that was seal related went right into his head and stayed there. Sarutobi had been a little flabbergasted at how quickly Naruto had come into. He believed that he was quicker in understanding seals at his age than even his parents. The level 1 sealing showed Naruto how to make simple seals like storage seals with scrolls, which were the basics among them. It only took Naruto about 5 months to understand the concept of level 1 and how to make high quality and working storage seals. It was also a big surprise when by his 7th birthday he was already beginning level 2. Sarutobi had tested Naruto how quickly he could make a storage seal with the equipment in front of them. He was left flabbergasted again of course when Naruto made one in under 30 seconds. His parents were delighted at how quickly he took to them and knew that one day he would be a future master. Meanwhile his studies with Shizun had carried on to the point where even his botch Aunt Swan would turn up on occasions to see how well he was doing and would give him little tips with certain areas of his studies. Once he got the leaf exercise down they moved on to balancing rocks on the end of his fingers since rocks were heavier and needed more chakra to balance them on the end of his fingers. Once again everyone was surprised at how quickly he was completing the exercise, which showed Tsunade that Shizun had been correct about his chakra control and that she would definitely have to look into teaching him some medical ninjutsu at some point in the future. Even Asuma and Kurenai, who would watch him practice, were amazed at how well he was doing for one so young and knew that he had definitely inherited the brains of his father and the determination of his mother. Gigi told me to stretch as well to make sure my body stays nimble and doesn't seize up, he thought as he began to slow down and stopped in his tracks. He did a few arm stretches and leg lunges since he had taken his Gigi's words to heart about taking care of his body and that he would not get far without keeping a healthy diet and keeping one's body in top shape. Looking at a high tree he decided he wanted to begin practicing his kunai and shuriken throwing since that was almost a necessary skill one needed to be a shinobi. However, before he could go to begin target practice, he began to sense somebody close by to where he was. It felt a little familiar and decided to go and investigate who the signature was coming from. The signature felt young like him, though he could sense it was quite strong. He trekked through the forest for about 5 minutes until he found who he was looking for. In a small clearing in the forest there stood a boy who looked about the same age as he did, wearing a light blue top and gray's pants with shinobi sandals. He had raven hair and had a small beginning of a ponytail at the back. Though the most notable feature was the long, pronounced tear troughs under his eyes. On the back of his shirt was a red and white symbol of a fan. Uchiha Naruto thought as he watched what the boy was about to do. He watched as 4 kunai appeared in his hands and then jumped in the air and flipped. As he began coming down he released the kunai from his hands and flew towards a bunch of targets that were scattered around the small clearing. Naruto's eyes shot wide open when he noticed that they all hit the targets right in the center. He is really good. As the young Uchiha landed gently on his feet he turned over to where Naruto was watching. Who is there? Come on out, he said lightly but with a slightly threatening tone to it. Naruto stepped out of his hiding spot and walked into view of the Uchiha boy. My apologies to Uchiha-san, he said, bowing a little. I didn't mean to spy. I was in the area and I felt your chakra and came to investigate. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. It is nice to meet you, he said, introducing himself. It is nice to meet you too, Namikaze-san. My name is Itachi Uchiha, he said, reciprocating the bow. Naruto nodded and smiled. How did you get all the kunai on the bullseye? I am surprised someone my age was able to do such a thing. My two-san and my clan taught me from a very young age, though a lot of it is self-study and a lot of practicing. I just taught myself until I could do it without blinking. So you have been learning to be a ninja since you were young then? When I was 4 I began. Though my Ka-san was not happy about it, my two-san talked her into it, saying we Uchiha had to learn at a young age. Naruto nodded a little as Itachi collected his kunai from the targets. While he was doing so, the young boy also noticed Naruto's ninja pouch strapped to his side. You are training to be a ninja too? He asked with a hint of curiosity in his voice and watched as Naruto rapidly nodded his head. Yeah, I have been training since I was 5, but maybe not as much as you have though. Itachi nodded his head and put his kunais back into his small pouch, which like Naruto was on the side of his pants. What sort of stuff have you learned so far? Naruto asked since he wanted to compare himself to someone else his age. I have studied and practiced the Uchiha style of Taijutsu, Shuriken, and fire. As well as a little bit of, Itachi answered, telling Naruto what he had learned so far as well, hoping to learn what Naruto has learnt as well. Who has learned that much already, Naruto thought, but then again he had been taught that the Uchiha were not only one of the founding families of Konoha, but also one of the most powerful, with their family's strength being comparable to the Senju clan. May I ask what you have learned since I have told you mine? Itachi asked as the two 7-year-old walked back into the center of the clearing. Sure, Naruto answered happily. I have learned 2 chakra control exercises, the leaf and the rock balancing exercises, while I also practice. Also my parents tell me I have a sensor ability. Itachi nodded but was a little intrigued by the sensor ability he mentioned. What is your sensor ability? He asked. Naruto shrugged though. I am not too sure. My Nichan and Jiji tell me I can just feel people's chakra as well as what they are feeling like if they are happy or if they are sad or angry. That sounds like a beneficial ability to have. Though who is your Nichan? I was unaware that the Hokage and his wife had an older daughter. She is not really by Nichan, but I just call her Nichan since she is like one and she thinks of me as her little auto. My apologies for the mistake, he said while Naruto waved it off. Naruto took a good look at Itachi and narrowed his eyes at him. You look familiar. Have we met before this? Itachi shook his head. Perhaps when we were babies but not since then due to our mother's friendship rivalry. My mother is Mikoto Uchiha, he said as Naruto looked in surprise. Mikoto Abasan. So that's why you look familiar. I think I remember her saying your name before. And you have a little brother, right? Itachi nodded. My younger brother Sasuke, he is the same age as your siblings Mito and Iji I believe. The two took a seat in the small clearing and slowly began to talk to each other. They both asked each other what they did for hobbies, which was not surprising to each other when they both answered with training. Though they both found out quickly that the other had a very strong desire to protect their family and village, especially when it came to their siblings and mothers. Since both were the same age, they would both be going to the academy together at the same time. Normally they would have enrolled at 6, but one of the first things Minato did when he became Hokage was increase the age bar for when a child could become a shinobi, since they were not in a time of war and he wanted the children of the village to have more of a childhood before they were entwined with the working of the shinobi world. But Naruto, it was of course known to all how much he adored his mother since before the twins were born, he was the apple of her eye. While Itachi felt a strong connection to his mother due to her being one of the few that wanted Itachi to have something of a normal childhood and would heal his injuries if he ever overworked himself. Itachi described that his father Fugaku Uchiha was a very militarized man who above all else respected power. Since Itachi had shown at a young age such promise in the ninja arts, he made sure that Itachi would one day become the best in the village, though Itachi always felt it was just so he could bring more power to their clan. Naruto meanwhile described how after the Kyuubi he felt so useless when he found out his mother was hurt and dedicated himself to getting stronger so that he could protect her, his two san and his siblings from any further hurt. Though Itachi was surprised when Naruto told him it was the third Hokage that was teaching him how to be a shinobi and that he was the one who was teaching him. Though he knew that the Hokage and his wife were seen as the best. It made him wonder why they were not teaching it. When he asked he noticed his new friend had avoided the subject and moved on to another topic. Also when Naruto asked whether he could really do elemental ninjutsu since he heard it was very difficult for someone of their age to perform such as feat, he watched with slightly widened eyes when Itachi performed the fire-style fireball jutsu, which engulfed the area in a large fireball. The two boys sat there for what felt like a couple of hours until the sun slowly began to come down and both knew they had better get home before their families got worried. Saying goodbye and saying they would try and meet up again the next day, the two new friends made their way home. At that time no one would realize that at that moment, two of Konoha's future greatest legends had just met for the first time. Uchiha clan compound. Itachi walked into the clan compound and slipped his sandals off before making his way into the kitchen. Arriving inside he saw his mother sitting around the table with Sasuke strapped into his high chair while she tried to feed him his mushy peas, though he looked like he did not want any of the tiny glare on his face any indication. No, he said, making Mikoto sigh before smiling and looking towards her eldest. Hello Itachi. How was your day? She asked as little Sasuke spotted his big brother and gurgled happily at him. It was fine Kasan. I just practiced my shuriken today, he said as sat on the other side of the table as noticed Sasuke was trying to get his attention. Hello Sasuke, are you being a good boy for Kasan? He asked softly as Mikoto watched the two interact. Yeah good, Sasuke gurgled out making Itachi smile a small smile while Mikoto laughed at her youngest son. Now why do I get the nose while your big brother gets the smile? She asked Sasuke who just swung his arms around in response. Come on Sasuke be good for Kasan, otherwise you will have to eat the mushy apricots, he said and internally smirked as the 2-year-old boy had a look of disgust appear on his face, indicating he did not want the apricots. Mikoto tried again and moved the spoon toward Sasuke's mouth and unlike this time he took a big bite out of the food and chewed on it with a yummy expression on her face. As she fed her youngest, Itachi looked around and saw that once again his father Fugaku was nowhere around. "Where is Tusan Kasan?" he asked, wondering where his father was. Makoto sighed. "Your Tusan is at the Uchiha police force station along with Yushiro. Apparently they will be pulling an all-nighter again," she said as she did wish that her husband would spend more time at home. But then again, when he is home all he does is focus on Itachi, she thought a little bitterly, since Fugaku was becoming a little obsessed with bringing in more power for the clan, which unfortunately focuses on Itachi. "I see," Itachi muttered as he watched his little brother happily munch away on his foot and watched his mother laugh at the funny faces Sasuke was making. "I made a friend today," he said as he stared outside the window, not seeing his mother turn her head to look at him in surprise. "Really?" she asked, not wanting to hide her joy, since Itachi did not have any friends outside of the clan. "May I ask who?" "Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze," he said and watched in slight amusement at the delighted look that quickly appeared on his mother's face as she clapped her hands together. "Mama?" Sasuke said, watching his mother suddenly become very happy made him turn his head in confusion. "Oh, that is wonderful, Itachi-kun. I was wondering when the two of you would become friends. Oh, you will become just like me and Kushina, I just know it. I think I would like the Kasan," he said as Makoto smiled at her eldest. "I am going to go to my room. I feel a little tired." "Okay, I will see you later, Itachi-kun," she said, kissing her son's forehead, truly happy that he made a friend. Though Itachi was used to his mother giving him affection, he rarely showed that it had any effect on him. Though for this time, the young Uchiha let a small smile appear on his face. Just as he left the room and without his mother looking, he put his hand in one of the drawers by the door and pulled out a few blank slips of small paper. As Itachi walked down the empty corridors of his clan compound, he stopped for a moment at a mirror that was hanging on the walls. When he did, he closed his eyes for a moment before opening them again. However, this time instead of his onyx-colored eyes looking back at him, it was instead a pair of red eyes with two tomo in each eye. "With Naruto, is anyone home?" Naruto called out, waiting to get an answer as he stepped into his home. "In the kitchen, Naru-chan," he heard his mother's voice call. He walked in and saw his mother by the stove with the twins both in their high chairs looking up at the ceiling. Though when they saw him both giggled a little and waved their arms at him. He waved back at them. "Where is Tusan?" "Your Tusan will be home in a few minutes. Just some last-minute work he had to finish. Go up and get washed for dinner," she said, not taking her eyes away from the stove. "Yeah, okay, Ka-chan," Naruto answered as he walked away and went upstairs. He looked back to see his mother had now moved from the stove and was now playing with the twins. It made Naruto feel a pang of sadness in his chest, but he shook out of it. As he walked home, he had wondered about elemental ninjutsu. He knew he was not ready for such a big step yet, but seeing his new friend Itachi use the fireball earlier that day, it made him want to try as well, and it sparked something inside of him. He was amazed at how far Itachi was in his studies and had mentally decided he needed to catch up. He decided he would have to up his training with Shizun and Sarutobi the next time he saw them, which was in 2 days' time. Deciding to wash up in a moment, he quietly made his way to his father's office and delicately turned the handle. Walking into his father's office, he looked over to the giant bookshelf. The bookshelf was a giant store of various jutsus his parents had mastered as well as documented. His main attention though was on elemental ninjutsu. He remembered his father had told him once that he had a wind element which was rare in Konoha, while his mother had a water element. Looking at the shelves, his eyes stopped at one that read C-ranked water ninjutsu. He took it and opened it and stopped at the first page. On each page was a name of a while a small containment seal lay beneath it. He looked through the first few pages before one stuck out for him. Water style. Water bullet technique, he read aloud and figured that would be perfect. Thanks to his studying of and completing level 1 already, he pressed his hand against the seal and in a small puff of smoke a small scroll lay on top of the page. He quickly put the book back where it was and hid the scroll under his shirt before quickly leaving the office and heading to his own room. He doubted his parents would know since they did not check the books over often and he would put the scroll back soon. He would quickly copy the contents of the scroll onto a blank scroll he had in his room and then put the original back where it belonged. Next day, Naruto followed along the path towards the open space in the forest that he had met Itachi at with his shinobi pouch strapped once again to the side of his pants, while on his left was 2 scrolls. One contained his little seal-making kit that he practiced with almost every day. The other one had the copied contents of the water scroll that he took from his parents' water scroll. He put the original back into the storing book and put it back where it belonged when his father had left for work while his mother was feeling the twins. He knew he might be in trouble if his parents ever found out, but he figured what they did not know did not hurt him. Plus it is not like Tusan or Kachan really spend time with me anymore, he thought to himself. Though he did not hate his little brother and sister and did in fact love them both dearly, he couldn't help but feel a little jealous towards them. Since they were born just over 2 years ago, his parents' focus was mainly on them. He wished Kushina and Minato just made some time for him, no matter how little that might be. Shaking his head of the negative thoughts and following the path he took the other day, he felt Itachi's energy signature just like yesterday, and he knew the Uchiha was close by. Walking into the small area, he saw Itachi standing in the center of the opening with his back to Naruto. As Naruto walked towards him, Itachi picked up on his footsteps and turned around. When he spotted Naruto, he nodded at him. "Morning, Itachi," Naruto greeted happily as Itachi nodded back towards him. "So what were you going to work on today?" Naruto asked while Itachi was about to speak before he saw the scrolls strapped to Naruto's side. "What are the scrolls for?" Itachi asked with his eyes gazing towards the two scrolls in curiosity. "Oh well," Naruto said as he began scratching the back of his head in slight nerves. "This one contains my equipment since I was thinking of getting some practice in," he said as Itachi nodded his head. One of the things Naruto had told him about was that he wanted to surpass his parents, so he knew how much Naruto would have to practice to do such a thing. "And this other may be a water that I may have taken from my dad's office," he said, biting his lip as Itachi looked at his friend with a slightly amused look. "So you stole it?" he asked with an eyebrow raised on his face. For a 7-year-old he could be oddly serious. "Not stolen, borrowed. But I did put it back." "Then how is it strapped to the side of your pants pocket?" "I may have copied everything inside on a blank scroll," he said scratching his chin as Itachi shook his head. He had a feeling hanging out with Naruto was going to lead to some interesting situations in the future. Shaking his head, Itachi reached into his pouch pocket and pulled out 2 pieces of paper and handed one over to Naruto, who took it and looked at it oddly. What is this for?" Naruto asked, looking it over. It was just a slip of small paper that was completely blank on both sides. "Do you know what these are?" Itachi asked his new friend. "I think so. I recognize it since I think my Jiji told me about them once, but I forgot the name." "They help tell you something about your chakra, right?" Naruto said, staring at the blank piece of paper. Itachi nodded his head. "My 2 cent called them chakra paper. They help us find out what our element affinity is." "Element affinity? So it tells us which of the element jutsus we can do and can be best at, right?" he said as Itachi nodded. "That is how I understand it too," he said. "I thought you might want to find out your element or elements since you showed interest in them the other day." "Definitely. It's the main reason I took this water since I wanted to be able to do it too." "Though how does the paper tell us?" he asked as Itachi explained. "My 2 cents said that it differs from each element. He said that if it burns it is fire, water then it gets soggy, earth it crumbles away, wind it splits into 2 pieces, and then lightning if it crinkles." "Cool. So do you know what yours are?" Naruto asked since finding out what element he was definitely something he wanted to do. He had asked his Jiji some time back, which is where and found his Jiji was fire, and also found out that Minato was wind while his mother was water. It explained why they had so many wind and water jutsus stored away. Itachi nodded and Naruto watched as a faint blue glow appeared around the paper as the young Uchiha poured some of his chakra into it. Naruto watched in fascination towards the slip of paper and then watched as Naruto got his answer. On one half the slip of paper set alight while on the other half water got damp, though it was only a little before it completely set alight. Before the Naruto council answered, Itachi did instead. "My main element is fire, which is not surprising since my clan is known for our strong affinity to fire. However, I was surprised when I discovered I had a minor affinity for water, which is extremely rare for my clan." "So is that why you could do the fire so easily?" "In a way. The fireball is a rite of passage for all Uchiha members. Meaning everyone in my family had to learn it by the time they were my age," Itachi explained while Naruto nodded. He had to admit that Itachi's clan sounded pretty cool. He also wondered if his family had some kind of rite of passage they had to go through or any of the other clans in Konoha. "So cool. Man, I am so pumped I have to find out what mine is now," Naruto said, grinning eagerly at the piece of paper in his hand. He closed his eyes and gripped a slip of paper tightly in his paper. He poured his chakra into the paper, making it glow a faint blue. Itachi stood just in front of it waiting to see what the end result was going to be. When Naruto opened his eyes, the two got their answer. Though it was an answer neither had been quite prepared for. The paper had split right down the middle, shaving the two equally in half. On the left side the paper completely crumbled away while on the other slip of paper, it became all soggy and wet. "Whoa," both Naruto and Itachi said at the same time as they observed the small spectacle in front of them. "Amazing," Itachi said, not fully believing what he just witnessed. What exactly does that mean?" Naruto thought as he looked at the slips of paper in his hand. "Does this mean I have 3 elements?" he said to himself aloud, not entirely sure he believed him with what just happened. "It appears that is what just happened," Itachi said, finally wrapping his head around it. "It is surprising since my mother once said that it was very rare for someone to have even 2 affinities since it usually indicates that they have a bloodline. Though I was unaware your family had one. Well, I know neither side of my family has a bloodline of those sorts." My Kachan side is that it has a strong life force along with naturally high stamina and chakra. At least I think that is what it was. So how did I get 3? I do not know. I guess it was just one of those one in a million happenings, Itachi said with Naruto nodding. Wind, water and earth. I can get so strong if I master them one day. But what would everyone think if I told them? Plus Kachan and Tusan may find out I took them from their library without asking, he thought as he bit his lip. Then Jiji, Nichan and Bachan might get angry that I am doing this without telling them, he thought, since he really did not want a skull bashing by either Shizun, Tsunade or even worse both. The two were crazy strong. Plus he dared not think what his mother would do. She was known as the red hot habanero for a reason, and even Naruto knew not to cross his mother when she was in one of her moods. Hey Itachi, he called the boy to look at him. Do you think we could keep this between us for now? No one knows I am looking into elemental ninjutsu, and they would probably tell them I am not ready for it yet. So could we maybe keep this between us for now? Itachi raised an eyebrow at the question but shrugged and nodded, indicating that it was not a problem. Naruto thanked him, and the two got to their training. While Itachi went back to practicing his shuriken, Naruto began looking over the water scroll with a new burst of life and energy. Now that he knew he had a water element, it made him want to tackle this and get it down even more so than before. Chapter 5. The beginning of the rest of your life. Minato stood on the small platform as he overlooked the academy ground, as well as the new academy students stood in front of them all with looks of concentration on their faces. At the back the parents stood as they watched this proud moment that a lot of them had been waiting a long time to see. The day you take your first steps into becoming a shinobi and your first step to becoming a protector of the Leaf Village. You all start your journey on the road to becoming ninja to protect Konoha and all of the Land of Fire, but what does it mean to protect? Why should you protect this village and country? That is a question you will eventually have to answer yourself, however being a ninja is a serious job so do not do so lightly. Your comrades and this village depend on you, so do your loved ones. One only becomes strong when they have something that they are willing to protect to the death. Step forward today and make us all proud. The new academy students clapped loudly as did the parents, as the fourth Hokage gave them all a wave of embarrassment from all the cheering they were giving him, before suddenly he disappeared in a yellow flash. As he disappeared a similar head of blonde hair looked down at the ground and just gave a tiny sigh as he watched his father disappear. You okay Naruto? His friend Itachi who was standing beside him asked as he had seen him sigh when his father had flushed away. Naruto just nodded. Yeah I am fine. I was hoping he would stay to wish us good luck but I guess that's just wishful thinking. As the instructors began to call out names signaling for what person would be in whose class Naruto stared behind him to see a lot of the parents conversing with each other and happily talking with one another. His Ni-chan and his Jiji were there and gave him a small wave when they saw him look in their direction. Naruto gave them a half smile and waved back. He looked over a little ways to the right of them and saw Itachi's parents standing there. Fugaku had his usual emotionless face just staring at the sky, while Mikoto was next to him with Sasuke gripped onto the hem of her dress, while in her arms, she held a small bundle that was wrapped in light pink blankets. Mikoto was carrying her daughter Ria Uchiha, who was born 3 months ago and had taken the Uchiha clan by surprise, especially Itachi, who never thought he would get another sibling other than Sasuke. Though when she was born, Naruto had never seen his best friend smile as big as he had when he had told her about little Ria. As he scanned the mass of parents he had noted that a certain redhead was not at the ceremony, which was one of the reasons he felt so down right now. His mother had decided it was best not to go to his genin induction. Though this time it was not the twins or work duties that kept her away this time. Just like Mikoto, Kushina had been given the biggest surprise when she discovered she too was expecting another child. It made her extremely happy, especially when she and Minato discovered they were expecting another girl. While Naruto was genuinely happy that he would get another younger sibling, it also meant that he would be saying goodbye once again to any quality time with his parents. 9 months later little Mina Uzumaki had been born, this time in the Leaf Hospital, and with no crazy giant foxes trying to destroy the village. One look at her and everyone knew she would grow up to be the carbon copy of Kushina. Little tufts of red hair lay on top of her head with the same skin tone and even the same violet eyes that Kushina and Naruto had. Though he was weary of the fact at first, when he held his youngest and newest sister in his arms for the first time, just like Itachi had with Ria, Naruto quickly loved his baby sister and silent promised her that he would protect her and would get strong to protect her and the rest of their family. His and Itachi's drive to train and get stronger hit a new intensity when their baby sisters were born. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, Naruto heard as the noise went silent and all watched as Naruto walked over to the man who just called him. He was a man in his early 30s with brown hair and eyes wearing the standard uniform. Namikaze-sama, I will be your instructor for the next 4 years. I am Itama Oba. It is nice to meet you, Oba-sensei. Please look after me. Naruto said bowing a little and in a polite tone. Naruto got in line with some of the other kids that were in his class. He smiled when Itachi was called by their sensei, which meant they would be in the same class together. He was happy to have one friend with him. After about 20 minutes the parents all said their goodbyes, as well as Shizun and Hiruzen, who gave Naruto good luck and goodbye before they left. Walking through the academy they arrived in their classroom and quickly took their seats. Naruto and Itachi sat in one of the middle rows. They were joined in the middle row by a purple-haired girl, who gave them both a shy hello which they happily reciprocated. As they sat in their seats and listened as their new sensei explained the life of a shinobi and elaborated on the speech Minato had given them earlier, Naruto took a look around the room to see if there was anyone he recognized. Other than Itachi, the only other girl he recognized was a girl sitting at the front. She had brown hair with slightly tanned skin and had red fang marks on each of her cheeks. By her legs he saw 3 little puppies all snuggled together and were leaning on her leg as her hand scratched one of them on the head. "An Inyazuka," Naruto whispered, to which Itachi heard and nodded. "Her name is Hana Inyazuka, the heiress of the Inyazuka clan. My Ka-san and hers are old friends from their genuine days," he said as Naruto nodded. "I think the same for mine." Continuing to look around the room there were 2 others that stood out to him. One was a sickly-looking child who was coughing every few minutes. His skin was slightly pale and looked like he could be knocked over by a simple gust of wind. He had brown hair and dark eyes and rested his arms on the desk. The girl beside him was a purple-haired girl that had her hair tied up in a pineapple-shaped ponytail. She had a dark shirt on along with a slightly tanned skirt. She was playing with a kunai in her hands and looked like she wanted to throw it at the nearest person she could find. Naruto shook his head before his mind wandered elsewhere and thought about his current strength. His Kenjutsu had now completed level 2 and was now moving on to level 3. Hiruzen no longer acted surprised when it came to his Kenjutsu. He knew Naruto was in every way a prodigy when it came to the art. Since level 2 focused on weight seals and things of that nature, he and Hiruzen applied a few weight seals to him to help with his body conditioning and to improve his strength and stamina. He had mastered the water he took from his parents' library, though it took him a little while to fully get it down. Afterwards he just found water jutsus just fitted him, and since his parents were so focused on Kushina's pregnancy, neither noticed him make a few more stops to their library. Now he knew 3 water jutsus, while Itachi knew 3 fire jutsus. His training with Shizun continued and was surprised when Tsunade got involved and decided that since Hiruzen was teaching him Kenjutsu and Shizun his chakra control, she would teach him Taijutsu since it was one of her specialties. She had tried to show him the slug style Taijutsu, but she quickly found it just did not fit his style at all. So instead she began showing him the Senju style. Even though she did not use it often herself, she was trained in it since it was her clan's Taijutsu style. While it was not perfect for him, he made it work, plus Tsunade had been adjusting small parts of the style to help fit him. She even had Might Guy, Konoha's resident Taijutsu expert, come and take a look at the style for Naruto. I had cried out how wonderful it was that Naruto was training to become a great shinobi and cried out about some youth for whoever knows why. Guy even showed him some of the Goken style. When Naruto showed an aptitude for that style as well, Guy and Tsunade decided to entwine the 2 styles together and create something completely new. They didn't have a name for it yet, but Naruto knew it had to be something awesome. And when it came to Taijutsu, Naruto was learning quickly as well, once again showing that being a prodigy and being hardworking was already paying off for him. Naruto paid attention, Itachi said, elbowing him in the side, jogging Naruto back to attention. Right, sorry," Naruto whispered back as Itachi shook his head at his friend's habit of letting his mind wander. Naruto paid close attention to his sensei and what he was discussing to the class, thought he had noticed that some of it Shizun had already covered in his studies with her. "I don't think the academy is all it is cracked up to be," he thought to himself as he shook his head and tried to drown out his sensei's voice. The purple-haired girl next to Naruto saw his lazy form and the look on his face and covered her mouth to stop from giggling. "Young lady, is there something you wish to say to the class?" their sensei said, who looked like he did not enjoy being interrupted, while all student eyes fell onto the purple-haired girl. The girl blushed a little and twiddled her index fingers together. No sir, sorry sensei. What is your name?" he asked, looking towards her. The girl stuttered a little. "Why Yugao, Yuzuki." "Well then Miss Yuzuki, please try and keep any comments of noises to yourself," he said before he continued with his teachings. Nodding, she fell quiet as the rest of the class fell back to listening to their sensei, everyone except Naruto, who had turned his attention to Yugao. "What were you laughing at?" he asked since he had heard her giggle from beside him. "I was laughing at you. You had a funny look on your face and made me laugh," she said as Naruto's eye shot up in surprise before internally he grinned. "You mean expressions like this?" he asked before he began pulling multiple different faces and Yugao, who was turning red and had to cover her mouth with her hands. Their sensei never saw any of this as Naruto pulled funny faces at Yugao, who looked ready to burst out laughing. Next to him Itachi rolled his eyes though half a smile on his face as he watched his friend act that way. Though Naruto was a lot like him and was quiet and serious most of the time, he had moments where a more fun-loving personality took hold of him. It was a lot like his mother's in that way. Naruto had inherited more than just his eyes from his mother. From the front row Hana Inuzuka saw what he was doing and laughed into her hand as well, thinking that what he was doing was very funny. While at the back row the other purple-haired girl and the sickly boy laughed as well, though the sickly boy needed to cough every few minutes, which gained much attention from their sensei. End of the day. At the end of their first academy day most of the children went home to their parents so they could tell them all about the great first day and what they had learned. Everyone except for a group of 6 children, that is, Naruto and Itachi, were once again training with each other in the same opening in the forest as before. The other 4 had followed them after school to see what they were doing. The 4 were none other than Hana Inuzuka, Yugao Yazuki, Anko Mitarashi and Heiichaku. The 4 had become quick friends, but when they had tried to befriend Naruto and Itachi, the 2 boys kept eluding them and separated themselves from everyone else. They almost spoke with them during lunch, but the academy school bell rang, and when they looked back the 2 boys had already disappeared. Heiichun, stop coughing or they will know we are here. Yugao said to the ill boy who nodded. My apologies Yugao-san, the pollen from the plants is making it difficult to breathe. He said as he tried to get his coughing under control. SHH, stop talking to you two or our cover will be blown. Hana whispered a little harshly while Anko grinned as she watched them. I wonder how strong they are. I bet they would have a good fight. She said, licking her lips a little before zoning in on the scene in front of them. Wait, where did the Uchiha go? They all looked in front of them and realized that Itachi had indeed disappeared and that Naruto was now just standing still and was looking towards where they were hidden. You know you 4 can come out now. We know you have been following us since we left the academy. Naruto called out, making the 4 freeze in place. We would appreciate it if you could just come on out. A voice said from behind them, making them jump out of their skin and turn around to see Itachi with an amused expression on his face. You know if you wanted to watch us or train with us you could have come out and said it. There was no need to just hide. Naruto appeared in front of them. The 4 kids looked a little embarrassed and went a little red. From Hana's side the 3 pups sniffed the air and padded over towards Naruto. Naruto saw the 3 pups and smiled as he went down on his knees and began petting them. The pups seemed to enjoy it since they were wagging their tails and had their tongues hanging out of their mouths. Whoa, that was quick. Hana said as she walked towards them. I have only had them for about 6 months and they have never taken to someone so quickly before. They must really like you. They are called the 3 Hashirama brothers. She said, introducing them. The 6 introduced themselves properly and after a few minutes of talking and Anko asking whether they could train with them, Naruto and Itachi shrugged and told them it was fine. As the 4 revised what they had gone over that day, Anko looked towards Naruto and Itachi and saw that the 2 boys were facing across from each other. In the blink of an eye the 2 suddenly charged forwards towards each other and began throwing punches and kicks towards each other. They stayed that way for a few minutes as each tried to land a hit on each other. The 4 recognized Itachi's way of fighting was that of the Uchiha clan fighting style, while the one Naruto was using looked like the Senju style, though a few bits of it were off, and it looked like another form that they did not recognize. It also made them wonder why Naruto was not using the Uzumaki style that his mother knew, since Kushina was quite well known for her strong taijutsu prowess. The 2 were then forced and stumbled back when both managed to land a punch on the other cheek. Shaking out of their slightly dazed state the 2 quickly focused their chakra and made the necessary hand seals. Higher style fireball jutsu, Itachi called out as he blew out a large fireball that went towards Naruto. Water style water bullet jutsu, Naruto declared as clumps of water shot out from his mouth. The 2 jutsus collided in the middle, causing a small blast to be created from the impact, as well as steam from where the water met the fire. The steam caused the view of the 2 to get blocked out for a few minutes as the 4 tried to make out where the 2 boys were. Though they knew they were fighting if the sounds they could hear were any indication. They are incredible. Yugao said as she watched their sparring bout with each other. I didn't think people my age could do elemental ninjutsu. I mean they are so hard to do and the chakra control has to be so precise. Heiichi spoke as he coughed again into his hand making Yugao pat him on the back. Oh man, these 2 are good. We really need to catch up with them if they are already at this kind of level. Hana said while Yugao and Heiichi nodded before noticing Anko had disappeared. Where is Anko-san? Heiichi asked, looking around. Striking shadow snakes, a voice called from within the steam cloud. When it did Naruto appeared jumping out of the cloud from one side, while Itachi jumped out the other, both looking a little surprised from the interruption. The steam mist disappeared and they were all surprised to see Anko in the middle, with what looked like fairly large green snakes coming out from her sleeves, both impacting the ground where Naruto and Itachi were formerly standing. Snakes. They all thought while Naruto and Itachi narrowed their eyes as the snakes and the purple-haired girl. They were wary of her suddenly because of that snake she used. There was only one person that both were aware of that had connections to snakes and who could use snakes-like jutsus, and that man was no longer part of the Leaf and was one of the worst traitors that the world had ever seen. Itachi's parents had told him while Hiruzen and Tsunade had told Naruto about this man. So it left the question to the two boys that was now on both of their minds. How can she do snake techniques? Anko meanwhile grinned at Hana, Yugao, and Heiichi's shocked looks in Naruto and Itachi's weary and thinking looks. You boys didn't think you were the only two with tricks up their sleeve, did you? Month later, some time passed since the 6 academy students met each other and the 6 quickly became fast friends and an inseparable group. Since the first training session, the 6 met up whenever they could and would spar with one another and help each other get stronger. The academy quickly saw that Naruto and Itachi were prodigies after only a few days. It was mainly noticeable when the two were first shown how to do the hinge technique and managed to master it by the end of the day, which left the instructors baffled. Itachi was quickly becoming known as the prodigy of the Uchiha clan, where Fugaku and Mikoto were immensely proud of their son, while Naruto was the same for his family. He was even surprised when Kushina and Minato had hugged the life out of him when they found out. Though the small celebration did not last long, Naruto enjoyed that moment where his parents' eyes and attention was focused only on him. Tsunade, Hiruzen and Shizun marveled at it, though since they were training him before the academy, it did not come as much of a surprise. Meanwhile Anko was quickly becoming the best of the girls, though Yugao and Hana were doing their best to give her a run for her money. Though Anko was strong for her age, she was not quite at Naruto and Itachi's level, though when she sparred with the two, she made sure to make them sweat as much as possible. So Gigi, are you sure you don't mind taking me? Naruto asked Hiruzen as they walked down the market towards a shinobi store that Hiruzen had told him about and had wanted to take him to for some time now. Of course Naruto-kun, now that you are in the academy it's time to get you some proper shinobi clothing and some proper weapons and equipment. Even though it's the person that makes the shinobi, it is essential that you have the correct equipment with you and that you are wearing appropriate clothing. Hiruzen glanced down at his surrogate grandson. So an orange jumpsuit would definitely be out then? Naruto said, pointing towards an orange getup in the window of one of the stores. Unless you want to be a walking target then yes Naruto, it is definitely out. Hiruzen said, shaking at the mere thought of someone wearing clothing that color. Somewhere in Konoha a Jonin wearing tight green spandex with orange leg warmers sneezed. But I didn't bring enough money Gigi, Naruto said as he began checking his pockets. I'm not sure I can afford it. Koch-an and 2 Cent forgot to give me my pocket money this week. Do not worry about money, Naruto-kun. I will buy you everything you need. He said, patting the boy on the shoulder. Naruto wanted to argue, but he knew his Gigi would only tell him that a grandfather was allowed to spoil his grandson whenever he wanted. Plus his Gigi was a former Kage, so if there was anyone who knew the right equipment to wear and the correct clothing, then it was him. He was the man who fought in the first Shinobi War, was picked by Tobirama Senju to become his successor and lead the Leaf to victory in the second and third Shinobi Wars. Okay Gigi? Naruto answered, getting a smile from Sarutobi in return. He was happy that Hiruzen still spent time with him and trained him even when he actually had a real grandson now. Konohamaru Sarutobi was born a month before little Mina was born by Hikaru Sarutobi, his eldest child and only daughter. And they named him after the village since they knew he was going to be a great shinobi one day. After walking for another 10 minutes they eventually stopped at a moderate-sized store on the edge of the shinobi district of the market. I have been coming to this store since I was a young Naruto-kun. There is no better place in my mind to get your shinobi supplies than this store. He said as he led Naruto inside. As soon as they walked in Naruto saw locking seals on the door hinges. To stop burglars. He mused to himself. Dorano. Sarutobi called out just as a man in his mid-30s appeared from behind the counter with brown hair and wearing civilian clothing. Ah Hiruzen, it's good to see you. What can I help you with? He asked as he noticed Naruto beside him. And this must be Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of Minato and Kushina. I was wondering when you were going to bring him here. Now that Naruto-kun is in the academy, I believed it was time to get him his proper shinobi gear. Well I am honored you came to my store. I am glad the shinobi of the village continue to come here even after my father passed the store down to me. Dusan look. A squeaky voice called, making them look over to see a little brown-haired girl with her hair tied in 2 buns, wearing a little pink top and shorts with a wooden kunai in her hands. I can finally throw it on the target right, she said, making Torano and Hiruzen laugh. That is a great sweetie. Hiruzen, do you remember my daughter Tenten? He said as Hiruzen gave her a small hello as did Naruto while the girl went towards her father who lifted her up and sat her on the counter. Naruto looked around the store and it was no wonder why the place was popular with a shinobi in the village as well as why his Gigi liked it so much. On the walls as well as in secure racks were weapons of all different types. Swords, axes, nunchucks, sai and a whole range more. On another side were rows and rows of different clothing, ranging from kids his age to people the size of Akimichi, and were in a variety of colors, though most were dark colors, the brightest being a purple and red top and skirt. "This all so cool," he said as he began to pick through the clothing range and find something that suited him, while Hiruzen spoke with Toronto and cooed over little 1010. 10 minutes later he had 5 black tops with a blue stripe going through the middle, while he had 5 sets of pants and sandals that ranged from black and gray in color. Next he moved on to his kunai and shuriken. The ones he currently had were ones Minato previously used and had given to Naruto since they were still in great condition. Hiruzen joined him and began helping him. He nodded approvingly at the clothes Naruto picked out. "Ah, kunai and shuriken made of chakra metal." "Good eye, Naruto." "Chakra metal?" Naruto asked, not quite remembering what it was. "It is metal that allows chakra to run through it so that it makes the attack stronger than just using it normally," he said as Naruto marveled at it. He wondered why more ninjas did not use it, though when he thought about it, his mother used a sword and when he had seen her using it before the twins were born, he remembered it glowed blue. He realized it must have been chakra metal. They added them to the basket and continued looking through the small aisles. They also got to a small section that had scrolls and inks for genjutsu. They also sold sealing scrolls. Naruto didn't know that someone could sell sealing scrolls or other sealing-related equipment. He made a memory to save that information for later. Finally they browsed at the different weapons they had on display as Naruto and Hiruzen looked over them. "You know, Naruto, your mother is very powerful when it comes to the art of a sword. She could probably fight the 7 swordsmen equally and come out on top if she wanted to," Hiruzen said as he picked up a katana, looked it over and handed it to Naruto. "Maybe you might follow in her footsteps." Naruto took the katana in his right hand. He held it in his hand and swung it through the air a little. He looked it over and had to admit it was a beautiful katana, and he knew the art of a sword was a major area of being a shinobi. There was Kiri, who he knew had the 7 shinobi swordsmen of the mist, 7 of the best there were with a sword. He had been told, learned an academy style of kenjutsu whilst in the academy and normally carried a sword with them. Then there was Iron Country, where they had samurai instead of shinobi and were training extensively in the art of kenjutsu. Hiruzen watched as a frown appeared on his face. "What's the matter with Naruto-kun?" "I'm not too sure, Jiji. It is just the sword does not feel right in my hands," he said as Hiruzen and Toronto looked in surprise. Interestingly, they both thought as for the next 10 minutes, Naruto tried handling all the swords that Toronto had, but yet all of them just did not feel right in Naruto's hands, with him saying that they just felt off. "This is an interesting development," Hiruzen said, tapping his chin. "Are you sure wielding a sword is something you want, Naruto?" Naruto just nodded his head. "I want to be a great kenjutsu user and to one day surpass my Kachan." Toronto listened in and spoke what he was thinking. "You know, when my father ran this store he always told me that a sword was like an extension of one's arm and that swords in a way have a life of their own. He said that the wielder does not choose the sword but instead the sword chooses the wielder. Maybe the reason you don't connect with the swords is because the sword you are supposed to wield has not been made yet," he offered as Hiruzen and Naruto thought about it. Little 1010 meanwhile just listened and watched from the top of the counter. "Would you make the sword?" Hiruzen asked as Toronto shook his head. "Not myself, but I have a trader from Iron Country that visits here a few times a year. He worked for my father and even did some business with. I can contact him and ask for a blacksmith to construct a sword for Naruto. The man he is dealing with, believe it or not, is Muramasa Sengo," he said, getting a look of surprise from Hiruzen. "Who is that, Jiji?" Naruto asked. "Muramasa Sengo is one of the best blacksmiths of our era, Naruto-kun. His katanas and weapons he makes are works of art and many would like to get their hands on one of his swords. He is also the man who built your mother's katana," Toronto said, getting a look of surprise from Naruto. He had only seen his mother's katana a few times since she always kept it in a storage seal on her wrist, but it was truly a beautiful katana. It was called the katetsu. Seeing his mother wield a blade was one of the reasons he wanted to become great at kenjutsu and to one day surpass her since she was the best in Konoha. "Would you really be able to get Muramasa Sengo to make Naruto a sword?" Hiruzen asked as Toronto nodded. "He was good friends with my father and always offered to help him. He gave me the same courtesy. Knowing that he is building a first-class katana for a boy who wants to be a great kenjutsu wielder and uses its strength to protect those precious to him, I know he will say yes. It might take a month or two, but expect one of the finest katanas you will ever see becoming yours, Naruto," he said, making the boy smile brightly. "We can sort out payment later," he said as they all nodded and paid for the current equipment in their basket. Chapter 6, Team 13 formed. "So I would like everyone to say congratulations to your classmates Itachi Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, Namikaze and Anko Mitsurashi for passing the academy in just 1 year. Wish them all the best as they take their first major step as shinobi of the leaf. Naruto, Itachi and Anko stood at the front of their class with smiles on their faces as their fellow students called and told them they were well done. After a year at the academy, the teachers there along with the council knew that despite only being 9, that the 3 were more than ready to become genin. All 3 easily outclassed the others in the class and that keeping them in the academy would be a waste of their talents. Yugao, Heiate and Hana clapped the loudest to their friends and had sworn that they would do their best to catch up with the trio by next year. Now the real path of being a shinobi begins, Naruto said as Itachi nodded like he normally did while Anko grinned a big smile. It's about time too. I was beginning to get so bored here that I thought my head was going to roll off my shoulders from the boredom. I am honored to have the 3 of you in my class for the little time that you were here. Good luck in your shinobi careers. I know that all 3 of you are going to go far, their sensei said as he bowed back. Thank you sensei, they said at the same time. Your new Jonin sensei has told me that you will meet them on the roof and that they will be there in 10 minutes time. The 3 nodded, gave a wave to their 3 friends who did the same before they exited the classroom. As they got out of the room they nodded to each other before making the ram seal with their hand and sunshine to the roof. They had learned that move from Hiruzen after Naruto had asked him to teach him during one of their breaks. He had thought about it for a few minutes before deciding that Naruto was ready to learn the body flicker technique. Once he taught it to Naruto, the blonde boy then taught it to the others. Hana, Heiate and Yugao struggled with it and were still trying to learn it while Itachi and Anko had it down within a few days. Arriving on the roof the 3 sat together on the floor. Naruto read a book on, Itachi stared at the clouds while Anko twirled a kunai around her index finger. So do you have any idea who we have as our sensei? Anko asked the 2 boys. Both shook their heads. No idea, but I hope they are strong whoever they are. I can't wait to get some more training done, Naruto said, showing just how much of a training nut he was. Thankfully it was not on the level of a certain spandex-wearing jonin. Whoever they are, I am sure they are capable. Hokage-sama would not have put us with someone who could not handle the task. As they nodded, Naruto gripped his hand a little tightly on the sword that he was carrying in his right hand before he placed it in his lap. After 2 months of the order going out from Torino at the shinobi store, the katana that he was waiting for finally arrived. And when he first saw it, he could not help but admire how beautiful and different it was. Torino even said it must have been one of Masamune's finest works. The blade was 27 inches long, and the metal was much to his surprise black with a distinct red edge, and its handguard had flower-like edges. The handle was a dark purple color, while the sheath was plain black, but had 2 Uzumaki spirals in red going up the side. One of the first things Naruto noticed was that it was a little bit heavier than other swords, but he was told that was due to the metal of the blade being harder and denser than other blades, which would give it more physical strength. He knew it would take a bit of time to get used to it, but since his weight seals were now up to 30 pounds on each limb, he knew the weight of the blade would not be a problem. When he had received it, he, Hiruzen, Shizun and Tsunade had marveled at how elegant yet powerful the blade looked with all 3, claiming they had never seen a blade quite like it. After receiving it he had given it a name that he knew would one day make this blade famous. The Shusui. Everyone else agreed that the name just fit the blade. He made a storage seal on his wrist similar to his where his mother kept hers, since he wanted to keep the Shusui on him at all times. He tried to show Kushina the blade, but she only looked at it while it was in its sheath much to his annoyance. He debated in his head whether to ask her to teach him Kenjutsu, but due to past experiences of wanting to ask either Kushina and Minato to train him, he decided against it and figured he would eventually come across a style that worked for him. Until then he could practice with it nonetheless. When it was not sealed up, it was strung to his side. He didn't want to strap it since it just felt right staying in his hands. If I ever meet Muramasa, then I must give him my eternal thanks for this, he thought. As he thought about his sword, an energy signature he recognized appeared to be heading towards them at a great speed. Itachi and Anko saw him tense up a little and were now on alert since they recognized when Naruto could sense someone. While they ready to defend themselves they saw Naruto quickly relax, indicating whoever it was they were not hostile towards them. Just as they 3 settled a swirl of leaves appeared in front of them. When the leaves all disappeared, they all looked in surprise, especially Itachi when the person standing in front of them was none other than a Jonin uniform-clad Mikoto holding little Ria in her arms who was giggling madly. Mikoto Abasan. Hasan. What are you doing here? Itachi asked since he was surprised to see his mother wearing her Jonin uniform. He could not remember the last time had seen her in her old shinobi uniform, which looked like most of the other uniforms, except she had only one sleeve, leaving the other arm bare and wrapped around her left thigh was a gray sash with the kanji for fire on it, while on her back was a strapped tanto. Well, it is not obvious Itachi-kun. You are waiting for your Jonin sensei, and here I am, she said getting 3 gobsmacked looks before Naruto fist pumped the air. Awesome. Is our sensei, he cheered as little Ria looked a little confused but cheered as well. Anko looked happy since she knew that Makoto Uchiha Aka Konoha no Hai Misudaresu, Fire Mistress of Konoha, was one of the best kunoichis in the village. She was up there with Tsunade and Kushina. Are you sure, Kasan? But what about Sasuke and Ria? And does Tusan know about this? Do not worry, Itachi-kun. Sasuke will stay with one of our sitters, while Ria will be with me during our D-rank missions. Then when we eventually get to higher missions, I will arrange for some of the other clan members to watch over them while I am with you all. And do not worry about your father. Even if he does not like it, I am a shinobi of this village and I felt it was time to get back into this life. Plus I have always wanted to take a genin team and who better than the team my son is in. She said, kissing his forehead made him blush a little while Ria sat in her big brother's lap. Well, now that I am here we can introduce ourselves to one another since it is a must-do for a new team, she said as she sat in front of her new team. Say your name, your likes, dislikes, hobbies and dreams for the future. I will start. My name is Makoto Uchiha, I like my family, fire jutsus, my friends and the village. My dislikes are traitors, rapists, those who hurt children and those that dare to hurt my family. My hobbies are learning something new every day and cooking. My dreams for the future have already come true, she said as she looked at her oldest and youngest and smiled. Anko, why don't you start? My name is Anko Mitsurashi. I like my few friends, dango, fighting and blood, she said, making them sweat drop a little at the last part. My dislikes are perverts, men who think women can't be as strong as them, arrogance and more. My hobbies are making people who I don't like miserable. My dreams for the future. To kill a certain white snake, she said as she got serious at the last part. Her two teammates looked at her curiosity since she had never mentioned that last part before whilst Makoto narrowed her eyes. She, like the other higher-ups in the village, were aware of Anko's past and understood why she wanted that as her dream. Itachi was up next. My name is Itachi Uchiha. My likes are my friends, family, ninjutsu and visiting cafes. My dislikes are those who try to hurt my precious people, steak, and those who think they are better than everyone else and who only crave power for selfish reasons. My hobbies are meditating and training to be a great shinobi. My dream is to protect my home and surpass the Uchihas of old. And now our last member, she said nodding to Naruto who nodded. My name is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. My favorite things are ramen and kenjutsu. My dislikes are people who try to hurt my precious people, rapists, perverts and those that gain power for selfish reasons. My hobbies are training, spending time with my jiji and my friends. And my dream for the future is to surpass my parents and to become a great protector of the village. That is a wonderful dream, Naruto. It sounds like you want to be Hokage one day. Naruto shrugged. If my path as a shinobi leads me there then I guess so. Me, Ria said as she put her hand up wanting to have a go making the others laugh at the cute little girl. Another time Ria-chan, Makoto said taking her daughter from her eldest and making the girl pout a little. So what do we do now? Naruto asked. Well now we will break up for the rest of the day. We don't need to get familiar with one another since we all know each other. Tomorrow I want all of you to go to training ground 13 since I want to test how strong the three of you are. I have an idea on Itachi and a little on Naruto, but none on you Anko. I want you all there at 9 AM. Understood? Aye sensei, the three spoke, making Makoto smile. This is going to be an interesting experience. I can't wait to rub in Kushina's face, she thought, chuckling evilly in her mind. Since you are the only team who have currently graduated from the academy, the three of you are automatically made genin. I hereby announce us as Team 13, she declared getting big smiles from Naruto and Anko and a small smile from Itachi. Nodding and smiling at them and saying goodbye, Makoto sunshine away with Ria in her arms, leaving the new genin team alone. In Hokage office, Minato sat behind his desk putting a hand through his hair as he sat across from one of the few men in the elemental nations that could fight him one-on-one. On his right was Kakashi and on his left was Jiraiya whilst Kushina was sat next to him. Over on one of the sofas was Sarutobi with his pipe in his mouth as remained passive but on alert with their guests. The man in front of them was the fourth Raikage of Kumo and the man who Minato had many battles with in the past. It was a big man with dark skin and whitish blonde hair that was slicked back with a goatee on his chin. He wore his Raikage cloak and hat whilst around his wrists were golden weights and around his waist was a large gold belt. Beside there were two men. One had white spiky hair that covered part of his left eye and also wore a standard white flak jacket. On his back was a cleaver-like sword and on his right arm was the symbol for black lightning. To his right was a Caucasian man wearing the standard Kumo shinobi uniform but had bandages wrapped around the top of his head and his forehead protector covered his right eye. Welcome to the Leaf Village Raikage-sama, I am happy that you made it here safe and sound, Minato spoke as snorted a little but thanked him nonetheless. Yes well since we are here, we may as well get right down to it. No sense at postponing this, he said as Minato nodded while Kushina kept her guard up. Since the attempted kidnap on her life by Kumo shinobis when she was younger, she had always been very weary around Kumo shinobi. To be frank, she did not trust them one little bit. I agree. I see no reason why our two villages should have to be at each other's throats anymore, and I am more than willing to put the past behind us if it mean the Leaf and the Cloud can finally see each other as allies other than enemies. I agree as well. As Raikage, the safety of my village is my top priority and it will always come first. If it means keeping any ridiculous wars from breaking out again, then I will do it. Minato nodded to that as well. Though he and A never exactly saw eye to eye, he was glad that as the Kage of his village, he understood that alliances would truly benefit one another. Kumo had always been more militarized than Konoha, but then again, Kumo had always been a very tightly knit and army-like village, whereas Konoha was a bit more relaxed in that sense, but always kept their guard up. I am surprised that your brother B is not here. Normally the two of you are inseparable, Minato asked as A narrowed his eyes a little at the comment. B therefore knows that his place is to stay at the village and be a protector of Kumo. As he is a tool to be used to keep Kumo safe. The Leaf Ninja frowned at that, but knew that was mostly how others were treated. You know, I have always been curious about who the people of Kyuubi were. Since you know who Kumo's are, do you not think we should know who yours is? That made everyone tense, while Kushina and Minato looked at the man dangerously. Something that made the white-haired man tense and prepare himself. Kakashi did the same. That information is classified as Raikage-sama, Minato spoke in a calm and even tone. Oh, so do you believe that my village does not deserve to know of your weapon while you know ours? I said with his voice getting a little louder. Kushina slammed her fist on the table. Jinchurikis are not tools that you can control simply because of what they contain. They are human beings who carry a great burden on their shoulders. It didn't look affected by the comment, but instead just raised an eyebrow at her outburst, while Minato smoothed her by rubbing small circles on her hand. You are oddly protective towards them, which leads me to guess that you are someone close to you. All the Leaf Shinobi tensed again and were mentally preparing themselves for some kind of confrontation, since Kushina's face contorted to a look that showed she was ready to kill. Well, if you won't tell us, then perhaps it was a mistake coming here, since you cannot be honest with us when we are being honest with you. Honest? Kushina said, snorting. Like how you tried to kidnap me when I was a girl and yet tried to deny it. Yes, very honest. What my father did when he was Raikage does not fall to me. To be honest, I never really understood the big fuss about you Uzumaki. All you were ever good at was Kenjutsu. The rest you were just mediocre at. Kushina looked like she was about to blow up at the comment he was making at her, while the white-haired man just shook his head and face-palmed. Minato did the same thing, knowing this meeting was not going well at all. And Kushina had never liked each other, and he knew it was a mistake bringing her to this meeting. Perhaps coming here was a mistake, I said, standing up from his chair, making everyone else stand up as well. Perhaps we can speak more about this tomorrow. Let's keep a cool head, think on it tonight, and then resume tomorrow the details of the alliance, Minato offered, since he really wanted some kind of treaty to be formed between their two villages, which could stop any confrontations from happening in the future. Minato did not wish for another war to break out. He wanted to keep the children of the village from having to succumb to that path. A scoff but nodded nonetheless. Tomorrow we will continue this. Until then we shall take up residence in the Golden Leaf Hotel, he said as Minato nodded. But then jumped through the window, making his departure from the meeting. The white-haired man sighed before giving Minato a small smile. Sorry about the window. It's okay. We know of a few people who tend to not use doors, Minato said, motioning to Jiraiya, who scratched the back of his. The white-haired man nodded and walked out through the door with the other man following behind him. When the door closes, everyone breathes easily despite how badly the meeting went. Well, that could have gone better, Kushina said as she checked her nails as everyone playfully glared at her while she whistled innocently. Of Team 13. Night began to fall as Naruto, Anko and Itachi sat at Ichiraku's ramen, while Shizun sat to the side of them with Mito and Iji by her side. She was looking after the children since after the meeting with the Raikage, many of the clan heads were having a get-together. Mito and Iji sat on their seats playfully swinging their legs with noodle hanging from their lips, while Naruto had little Mina seated on his lap, who was now almost a year old and was clapping her hands as Naruto fed her a little bit of ramen. Those of Uzumaki blood just naturally like ramen, no matter how young, Shizun commented as Itachi and Anko nodded in agreement. You love ramen, don't you, Mina-chan? Naruto said to his baby sister, who just nodded her head and gave him a smile, showing the few teeth she had. Oh, she is so sweet, aren't you, Munchkin? Anko said. Despite being a very tough and tomboyish girl, even she had to admit that little Mina was adorable. Naruto smiled at the interaction between Mina and Anko, while Itachi smiled at the scene. Naruto then felt a pull on his sleeve, only to see Mito and Iji looking at him with big eyes and holding their arms out. Naruto had a strange look on his face as he stared down at his two siblings. Despite loving them both, the whole thing with his parents and their attention was due to the twins, and in all honesty, he had been a little distant from Mito and Ig, especially Mito, since she was very clingy towards him and just wanted to follow him everywhere. Mina, despite nearly being one, was showing the same signs. The two little girls just loved being with their big brother. Ig was the same but not as clingy. Shizun saw his slight dilemma and picked up the two twins. "No, I want Naru," Mito complained as Ig nodded in agreement, but Shizun gave them a warm smile. "No sweets, it's time to go home. You both need your baths," she said, getting a disagreeable look on the twins' faces. "Mito-chan, Ig-chan," Naruto said, getting the twins' attention. "When I come home, I will try to read you a bedtime story, okay?" he said, getting smiles from the two, making a small smile appear on Naruto's face in return. Shizun then put the two down and placed Mina into the stroller, who began to cry a little, not wanting to be out of her big brother's warm embrace. "Naruto, are you coming?" Shizun asked. "Not just yet, Ni-chan. I'm going to have one more bowl." "Alright, but be home soon. You might be a shinobi now, but you're still 9 and you need your sleep," she said. "That goes for all of you too." Anko and Itachi nodded as well and then watched as Shizun gave Naruto a kiss on the forehead before leaving with Mito, Ig and Mina back to their home. As they left, Naruto sensed the Anbus that were watching over them move to follow Shizun and his 3 siblings. They watched him go before Itachi turned to Naruto. "Still trying to put space between them, aren't you?" he asked as Naruto sighed a little and nodded. Anko looked at him weirdly. "Why are you trying to put space between them? They are adorable, I just want to eat them up," she said, while Naruto just didn't say anything. "It's just some personal business, Anko-san," Itachi said, making Anko look at them both weirdly before she nodded. The trio sat there as they talked to one another, sometimes also speaking to the ramen stand owner Tucci, who the three saw as a nice middle-aged man who was happy to help any who needed help. He had a daughter their age who they had seen a few times. As Anko and Itachi spoke with Itachi, Naruto's sensor abilities picked up on something that he felt was irregular. He could feel the Kumo shinobi along with the Raikage enter the moment they entered the village. The Raikage stood out among the other two since his power was enormous, the same as his father and his Jiji. Naruto hopped off the stool and stood in the middle of the empty street as he looked in the direction of where the signature was coming from. "Naruto-kun, what is it?" Anko asked as she and Itachi followed him. "One of the Kumo shinobi," he said, was already putting the two on alert. He was not at the hotel with the others. He passed by the Hyuga compound. "Why is he there?" Naruto said aloud. Itachi and Anko to widen their eyes. "You don't think he is going to kidnap a Hyuga, do you?" Anko asked, since they were both aware that Kumo for some reason desired the Hyuga clan, the Byakugan. "Let's go check it out," he said as the two nodded and headed towards the Hyuga compound. It only took a few minutes before they arrived on one of the buildings opposite the Hyuga compound, and Naruto immediately began scanning the area for the Kumo shinobi he could sense. After a moment of search, he saw a black-clad figure against one of the outer walls, showing it to be the Kumo shinobi, with a forehead protector covering his right eye. In his right arm, their eyes widened when they saw the Hyuga heiress, Hinata Hyuga, unconscious in his left arm. "Anko goes to warn my father now," he said as Anko did not need to be told twice before taking off as fast as she could. "All the clan heads are at that gathering." He knew the head of the Hyuga clan would not be here, Itachi said as Naruto nodded. "We have to buy some time. We can't let him get away." Naruto and Itachi took a deep breath, knowing this could go very badly, but they were shinobi of the lead now, and it was their duty to protect the people who live there. As the Kumo shinobi was about to move, both boys threw shuriken towards him. The Kumo shinobi sensed them coming and dodged out of the way and landed a little to his left. He looked to his left, and his eyes widened a little when Naruto appeared a little in front of him, with the shusui unsheathed and descending towards his head. He expressed interest in the black sword for a moment before he grabbed a kunai from his right pocket and blocked the strike, but buckled a little from the strength of the blade and saw his kunai crack in a few places. However, when he blocked and focused on Naruto, Itachi appeared to the side and grabbed Hinata from the man's grasp. They both heard the man curse loudly as Itachi jumped away as fast as he could, with Naruto doing the same. They regrouped with each other while protecting Hinata. "Give me the girl, brats. You don't want to piss me off," he said, taunting them. "We are shinobi of the leaf. We will not let you kidnap one of our own," Naruto said back. The man laughed before making a few hand seals. "Let's see if you brats can live up to what you claim," he said. "Raiden. Dendu and Dari." A thin wire of lightning erupted from his midsection and shot all around him and toward Naruto and Itachi, aiming for their stomach as if wanting to bisect them. Naruto jumped in the air while Itachi managed to jump just before the man performed. When Naruto looked at Itachi, he saw red and 3 tomos in each eye. Sharingan, he believed Itachi used it to predict the man's movement. As they jumped, Kumo appeared in front of Naruto and kicked the small blonde and knocked him to the ground. He did the same to Itachi, but with the Sharingan activated, Itachi managed to dodge the swipes and kick them and was giving him but could not attack due to having Hinata still in his arms. Itachi gritted his teeth a little since he could not fight back but then heard Naruto's voice. Water style. Water bullet, he said as balls of water made their way towards the Kumo ninja. The Kumo nin jumped out of the way, enabling Itachi to appear in the gardens of the Hyuga compound and lay her on the ground before going back to the battle. Returning, he saw Naruto with his blade redrawn blocking quick and powerful strikes from the Kumo nin. Though Naruto was managing to block, the man's superior strength forced him to get pushed back and against a wall. The Kumo nin grinned before finding kunai being thrown towards him. Cursing again, he humped back and away from the kunai. Naruto and Itachi then stood next to one another and charged towards the enemy. Naruto threw punches and palm strikes towards the Kumo nin, specifically trying to hit a few of the weak and pressure points that Tsunade and Shizun had told him about. Itachi meanwhile was trying to sweep his legs with his Uchiha style. They tried pushing him back, but the man was an adult and his physical strength was superior, so they used their smaller bodies to dodge his strikes, which were quite slow, and were able to dodge them. Though he did manage to land a few hits on the two, he was surprised that they just kept getting back up and throwing strikes toward him. He swore he even felt a low level get put on him before he managed to quickly get rid of it with a pulse of chakra. The Uchiha, he thought, since he knew with the Sharingan, Itachi would try to put him in and trap him. The Kumo ninja started getting annoyed when the two genin did not let up before they both jumped back. Pain. Bunkakek no Jutsu, Itachi called as a fireball erupted from his mouth and toward the ninja. The ninja saw it coming and jumped in the air to dodge it, but his eyes widened when he saw Naruto was now in front of him and had Shusui drawn out again. Naruto swung his blade just as the Kumo nin tried to push himself back. Despite the dodge, the tip of the Shusui sunk into the man and slashed him across the chest. Naruto landed next to Itachi, both who got in their stances again as the Kumo nin fell back a little and gripped his chest. "You little shit," he said as he checked his wound and saw it was shallow but went across most of his chest. "What are these kids? They are no ordinary children," he said and looked into their eyes. Itachi with his Sharingan and Naruto with his violet eyes gazed intensely towards him. "Raiden. Sajai Firasa," he said as his two hands surged with lightning and put them together. He did not realize that Itachi had just copied him when he saw the hand signs. Just as the attack was about to be sent off, another strong chakra signature appeared around them and a blur shot out from the Hyuga compound and struck the Kumo ninja in the chest. "Aki Sanjni Shm," the Hyuga cried out as he struck the Kumo nin 32 times in the chest. When it was over, Naruto and Itachi watched as the man stumbled back a little before blood spurted out of his mouth, his eyes rolled into the back of his head and dropped to the ground dead. They looked at the Hyuga and saw he looked just like the clan head Hiashi, making them realize he was Hisashi Hyuga, the younger twin brother of Hiashi Hyuga. Hisashi glared at the fallen man before he made his way over to the two boys and gave them a bow. "Thank you for protecting Hinata." They were about to respond before Naruto felt a large mass of multiple chakras appeared. From their right they looked over and watched as Naruto's parents, Jiraiya, Tsunade and the clan heads, appeared along with a few Anbu. "Naru-chan. Itachi-kun." Naruto and Itachi winced a little when they heard their mother's voices and quickly found themselves glomped on by Kushina and Makoto, who began to threaten and check them over. Both saw the bruises that were beginning to form on their faces and glared towards the fallen shinobi. When the two mothers were told by the two boys they were okay, Kushina nodded and joined Minato, who was speaking to Hisashi with the others, while Makoto hung back with the boys. Naruto watched as Itachi went a little red with Makoto still checking him over and planting kisses on him. From where he could stand he could hear his mother saying they should check on the twins and Mina. Even now, they are all she can think about, Naruto thought a little bitterly as he looked down at the ground as he shook slightly. Shaking his head a little, Naruto began to walk away and just made his way home, while Itachi gave him a sad glance, while Makoto just wondered what had him down. Meanwhile, Tsunade and Hiruzen, who had heard what Kushina said, looked at Naruto with sadness in their eyes. "We need to talk to them about this, Sarutobi-sensei. Look at Naru-chan, even if he doesn't necessarily show it, the way they treat him is affecting him. I heard from Shizun that he is distancing himself from the twins, it's like he doesn't want them to get too close to him," said Tsunade, worry clear in her voice. "Well, I agree with you, Tsunade-chan, the question still remains, how would we get them to see what they are doing to young Naruto? I doubt they even realize that their actions, or rather, inaction is causing him any sort of grief," he replied, also worried about the young boy that he saw as a grandson. "At the moment the only thing we can do is wait and see if they will realize their mistake before it is too late." Chapter 7 Lessons. Naruto stood at the north gate of Konoha as he waited for his team and sensei to arrive so they could go on their mission. The day marked their first C rank mission ever, and Naruto could not help but feel a little excited. The night the Kumo shinobi had attempted to kidnap the Hyuga heiress, the Hyuga clan, as well as the shinobi council, had been extremely thankful towards him, Itachi and Anko, since if it was not for Naruto and Itachi holding the ninja back and Anko going to warn the Hokage, then they may have lost the Hyuga heiress. As a reward, they made the rescue a completed A-rank mission, and all three genin got the pay. It also set a new record as Naruto, Itachi and Anko became the youngest team to ever go on an A-rank mission. Of course gave them a small scolding, but they knew that was just the mother in her talking. Though she was extremely proud of her first genin team and knew from that moment that Naruto, Itachi and Anko would go on to do great things. They had their test the next day, which was basically to let Mikoto see their level of strength. She was not disappointed and, on more than one occasion, had found herself on the defensive before managing to push them back and subdue them. It made the trio realize that Mikoto was a very powerful woman who had rightfully earned the title of Fire Mistress of the Leaf. For the next 6 months, they went on simple D-rank missions all around the Leaf Village. They came up with a simple routine, which was to perform D-rank missions in the morning, and then they would break for a lunch break before meeting up again for a few hours in the afternoon to train. Mikoto had managed to find certain aspects with each of the three to help train them, in which she was thankful for since she was not the type to leave one out while focusing on the other two. With Itachi she helped him with his ninjutsu, and since they both had the Sharingan. Anko was Taijutsu, and she would spend a good hour or more just blazing it out with the girl, while also focusing on her elemental ninjutsu, which she decided to learn after seeing the two boys use theirs for the first time. Not surprising she had a fire element as well, which was a bonus. With Naruto she struggled for a short while before she could also help him with his Taijutsu and though she used a tanto as a weapon other than a katana, the dynamics were similar, plus it gave Naruto plenty of time to practice his skills against his sensei and improve them. As Naruto thought of his skills he looked down to the ground and stared at his two hands. He had always wondered what could help him stand out from his parents and teachers, since they were all very world-renowned. His father had the Hiraishin, his mother had her Kinjutsu, and both had Kinjutsu, Mikoto had her fire, Tsunade her healing skills and super strength, Jiraiya had his Toujutsus, Kakashi had his Chidori, Itachi his Sharingan and Sarutobi with his Bijutsu and decades of experience. He had wondered what would set him apart from the rest. And it was 1 month ago when he finally found just what that was. Flashback, Naruto painted a little as Tsunade threw another punch towards which he managed to jump to the side and dodge at the last second. He regained his footing and charged towards Tsunade. This was one of their normal Taijutsu spars that Tsunade began ever since she began teaching him. They were in a small training on the Senju compound that they used recently over the few years since Tsunade was the last of her clan and she did not want to see her ancestral home collect dust. He threw his right fist towards her which she caught almost effortlessly in her right hand. When she did, Naruto's right leg came up and swung from the side as well. Tsunade brought up her left elbow and blocked the strike. "Got you now, Naru-chan," she said with a smirk before her eyes flickered to the side to see his left fist now coming toward her, having used the momentum to push another strike towards her. It was about to strike, but she dodged the strike by moving her head to the side before she spun around on the spot and threw him towards the other end of the area. Naruto managed to land on his feet, but due to the speed he was going at, he fell into his behind and hit a tree. From the sidelines Shizun and Hiruzen winced a little at the impact but saw that Naruto was already getting back up before he went forward and charged again, quickly engaging Tsunade again. Naru-chan sure has speared. He and Tsunade-sama have been going at it for 2 hours now and he is still going. Shizun commended though she was not surprised given the Uzumaki's stamina. Naruto-kun has come a long way in these few years. Hiruzen commented amazed at how far the young blonde had come since he began his training with him. "Are you and Tsunade still planning on showing him the Shinsen Jutsu?" he asked as Shizun nodded. Tsunade-sama wants him to know it just in case of emergencies, plus his chakra control has only gotten better. I dare say a few more years and his control might surpass my own. She had even been thinking of giving him the SMZM Saisei on his forehead, but she wanted to leave that decision to Naruto. Hiruzen nodded, knowing that while the SMZM Saisei Tsunade created was indeed amazing, it had its drawbacks by shortening one's lifespan. Back with Naruto, Naruto panted as Tsunade kept throwing him around like a rag doll. Her Taijutsu is just too strong. It is no wonder she hardly needs to use any ninjutsu or. He thought before his eyes widened when her hand glowed blue and she clenched it into a fist. "Be ready, Naru-chan," she shouted to him before she brought her fist down to the earth, causing the ground in front of her to begin cracking apart and causing the earth to tear apart. The ground around Naruto felt like an earthquake and did his best to keep his footing. Tsunade's strength was always going to be a game changer, even if she was the one who was winning. When he was about to jump out of the war zone, he felt his foot get stuck and trapped between a piece of the rubble and kept him in place as the ground in front of him burst open and debris went flying towards him. Tsunade, Hiruzen and Shizun saw his foot had gotten stuck and were about to dash over to help him when they stopped and watched Naruto perform a feat Hiruzen and Tsunade never thought they would ever see again. Not knowing what to do, Naruto unconsciously channeled chakra into his hands and grasped his palms together. Just as the rubble was about to hit, pillars of wood suddenly shot out of the ground and formed a protective dome around him, which stopped the debris in its tracks. As the shaking stopped, complete silence was heard as Naruto looked at the wooden dome in front of him, with eyes widened so much they looked like they would fall out. To the side, the three older shinobi were in a similar state, as Tsunade had even dropped to her knees as she saw one of her grandfather's techniques. "It's not possible." Tsunade muttered, trying to understand what just happened, while Shizun was muttering that it had to be some kind of and tried to dispel it. "Naruto," Hiruzen muttered as he looked at the boy who was in a similar state to them. "Just what are you going to become?" Then flashback, a day I will never forget. Naruto thought as he and his three teachers came to the conclusion that somehow they were still trying to figure out that Naruto had received the most legendary bloodline Konoha had ever had, the Mokuton. For the time being they kept it a secret, since if word got out to enemies of Konoha or even to some of the higher-ups in the village like the elders or Danzo that Naruto had the legendary Mokuton of the Shodai Hokage, Naruto's life would never be the same. "Naruto-kun." He heard snapping him out of his daze as he saw Mikoto along with Itachi and Anko at her side coming towards him. "Do you have everything you need?" Mikoto asked as he showed a scroll in his right hand. So to recap, what was the mission again? Naruto wanted to familiarize with the mission as much as possible. "It's very simple really. We are to take this scroll," Mikoto said, waving a small scroll in her hands before sealing it away into her wrist. "And we have to deliver it to Mifune, the general of Iron Country. The scroll has updates on the next shipment of chakra metal that we get traded with from Iron Country." "I thought Iron Country was a neutral country. Plus it has samurai, not ninja," Anko asked. "It is, but even though it does not align itself with the other nations, it does trade with them since Iron Country is a cold nation and it needs things like imported food since they can't grow food well in cold climates." "Then let's go. I can't wait. This will be my first time out of the village," Naruto said. Itachi quickly said the same while Anko stayed quiet. Team 13 set off from Konoha to the cold conditions of Iron Country. 2 days later, Naruto, Mikoto, Itachi and Anko sat on 2 logs as they stopped for a short moment to take a breather from tree jumping and to get some food in their stomachs. 2 days of traveling were an interesting experience for the 3 genin, since their D ranks only ever took a few hours at the most. Naruto was currently eating a few onigiri he had made prior to the mission. Another thing his Nichan Shizun had drilled into his head was how to make simple basic meals that could be taken on missions and which would not take up much room. Onigiri had quickly gone to the top of the list and he made sure to make enough for the trip there and back. Mikoto and Itachi were eating some leftover stew that Mikoto had made for dinner before they left, while Anko was eating some dango she acquired before they left Konoha. As they ate, Naruto began to pick up on multiple signatures closing in around them and were coming towards them at a fast pace. He looked towards Mikoto who had already picked it up, as had Anko and Itachi. The 4 nodded to each other and silently readied their weapons. A minute later a swarm of arrows suddenly flew out of the woods around them and hit them, only for all 4 members to burst into smoke and be replaced by a log. Naruto blocked a sword strike from an overweight bandit before he kicked the man in the gut, which knocked him back and knocked him out. A dozen or so men, who were obviously bandits, ran into the small area where they had been eating. They obviously thought they could win against 3 children and a woman. "Where did they go?" one asked as they looked over the logs that were now on the ground. Just as another was about to speak, a rustle from above them made them look up to see Team 13 drop out of the trees and in the center of them before they began to attack. Naruto dropped between 2 and managed to split and kick them both in the face, making them get knocked back. When one of them got back up, he ducked a strike and landed a strong strike on his left kneecap, making it break in the process, as well as the bandit fell down holding his knee in pain. The other got up, but before he could do anything Naruto threw a bunch of shuriken towards him, pinning him to the tree. From his side he watched as Mikoto and Itachi easily took out the bandits around them, though Mikoto just looked bored if anything and was simply chopping the back of their necks and quickly tying them up or driving her tanto through their chests. He watched as Anko shot a snake out of her sleeve, to which the snake then bit down on the man's jugular, causing blood to pour out of his throat and drop to the ground like a sack of potatoes. Anko had been killed and he noticed she had no problem with it. It made him wonder if she had ever been killed before. He dodged a swing of a large wooden club and kicked the man square in the face, making him fly back and hit a tree. He sensed around and felt there were only a few of the bandits left, which were quickly taken out by Itachi and Mikoto. However, he suddenly felt a small burst of killing intent hit him. It was nothing in comparison to what he was used to during his spars with either Mikoto or Tsunade, but it was enough for him to notice it. His body acting on autopilot, he turned round, readied his blade and threw it forward. When he did, he felt a small warm splash hit his face. He wiped his other hand over the wet splash and looked at his hand in front him. Blood. When he looked forward, he saw a man in his early 20s wearing similar clothing to the other bandits around them with a chipped sword in his hand. Naruto's blade was in front of him, currently stabbing the young man in the chest. Naruto had a look of horror appear on his face as he realized what he had done, and his hand began to shake. His eyes stared into the brown ones and watched as they suddenly rolled into the back of his. Naruto slowly took his blade out of his chest and just stood there as the man fell to the ground as his breathing stopped completely. "Naruto?" Mikoto asked from behind him as Anko was seen standing behind Itachi, who had just thrown up. He had taken his first life as well by snapping one of the bandits' necks. Anko patted his back gently as Itachi just stared down at the ground. "Ike killed him. I didn't mean to, it just happened. My body reacted on its own." He stuttered as Mikoto closed the distance between them and placed her hands on his shoulders. The first kill is always the hardest to take. She thought as Naruto suddenly ran from her grasp and, like Itachi had done moments ago, threw up behind a bush. As he did that, Mikoto began collecting the bodies of the dead bandits and placed them in a pile. She then performed a few fire jutsus and set the bodies on fire so that the bodies could be properly disposed of. The ones that were still alive did not stay alive for long before Mikoto slashed their throats with her tanto and added them to the burning fire. Afterward, her gaze softened towards Naruto and her son. This was one of the reasons she wanted this C rank. The way to Iron Country was known for having a lot of bandit encampments, and she wanted Naruto and Itachi to have their first kill. It was always tough for a genin to kill, but killing was in the job description of being a shinobi. She saw that Anko was okay, which she knew she was. Anko had already been killed due to her past tutoring. By having their first kill, they would not hesitate to do so again later on. Though she was 13 when she had her first kill and the memory of the man she killed still appeared in her head from time to time, Naruto and Itachi were strong, a lot stronger than others their age, and she knew deep down that they could take it, handle it and rise above it. "Come on," she said, patting Naruto and Itachi's shoulders and rubbing them gently. "Let's get moving. We should cover as much ground as we can while we still have light," she said, making the three genin nod. Naruto and Itachi were a little slower than normal, but that's because their first kills were on their minds and would be for a few more days. 2 days later, a scroll we were sent to deliver Mifune-sama. Mikoto said as she, Naruto, Itachi, and Anko stood in a large office that had numerous blades and samurai armors decorating around it. On one of the walls was 3 picture frames hanging up showing 3 men all dressed in samurai armor and all looking very powerful and intimidating. "Thank you, Uchiha-san," a man said from behind the desk as he took the scroll politely from her and began to read the contents of it. Mifune was an elderly man, so to speak, perhaps in his late 40s, early 50s. He had long purplish hair that showed signs of graying, along with bandages that wrapped around the top of his head, along with a small mustache. He wore a simple navy blue kimono with black sandals. Strapped to his side, Naruto saw a katana with a black handle strapped to his side. Beside him were 2 samurai wearing the traditional Iron Country armor, along with the helmets which Naruto had to admit looked a little strange. After a few minutes of reading with an expressionless look on his face, Mifune nodded and gave them a small smile. "The terms in this scroll are agreeable. Allow me a few minutes to write a reply scroll," he said as he brought out a blank scroll and some ink. He began to write as the team stood there silently as they waited. After he finished, he handed the new scroll back to Mikoto, who bowed and thanked him. They were about to leave, but Mifune stopped them. "If I were you, Uchiha-san, I would stay in town for a day or 2. There is a strong blizzard that will be coming through the area tonight. Anyone who gets caught in it will most likely freeze to death," he said. "I see. Thank you for the information and looking out for my team," Mikoto said, bowing to him again to show her thanks. As Naruto, Itachi and Anko began to leave the room, Mifune used a few hand signals to send a silent message to Mikoto. The 2 boys had looked so emotionless and both had a tired and worn out look on their faces. "What is wrong with the 2 boys?" Mikoto sighed a little sadly and made a few hand signs in return. "First kill." Mifune immediately had a look of understanding across his face, since it did explain everything. He nodded to her as they left and sat back in his chair while putting his sword in his lap. He noticed Naruto's blade in his right hand and couldn't help but feel intrigued. He knew that not many from the Leaf practiced in Kenjutsu, and it made him a little curious at how he was progressing. Early next morning, Naruto lay on his bed as just stared up at the ceiling spread all over his futon, with the image of the man he killed still on his mind. Every time he tried to fall asleep, he would see that man standing in front of him. "I wonder if this happens to others who kill for the first time," he thought as he looked out the window to see it was still dark outside, though the morning sun was slowly pushing its way through. He looked over to see Itachi was asleep, having spoken with Mikoto for a few hours about it the night before, and he looked a lot better than he did. Mikoto did the same for Naruto, however even with her words, it would not leave his mind. Realizing he would not be getting any more sleep for the time being, he got out of his futon and put his clothes on. He carried Shusui in his right hand and made his way out of his room, which Mifune had kindly given them during their stay in Iron Country and not get caught in the blizzard during the night. Making his way through the hallways as well as looking at some painting and decorative samurai armors that were presented on display, Naruto eventually stopped at one of the indoor training rooms that they were told they could use. Since the environment of Iron Country was not the best to train in, the samurai had multiple giant rooms made for the sole purpose of training. In the room Naruto went into there were training dummies made of both wood and stone, a large circle about 10 meters wide for small time spares to take part in as well as racks for weapons of various kinds. He went over towards one of the wooden training dummies and unsheathed Shusui and began to train with his sword. The blade didn't feel very heavy to Naruto anymore since he had carried it around for nearly 6 months and had both grown accustomed to it as well as got physically stronger. For about 30 minutes Naruto danced around the wooden dummy slashing and stabbing at the straw dummy, though since he had no specific sword style, he was just sort of going with the strikes. From behind him a pair of eyes rested on him as they watched him attack the straw dummy. Where Naruto was, he could feel someone watching him but did not let on that he knew. They did not feel like a threat but more like they were curious. As if they wanted to see what he would do next. A few moments later the figure that was watching Naruto dashed forward at great speed with a katana in their hand and swung towards Naruto. Naruto, feeling them suddenly appear behind him, turned around as quick as he could and blocked the strike with Shusui. Turning around he was surprised to see Mifune standing there in front of him examining both Naruto and Naruto's sword. "Lord Mifune," Naruto said in surprise as he quickly sheathed his sword and gave the general of Iron Country a bow. "My apologies for engaging you," Naruto said but quickly saw that Mifune was waving it off. "I am engaged to you, young Namikaze. It is I who should apologize. I wanted to see how well you acted with a blade since I saw you carrying it the other day. I must admit your reaction time with it is quite impressive." Thank you Lord Mifune," Naruto said a little taken back that one of the best sword users in the world was complimenting him. "Though by your footwork and the way you hold the blade, you do not have a style for it," he asked as Naruto shook his head. "Does your mother Kushina Uzumaki not teach you? She is an expert in kenjutsu last I checked." Since he found it odd that a boy with a mother as well versed with a blade as Kushina was, did not have a sword style already. Mifune watched as Naruto shifted a little as well as saw this small look of bitterness cross his face. "My mother is a busy woman. She does not have the time to teach me and continue her other duties in the village," he said, looking away. "I see," Mifune said before his face softened a bit. "May I?" he asked, wanting to take a look at Shusui. Naruto was a little hesitant since his sword was becoming one of the most precious items he had, but allowed it. Mifune took it and immediately noticed that it was heavier than other blades. He also noticed how different looking it was since the metal was black with a red wave-like pattern going down the middle of the blade ending at the tip, but admired its unique beauty. This is a strong blade. A blade meant for a lot of power and physical strength. To be able to hold a blade that is as heavy as it is at your age is impressive. Though you would need a style to fit this," he said as Naruto nodded. Mifune said as he gave Naruto Shusui back and headed towards one of the sparring circles. They stood in the circle and Mifune drew his blade out of its sheath as Naruto did the same. "Come at me with the intent to kill Naruto-san. Otherwise don't attack at all." Naruto bit his lip a little but nodded. Taking a deep breath, he gripped the handle of Shusui in a tight grip though not too tight and went forward towards Mifune. He swung at Mifune who easily blocked the strike with his blade and first acted on the defensive, letting Naruto get a few strikes in. Every strike Naruto sent towards Mifune, the experienced samurai blocked it each time and blocked it with little difficulty. "You must try much harder than that," Mifune said to Naruto as he spun, catching Naruto off balance and knocking Naruto in the chest with the back of his sword and making him stumble back. Shaking his head, Naruto went forward again, this time striking at a fast speed and trying to catch Mifune off guard. Mifune though once again blocked with ease and dodged the strikes. Naruto swung Shusui a little higher than before and brought it down at a greater speed and with a bit more power behind it. Mifune locked his blade with Naruto's making a loud clang sound out through the training area. Naruto tried to push back, but Mifune's strength was greater and Mifune pushed him back before pushing him off a little bit and like earlier knocked Naruto back with the back of his sword. Naruto breathed in and out a little heavily, getting a little frustrated that he could not land a single strike on Mifune. He charged forward for a third time, but this time Mifune locked his sword with Naruto, spun it around in Naruto's hand before disarming Naruto with a swift chop to the back of his hand, making him drop Shusui. "No," Naruto thought as he watched Mifune swung his sword towards him, obviously putting Naruto on the post and wanting him to think of his own way to get his sword back. As the strike was about to hit him, Naruto took a leap of faith. "Please let this work," he thought as he waited for the strike to hit before he felt the air shift a little. Raising his hands up, he threw his hands in front of him and caught the blade in his palms. Mifune for one was a little taken back by the sudden move. The strike may not have been very strong since he was holding back a lot, but still to catch the blade in two palms like that it impressed Mifune. Not bad. He thought as he slid the blade out of Naruto's palms. He swung again towards Naruto, but this time Naruto used his stature to his use, ducked, and rolled towards his blade. Picking the shusui up, he brought it up and deflected another strike. Not bad. Now you are thinking like a swordsman, however, you should never drop your sword in battle as your opponent may use it against you. Mifune said and leading to example, pushed Naruto away again, but this time knocking shusui out of his just enough to make it fly in the air. Mifune reached and grabbed it before holding the two blades against Naruto's neck in a scissor-like form. Naruto meanwhile was a little awestruck at how quickly that just happened, reaffirming how strong Mifune was. Mifune examined the boy. He has talent, that's for sure. If he works hard enough and finds the right style, then he will be a force to be reckoned with. Mifune gave the sword back to Naruto who accepted it before taking a few steps back. He sheathed his sword but kept his hand on the handle. Again. He said, making Naruto look at him for a few seconds before smiling internally and charging forward as the two sparred for the next few hours, Mifune fully believing that Naruto was going to be a force to be reckoned with as he got older. One day later, Naruto packed his belongings and put them away into a storage seal as he and his team prepared to set off back for the Leaf Village. Itachi, Mikoto, and Anko were waiting for him just outside the room as Naruto finished the last of his packing. Shusui was strapped to his side as he patted the handle. Having sparred with Mifune a lot during the stay, Naruto felt that he somewhat improved as a swordsman and was taught that to be a great swordsman, his sword must become one with him, like it was an extension of his body. Mifune also drilled into him to have patience since patience was a key element for a swordsman. After their last spar, Mifune had been impressed with Naruto and told him to get stronger so that one day Naruto and Mifune could have a clash of swords like never before. As Naruto was about to leave, a small breeze went through the room making Naruto stop and a chakra signature appeared suddenly. However, it disappeared as quickly as it came. Turning around, he saw on one of the side tables a slightly large scroll now stood out. He went towards it and saw a note on the side. This style has no master and has yet to be mastered. It will teach you the basics and fundamentals, but will allow you to create your own techniques. Perhaps you can be the first. Mifune, Naruto's eyebrows shot up in surprise. He was thankful that the general of Iron Country was nice enough to point out a few of his flaws and help improve them as well as apart with him, but now he really had to thank the man, for he believed he had found a style that would fit him. Naruto took the scroll and read the name of the side of it. Bitoryu, One Sword Style. Weird name. Naruto thought as he opened it up and took a few glances at it before a grin appeared on his face. This is perfect. Naruto muttered before quickly sealing the scroll into a storage seal on his arm. As he left the room, he didn't notice Mifune standing with his back to the wall beside the window, with his arms crossed and eyes shut. I look forward to seeing you become a young Uzumaki, he said before disappearing. Naruto met back up with his team, looking back for a second at the compound before they finally began making their way back to Konoha. Chapter 8 Chunin Exams Written Test. And so do the three of you understand the importance of this? Minato asked in full Hokage mode as he sat behind his desk with Team 13 and Mikoto standing in front of him. Yes, Hokage-sama, Naruto, Itachi and Anko replied back in a respectful tone. Very good, the three of you are the only team from the Leaf Village this time around who will be competing in the exams, therefore the village has a lot of high hopes for the three of you. Yes, Hokage-sama, they said again. Mikoto watched her team with pride evident in her eyes. And above all else, give it your all and know that Konoha and all its inhabitants, shinobi and civilians, are behind you 100% and will be rooting for you every step of the way. The three of you are the best crop of genin we have had in a very long time. With what your sensei has been telling me, the three of you are more than ready for these exams, Minato said looking at Naruto with pride evident on his face. Though Naruto remained emotionless and looked at his father with slightly bored eyes. Thank you, Hokage-sama. We will do our best, the three said in unison. Minato nodded as he gave them their forms. Remember, you need those forms to get into the exams. So if you lose those forms, then none of you will be able to enter. The exams this year will be held in Suna, which is a 3-day journey away. The exams begin in 5 days, so you will need to get moving by tomorrow, he said as the three genin nodded and bowed to their Hokage before they turned to leave the room. Naruto, your Kachan would like to know what you want for dinner this evening, since you won't be home for a while. She said she will make you whatever you want, Minato said, thinking Naruto would be smiling a big smile since he always enjoyed Kushina's cooking. Naruto heard his father and slowly turned around, which surprised Minato and Mikoto when they saw he was looking at them still with an emotionless look on his face. Tell Kachan not to worry. I'm having dinner round Gigi's tonight, he said. Before either could say anything he shined away, leaving the two adults as the only ones left in the room. What was that about? Minato asked himself as he looked at where his eldest was standing before turning towards Mikoto. Mikoto was also looking towards the spot where he had been standing with a similar thought in her head. She had begun to notice more and more lately that Naruto was becoming very distant and one would even say a little cold towards his parents. He even tried to keep away from his siblings, though she quickly saw that was not possible due to Mina and Mito's clinginess. Plus he had been spending a lot more time at their compound with Itachi and Anko. I'm sure it is just nerves, Mikoto answered. I bet the shock of him being entered in the exam has made him a little nervous and a little withdrawn. We were all at that stage when we went to our exams. Do you remember Kushina during hers when she was 14? She asked Minato to chuckle at the memory. Kushina had been so excited to be put into the exams that when the day actually arrived, she became a nervous wreck and on more than one occasion tried to pull out. Though when her confidence finally came back, she made sure everyone knew that she was going to become and kick their ass to the moon and back. Naruto is probably just handling it differently. We all handle certain situations differently. Minato sat there for a few moments before smiling. Yeah, you are probably right. I'm sure that's what it is. Though Kushina will be a little crushed that he won't be here tonight, I'm sure she will understand. He said before saying goodbye to Mikoto and preparing to face the cage's greatest enemy of all time. Paperwork. Mikoto meanwhile as she left the room had a frown marring on her face as she thought about her blonde-haired student and genin. Naruto, what is wrong? What are you trying to hide? Uchiha compound. Sunshine back home and immediately sought out her eldest son to ask him about Naruto's actions towards his parents. She found in the backyard playing with his younger sister, smiling towards his little sister. She walked forward and said. Itachi, I wish to ask you something about Naruto. So you noticed then? The way Naruto acts towards his family? Asked Itachi with a sad look on his face as he thought about his closest friend and the problems he had at home. Yes, I noticed, what is that about? He is so cold towards his parents and tries to push away his siblings. She was concerned about her students' well-being as well as the state of her best friend and rival's home. When I first met Naruto we were both 7 as you remember. He started and continued when his mother nodded. Well, one of the first things I learned about him was that was very good at Kenjutsu. Yes, which is to be expected with who his parents are. I am sure that they taught him about Kenjutsu at a young age, as is tradition of the Uzumaki clan. She started not knowing where this was going. It wasn't his parents who taught him Kenjutsu, it was the Sandaime. In fact his parents didn't even teach him the basics of chakra control, he learned it from Shizun-san. Replied Itachi, pausing to let everything he said sink in. But, why would he have to learn such things from other people? Surely if he had asked his parents would have gladly taught him. She asked not sure if she wanted to know the answer. Itachi just shook his head and looked towards Hokage mountain where you could just make out 2 figures on top of Yondaime's head. Naruto did ask them to teach him, however ever since the twins were born they have become less attentive towards him. When Naruto asked his father and mother to teach him Kenjutsu, his father simply gave him a book to give to the Sandaime when he took his lessons. He asked his mother to help him with his chakra and to learn about and instead of making a shadow clone to do so, she told him that she was too busy and then passed him off to Shizun. Mikoto looked over at her son in shock and then towards the blonde speck on top of the mountain with sadness in her eyes. She couldn't understand what could possess 2 of her closest friends to act this way towards their son. Why haven't you or anyone confronted them about how they treat Naruto? It's not how you think, they aren't doing it on purpose. They are unintentionally favoring the twins. As for why we haven't confronted them, Naruto told everyone not to, he thinks that it won't change anything, so he would rather endure it rather than have his parents think that he is starting things because he is jealous of the twins, which he is not. Responding, Itachi smiled slightly as he turned towards his mother, which confused her greatly. After all, why would he be happy about that? Even after how his parents have treated him, albeit unintentionally, he loves his younger siblings to death. Mina, Mito, and Ig mean the world to him and he would fight to the death to ensure their safety. So, then his taijutsu and they aren't anything that Minato or Kushina use, so who taught him? She asked, smiling sadly at the fact her student was suffering and she couldn't do anything about it. His taijutsu, as I'm sure you have realized is a bastardized version of the Senju style and Goken. He was taught the Senju style by Tsunade-sama, however the Senju style is defensive like the Uchiha style, so in order to counteract that problem, he asked Gai-san to teach him Goken. Also the Senju style and Goken were too restrictive for him, so he adjusted each style to work better with his body type. Said Itachi as he made a face at little Ria which made her giggle and smile at her big brother. I thought it seemed familiar, though I have trouble following it with my Sharingan, do you have the same problem? She asked since even though he was younger Itachi's eyes were sharper than hers. Yes, I have much trouble following it since his style is more free-form than the normal structured style of either style, though I would be surprised if it was like that on purpose. Naruto and I are friends as well as rivals, so it would make sense for him to have something to counteract my eyes. You asked about his corrections? Itachi asked, still playing with Ria. Yes, I did. I have never seen anything like it in all of Hai no Kuni. She replied smiling as she watched her eldest and youngest play. That would be because it is from Testu no Kuni and has never been used or mastered as, like his Taijutsu, it is free-formed. Apparently Mifune-sama saw that Naruto was having trouble with his first kill and found Naruto training in, which at that point he didn't even have a natural talent for. They spared while we waited out the storm at night. When we left, Mifune left him a scroll with the footwork and a challenge for him to become strong enough to face him on an equal footing one day. He said as he picked up Ria to take her inside for her nap, leaving his mother to mull over what she had been told. I will have to talk to Naruto to get the full story from him, though you can't help but be impressed that he has come so far with so little help. She thought, hoping to help the little boy whom she saw as a nephew. But Naruto, so you are going to be in the exams. Are you excited? Sarutobi asked Naruto as the two sat on top of the Shadame Hokage's head on the Hokage monument as they looked over the village as the sun began to disappear and let night settle in. Beside him, Naruto gave him an excited smile. I am. I really want to test myself against other strong people from the other villages. The stronger the better, I say. Well, remember not to get in over your head. If you get too confident and cocky, then it may lead to your downfall. I have seen it done to my shinobi during my life. Sarutobi lightly scolded, but Naruto nodded. I know, but I am just excited, that's all, he said, a complete 180 turn from what he was acting like earlier. Well, that is good then. Would you say goodbye to Tsunade and Shizun before you leave? He asked with Naruto quickly nodding. Good, I know they will miss you while you are gone. Those two will miss having their little blonde sunshine not be around for a while. Sarutobi then laughed at the pout on Naruto's face at being called a blonde sunshine. I will miss them too, but it won't be for long. Plus, if I make it into the final round, you will all come and watch me, right? Just try and stop us, Hiruzen said, making Naruto smile brightly. You would need an army of shinobi and more to stop Tsunade from going, he thought, since Tsunade truly did love and care for Naruto just like she did for Nawaki, but in a more maternal way. The same could be said for Shizun, since she had a big soft spot for the young blonde Uzumaki. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Shaking his head, Sarutobi then put his hand on Naruto's shoulder and gave him a serious look and told him to pay close attention. Naruto knew this was his Jiji slipping into his Kami no Shinobi mode. Since there are going to be shinobi from other villages, there is a chance they will recognize you by your appearance and your name. Ninja of Kumo and I will most likely be participating, so you must be on your guard. He said as Naruto nodded. Especially after the Kumo incident here a year ago, we have become wary around them. I still don't understand why the alliance never happened. The Raikage said he knew nothing about the abduction and that the Kumo nin had done it on his own accord. I could feel his chakra Jiji. If he was lying, then his chakra would have been all over the place. He was telling the truth. Yes, well, unfortunately Naruto, even with that statement, the word of a lone genin would not be enough to change the mind of your father and the Shinobi Council. Plus, due to your mother's past experiences with Kumo, she already did not like the fact that they were here in the village. Naruto sorted a little, which was very much unusual for him. He responded very sarcastically. Yes, because those two were going to listen to me even if it was enough. Hiruzen frowned a little at the statement, but Naruto quickly changed the subject. I am also guessing that using my hidden bloodline is also a big no-no for the exams. He said despite already knowing the answer. Yes, Naruto, it is imperative that no one knows you have the Mokuton until you are older and strong enough to fight off most threats. Because other villages might try to have me taken out if they find out. He asked as Hiruzen nodded his head. The Mokuton Naruto is recognized as one of the strongest bloodlines in the entire world. It is rivaled only by the Sharingan, yet many believe it is superior than the Ninjutsu. The power to control and suppress the power of a tail beast is a power that many will desire. Plus, there are people in the village that might try to take advantage of it. He said as Hiruzen's face darkened a little. Yes. There are those in the shadows of the Konoha that will try to use that power, which could end up hurting the leaf more than helping it, he said as his thoughts trekked first to a few members of the councils who were known to be rather power-hungry before it settled on his old teammate and Konoha's warhawk Danzo. If Danzo ever gets his claws into Naruto, the man would not stop until Konoha is under his control. He thought before Naruto and Hiruzen let silence take over. One thought about who and what he would face in the future, while the other thought of the obstacles that his surrogate grandson would one day have to face. 5 days later, the cloaked-covered Team 13 trekked through the sands of the desert as they walked towards the giant gate of the Sunagaker. The gates were made of stone and had 2 guards similar to what Konoha had stationed at the gate. Halt, state your names and purpose for coming to the Sunagaker. one of them said as Makoto took off her hood and showed her Konoha headband. Makoto Uchiha with her genin team, here for the exams, said as she handed them some forms as they looked over. After a minute of looking the guards nodded their heads. You're all a little late, aren't you? The exams start in an hour, and most of the team are either already there or are heading that way. We got caught up in a sandstorm on the way here, so we had to take cover. We should have been here yesterday afternoon, but we had to bunker down for a day and let the storm pass. They both nodded in understanding since sandstorms were very common in the desert of Suna. If you got caught in one or attempted to brave it, then you most likely would not make it. Okay, well, the exams are taking place in the academy building on the west side of the village. You will probably see a few teams head in that direction, so just follow them, one of them said as Makoto and the three genin all nodded and walked on through. Team 13 quickly made their way through the gates and headed towards their lodgings, which were at the Desert Possum Hotel. Once there, they deposited their bags while Naruto, Itachi and Anko kept the things they knew they would need for these exams. Once done, Makoto led the trio towards the academy building on the east side. As they made their way there they spotted a few other teams from the other villages. One was a group from grass country if the headbands were anything to go by, while another was from the rain. They kept their guard just in case until after 10 minutes they arrived at the academy building. Makoto stopped at the entrance and turned to look at her team, a proud smile marring on her face. You all have everything you need, right? She asked as the trio nodded at her. Know that the three of you have made me so proud this past year and are about to do something that very few people can't say they have done within the space of a year. I know the three of you are going to go on to do great things if what I have seen from the three of you is anything to go by. I know the three of you can go all the way in this exam, but remember that in this exam not everything will be what it seems. So look underneath and pick out things that may seem little, but will end up playing a big part in these exams. Naruto, Itachi and Anko smiled towards their teacher and in Itachi's mother and bowed to her. Thank you for putting your faith in us, Makoto-sensei Kasan, and thank you for helping us get to this point in our ninja careers. Without you, we probably would not have gotten this far. Leaning down, Makoto placed a kiss on each of their foreheads, keeping her lips on Itachi's forehead a little longer than Naruto and Anko, and fought to keep any tears at bay. Though she had only been their sensei for a year, she had loved every moment of having the chance to train her eldest son and his two friends. We promise we will do our best and honor your teachings. They said together again as Makoto stood to the side and allowed them entry into the building. How about them all and show the world why the three of you will one day be legends, she whispered to herself as she watched them go. Taking a slow breath, she shined away and went to join the other Jonin instructors, wanting to watch as her team progressed through the exam. Of Team 13, Naruto walked in the center with Itachi on his right and Anko on his left as the trio made their way through the hallways of the academy. As they walked in, a proctor instructed them that their exams were on the third floor and in room 3A. As soon as the man had said that, the three already knew something about this exam was already fishy. As they walked up the stairs of the academy building, once they got up the stairs they saw room 3A in clear writing and saw a grass nin team head into the room. Anko, thinking nothing of it at first, walked forwards and went towards the door but stopped when she felt Naruto and Itachi's hand rest on her shoulders. Hold up, Anko, this is not our floor. He said, making her look at him in a confused manner. But the door is right there. 3A, she said, but by the look on their faces, she guessed that was not quite the case. What number was the room again? He asked as Anko lazily told him it was 3A, right, so then how many flights of stairs have we gone up so far? 2. She trailed off before her eyes widened a little as she realized what he was getting at. She turned back around and looked at the sign which read 3A. She gazed at it strongly for a moment before seeing the words flicker on it. A, she whispered as the other two nodded. It caused her to groan. Ah, I can't believe I almost fell for that. She whined as Itachi gave an amused smirk across his face, while Naruto put an arm around her shoulders. Don't worry, Anko-chan. It will happen to the best of us. That I am guessing is there to weed out the groups that are not ready for the exams. If they can't see through something simple like that, then it means they are not ready. Since we noticed it, it means we are ready, Itachi added as they watched Anko's eyes ignite into flames as her drive to pass the exams got even stronger. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go kick some ass. She declared as she grabbed Naruto and Itachi's hand and began dragging them up the third flight of stairs. When they finally got to their floor, they saw the real door that they required. They narrowed their eyes on this one to see if it was A, but quickly their faces calmed, seeing it was the real one this time. They walked together and after taking a deep breath slid the door open and went inside. When they went in they felt a little nervous, though they never showed it. All around the room were genin teams that looked a lot older than they were, many were in their teens, and as they looked around saw that the oldest must have been about 16. Great, more kids, they heard one of them snort out, but Naruto quickly noticed that many of them were gazing at him. That kid looks familiar. You don't think he is Kairoi Seiko's yellow flash kid, do you? Another whispered while others contemplated the idea. If he is, then this exam has got more fun, another said, showing from his headband he was from Kumo. If he is, then it must mean he is the Benihim's Crimson Princess, son too. Naruto breathed calmly as he, Itachi and Anko went and stood on one of the back walls. There are a lot of teams here, Anko muttered out as she looked over the teams before she smiled a blood-curdling smile. It just means there are more people to cut and bleed. Both Naruto and Itachi rolled their eyes at their female teammates, but figured it was good that she was at least confident. The two of them were confident, but they knew not to get too confident, since getting cocky can easily lead to someone getting killed. Deciding to scope out the other teams, Naruto examined the other team, looking for any weaknesses he thought they might have, as well looking to see what nation they came from. At first he noticed that a lot were from minor nations like grass, rain and even bird country. Since they were smaller in size, Naruto guessed they needed more level shinobi. There were about 2 from Kumo that kept sneaking glances towards him, but he also noticed there were no teams from Kiri. But he already knew why though. It was quickly known through Konoha that a civil war had erupted in the Hidden Mist village, and currently the Mizukage, who was known as Yugura, was at war with rebel forces that wanted him gone. From what Hiruzen had told him, it was due to Yugura wanting the bloodline eradicated, and he saw them as a threat. Naruto quickly figured that Yugura was not a man that should be left to be in charge of an entire village. Looking over the team once more, he was about to look away, having seen all the teams before his eyes locked in on a team that was on the other side of the room and leaning against the opposite wall. He knew immediately from their headbands they were from Iowa, and they looked like an interesting trio. He also seemed interested in them, since by the look of them, they must have been the same age as Naruto, Itachi and Anko was. The first one he noticed was the biggest of them, who was easily the size of a middle-aged teen and was quite chubby. He wore standard red Iowa clothing, and as for his features, he had a very large round nose that stuck out like a sore thumb. Though the boy had a very happy-go-lucky expression on his face, indicating he must have been quite innocent and childlike. The other was the second male member, who for some reason just gave Naruto a bad feeling. He had long straw blonde hair that covered part of his left eye and wore clothes similar to Itachi, which were dark blue in color. His hand kept playing around with some white clay and looked like he was molding it into shapes. Naruto could see that Itachi had honed in on the same group and had his Sharingan activated very subtly, and guessed he felt something a little off about the blonde boy as well. As Itachi focused on his, Naruto eyes panned to the final member and the only girl of the group. She was quite pretty looking and had dark hair that stopped a little below her chin. She wore something similar to the big kid, but her left leg instead of a red pants leg was instead a mesh coat. When he stared at her, she saw that she turned her head and looked in his direction. When she did, Naruto saw her eyes and saw they were a very exotic color of pink. Her eyes are really pretty, he thought to himself, having never seen an eye color like that, before noticing she narrowed her eyes in him and scowled a little. When she turned her head again to look away from him, a small burst of smoke appeared at the front of the class, showing the form of Asuna Kenweichi. She was clearly a jonin, and just by looking at her, Naruto, Itachi and Anko could tell she was someone with a lot of power behind her, and that she was a seasoned shinobi despite her young appearance. She had to be in her early to mid-20s. She was fair-skinned with pupil-less brown eyes that were very cold-looking, and her hair was dark green with 2 bangs framing her face that were orange. She wore a sleeveless backless top and short tight pants, with 2 lapels on the front and the back. She wears an obi around her waist, as well as purple arm warmers which extend up to her shoulders, and has bandages around her tights and ankles. Alright meatbags, listen up and do not interrupt. My name is Sakura and I will be your proctor throughout the entire exams. From now until the end of the exams I will be your judge, jury and executioner. If I tell you to do something, you do it. Is that understood? She declared as everyone nodded their heads. Everyone go around the tables and sit in the seat with your name on it, she said as everyone began moving around. Naruto found himself at the front and found out that he was sitting beside none other than Iwa Kenweichi. Though she completely ignored him and made sure not to even look at him. Anko was in the middle room while Itachi was in the second to last row. The trio was completely separated. The first test is a written exam, she said as a few of the station that appeared in the room began laying out exam papers in front of them. Answer the questions as best as you can, however be warned that if you are caught cheating, you and your teammates will be sent out of this room and you will fail the exams. No pressure then. Naruto thought. You have 50 minutes to answer the 9 questions on the paper before we will stop the exam and give you the choice to answer the 10th question. Your time will start now. She declared as man of the genin got their heads down and began writing. Naruto also put his head down as he began to read the question, but quickly knew something was off about the test when he saw the questions. They can't expect us to know this surely. He thought to himself, seeing the questions were ones that some jonin probably would not even know. Well, he could answer 3 or 4 of them, the others left him a little baffled. There is something about this. He began to scan around the room as discreetly as he could. As he did, some of the judges began calling out numbers and started sending some of the people out of the room. Many grumbled and claimed they were not cheating, but it didn't matter since they were forced out if they did not comply quietly. He looked to his side at the Iwa Kenweichi and was a little surprised to see that she had a forehead protector strapped around her wrist and was using it as a reflector to see the exam sheet from the person behind her. She is cheating and not getting caught. He thought as he then turned to try and see his teammates. When he saw Itachi, he saw his Sharingan was on and was copying the hand movements of the guy in front of him, while Anko had a small snake beside her, which was relaying the answers from the person behind her. We have to cheat. That is the aim of the first exam. He thought as it finally clicked. Smirking a little to himself, he first answered the question he did know before he put his hands behind his head and leaned back on the chair and closed his eyes, letting himself feel the chakra of all the people in the room. He could feel most were nervous and scared, while only a few were keeping together. A few of the proctors looked at Naruto in surprise and saw one of his hands take the pencil on the desk and write a few things before putting it down. He did that continuously for the rest of the 50 minutes. Sakura raised an eyebrow at the kid, wondering what kind of trick he was pulling. Everyone penciled down and listen up. Sakura suddenly spoke, gathering all the attention towards her as everyone complied with the order. Alright, are you all ready for the final question? Sakura asked as they all nodded their heads. Good, because now if you quit you will be disqualified from the exams, however if you choose to take it and you fail, you will never get promoted and will remain a genius for the rest of your life. She said, flaring her kai, now causing worry and panic to fill most people in the room, as many began shouting at her telling her that it was not fair. Konoha's ninja and Iwa's ninja all stayed silent though as they listened to the others complain. Naruto watched as about 4 teams got up and left the room, not wanting to take the chance. So you think you got what it takes, you think because of who you are, you think you can make it. Sakura said towards Naruto, wanting to see how tough the blonde boy was and if he was ready and how he would take the jab. Naruto though just shrugged at her question, gaining looks from many including the Iwa girl next to him. I don't really know, but I do know that I won't let your little trick of trying to demoralize us get to me. This question is all about whether or not we are willing to risk it all. We are shinobi and we will be risking our lives every time we go on a mission and step out of our village. If I was not ready to take those risks, then I would not be sitting here waiting for you to give us the 10th question, would I, Proctor-san? Oh, and Proctor-san, just to clarify for you, I am not doing this because of who my parents are. To be honest, I could not care what you think or what anyone else thinks. I am doing this for me because I believe I am ready. So do not insinuate because of my last name that I think I will get it easy, because that is the last thing I want to happen. While his 2 teammates grinned, Sakura looked around the room to see others who had been ready to leave were now sitting put. His little speech gave them what strength they needed to stay put. Sakura sighed before giving them all the evil eye. For those who are still here, then I will tell you all this now. Sakura spoke as she raised her chakra levels to intimidate the genin, which worked as she showed off her power. You? Pass. When she spoke, many looked confused and asked about the 10th question, to which she began explaining to them that the choice to take the risk of continuing was the 10th question and that everyone that remained had moved on to the second part of the exam, much to their delight and others' relief. Now that the first part is over, go and get in your team. She said as many shrugged their shoulders and did just that. Pretty nice speech you gave us all there. Anko commented as Naruto shrugged. I did my best. Hope you liked it. It was very informative, plus it's probably what made everyone else stay here. She said as Itachi nodded in agreement. Naruto turned around and noticed that the Iwa girl he was sitting next to was looking at him with an unreadable expression before she turned her head and looked away. Listen up. Sakura called for everyone's attention. Now that the first test is over, we can begin the second. She said as she had a devious smile appear on her face, and Naruto began to notice the other proctors had now vanished from sight. Hi. She said as she made a hand seal with her right hand, and suddenly out of nowhere around them, small paper notes began to shine, similar to how explosive notes did. However, instead of an explosion, a torrent of gas began to shoot out. As soon as the gas hit them, all the teams began to feel drowsy, and one by one they began to fall to the ground. Knockout gas. What the hell is the second exam then? Naruto said to himself, as Anko collapsed in front of him and fell asleep with Itachi falling next before Naruto finally went down, being the last in the room to go down. Sakura then reappeared along with a couple of dozen other shinobi, which included Mikoto, who went forward towards her team. You 3 have done well to get past the first exam, but now the second exam will be much harder and it will test your teamwork and your survival skills. She said as she grabbed a hold of the 3 of them and sunshine away, just like the other senseis did with their genin teams. When they were gone, Sakura went around the room and began picking up the papers. When she got to Naruto, though, she found a few of the answers had been written which she saw were correct, while on the other question he had begun playing a game of tic-tac-toe. Seeing it, it made her snort and shake her head. I just passed a genin that did not even take this first exam seriously and who will no doubt be a big player in this exam. She thought as she continued to collect the papers. This year's exams are going to be interesting, that is for sure, she thought as she finished picking up the papers and sunshine away, leaving a now empty classroom. Chapter 9, Chunin Exam Survival. Oh, what hit me? Naruto groaned aloud as bright light shined directly down upon him, causing him to groan even more and put his hand in front of his eyes in order not to go blind from the sun. He didn't know where he was, but wherever it was hot, very hot. So much so that his forehead was sweating an awful lot and could feel his clothes were sticking to him a little, making him feel a little uncomfortable. The ground beneath him was flat and soft, however it felt loose and like it was shifting beneath him. What am I lying on? He thought as he began to sit up. When he went to rub the back of his neck he found sand covering it. Looking behind him completely he saw his whole back was covered in sand. What the? He said before he finally took a good look around and noticed they were currently under the shade of a few cacti that were piled together, which were stationed in the middle of the desert. Where the hell are we? He shouted out, causing movements to stir next to him. Looking over he saw Anko and Itachi all lying next to him but were showing signs of beginning to wake up. Guys, wake up, we have problems. He said as he shook them both awake. The last he remember was being in the classroom with the other teams that passed the first tests. Okay already, take it easy dude, Anko complained as she began to sit up and rub her eyes. Itachi did the same and was blinking his eyes. As they both began to wake up, they began to notice where they were. They blinked furiously, as if believing it was and even tried to dispel it. Once they realized it was not and they were really in the desert, Anko summed up everyone's thoughts. Where the fuck are we? The desert by the looks of things, damn Proctor must have knocked us out with knockout gas. He said as the trio began to shakily stand up. For the next minute they checked themselves over and sighed happily that everyone still had all their belongings. Naruto was especially thankful no one took his blade, but then again he had that in a storage seal on his right wrist since he did not want people seeing his beautiful blade just yet. There's a note. Itachi said as he looked over at one of the cactuses and saw that pinned to the center cactus was indeed a note. They all got up and went towards it. Itachi delicately took it off, not wanting to get struck by one of the prickles of the cactus plant, and read out what it said. Congrats for passing the first exam. Now the real test begins. Your team has been stranded in the middle of the Suna desert to which your team must survive. You have 5 days to return to the Suna village. If you do not return at that time then you will be disqualified. Along the way there will be a surprise in store. Oh goody, this sounds like a heap of fun. Naruto commented dryly as Anko and Itachi could not help but agree with him. So we are stranded. Who the hell came up with this stupid idea? Anko wailed as the two sighed and shook their heads. 5 days, huh? I don't suppose anyone actually knows which direction we have to go in, do you? Naruto asked as he looked around them. I guess that is another thing we have to figure out. Navigation and stuff like that. Itachi added, though he was more worried about getting food and water once they ran out. Well, if we have 5 days then I guess we should aim to get there sooner than that. Everyone checks your packs to see what food or water we have, since water especially is going to be something we will need to treasure in the desert. It took a few minutes, but they quickly figured it out. They had about 2 bottles of water each, along with a few ration bars between them, as well as 1 rice bowl each. It was not much but it would have to do. If we run out then we either have to hope we find some kind of oasis, and that Kami is smiling at us, or we make a quicker haste towards finding Suna. Well that is great and all, but how exactly do we find Suna? I don't see anyone with a compass. Anko said, making both Naruto and Itachi think. They thought about it and now really did wish they had a compass and a map. But if they wanted to be then they had to figure out a new way to get back to Suna. Naruto, Itachi asked for the blonde's attention. Your sensor ability, how far can you sense with it? My sensor ability? I can sense pretty far, I mean when I was 5 I could sense at least a few miles, but I have never tried anything that long range. I know there is no chance I could sense all the way to Suna since I have no idea how far out we are. Don't try to find the village, instead look for the nearest sign of life and we can head in that direction. What about your Sharingan? Said Anko, thinking of a way that she could help out. But what if the other sign of life is another team? It's a chance we will have to take. Plus my Sharingan can't see that far. Replied Itachi. I got it. Both stopped talking as they looked towards Anko who was beaming with pride. I know how we can find our way back to Suna. She said, getting raised eyebrows from both boys. Would you like to tell us this way of yours? Naruto asked as Anko grinned. Better. I can show you, she said before biting her thumb and planting it on the ground. Kuchius no Jutsu. A tiny cloud of smoke appeared just in front of Anko, and they watched a small green-skinned snake appear and slivered towards Anko and up her arm. What can I do for you Miss Anko? The snake asked. Rila, do you think you could point us in the direction of the sand village, Suna? We have to make it there in the space of 5 days, though we don't have much food and water, so we would prefer to get there as soon as we can. The snake nodded its head and slithered back to the ground and put its head in the air as its body coiled around on the sand. The trio waited for a couple of minutes as the two slits that were its nostrils smelled the air, along with its forked tongue slipping out of its mouth and tasting the air. Once the few minutes were up, the serpent's eyes twitched before it began to slither away, motioning for the trio to follow after it. After putting on their cloaks to protect their bodies from the harsh light of the hot sun and trying to keep themselves cool and not sunburned, they quickly followed after the snake with Anko up front and then Naruto and Itachi behind. Wow, that was handy. How did she find it so quickly? Naruto asked Anko as they got their things together and began walking after the snake. I had Rila familiarize herself with the scent that Suna gave off. It may not be a person, but the village does have a unique smell accustomed to it. Plus my summoned snakes can sense chakra with their inferred vision, picking up heat signatures from a great distance. We may be far out, but a snake has great enhanced senses to that of a person. Naruto whistled to himself while Itachi nodded at the explanations. Summoning animals really are amazing, and the things they can do can even trump a shinobi. You know, I kind of wish I had one myself. They would really be amazing to have as a partner. I agree. They would be greatly beneficial. It is a shame the Uchiha does not have a summoning contract bound to us like a few other clans in the world. I can see they would be of great use. Anko looked back at Naruto while they continued to follow Rila. Well, aren't you going to sign the Toad contract, Naruto? I mean, your dad had signed it as well as his sensei Jiraiya, who is like always with your family. Wouldn't you sign that? Naruto's face grew cold for a second before he steeled himself and looked away. No, I probably won't be signing it. Knowing my parents, they will probably just give it to the twins and Mina and leave me out like usual. He said, though he whispered the last part out. Anko looked at him a little confusingly, as did Rila, who cocked her back a little before getting back to the view in front of her. Why would you say that? I am sure they will let you sign it if you ask. She said, wanting to understand what he meant by it, but saw Itachi shake his head to her, as if telling her to stop asking. Besides, just because I won't have the Toad summons doesn't mean I won't have a summoning contract one day. It might not be the Toad or Slug or the 8 contracts that Hokage-sama and Iro-Senin hold, or the ones Bachan and Jiji have, but I will hold one eventually, and it will beat the other contracts. He said, thinking about other animals that may have contracts to them and which he would love to have. Anko shrugged. Well, good luck with that. Summoning contracts aren't exactly easy to come by. Then I will have to be on the lookout in the future. He said as they followed Rila. Nightfall. After hours of trekking through the harsh Suna desert and using up about 1/3 of their water supply, the group stopped at a small rock formation that provided some cover for them that they could use for shelter. After thanking her and managing to catch a desert mouse as a treat that Anko gave her, Rila disappeared and went back to her home. The trio made a small supper with what they could spare for the first night before they got in their sleeping bags. Unlike the sweltering heat of the daytime, the night was quite cold as the moon hit them along with the cool desert winds. It's a nice night tonight. Naruto said as he lay down on the soft sand looking up at the star-filled sky with Itachi on his right and Anko on his left. You know, Anko said, leaning on her elbows and turning to Naruto. Why don't we just travel through the night instead? It would be a lot less strenuous since we won't have the heat of the sun hitting us and no one would be expecting it. I had thought about that, but there lies a problem with that theory. Itachi spoke up from his spot. If we were to travel at night we would have multiple problems with defending ourselves as well as making our way to the village. There will be no daylight so we will not be able to see anything. Plus there are poisonous animals in the desert, what if we tread on one in the dark and it hits us? Naruto nodded as Anko thought about it. I guess that's a good point. But can't we use the light from the moon? And what would happen if one night the clouds cover the moon therefore giving us no light? Anko pouted as he spoke to her like she was a child and went back to lying on her back and crossed her arms as Naruto looked at her playfully. Fine then. Naruto laughed while Anko shook his head at his teammates' amusement as he continued to stare up at the sky while Naruto and Anko made idle chat. I wonder how Kasan is doing back in Suna. He thought to himself despite knowing Mikoto was more than capable of looking after herself since she was a powerful shinobi. As Naruto made idle chat with Anko, Naruto thought back to the snake he had seen Anko use earlier and it had brought up a question in his mind that he had known about Anko ever since the first time he met her and used those snake abilities in front of him. Hey Anko, he said, getting her attention. How did you get the snake contract anyway? He saw next to him that Anko froze up and in her eyes had a brief look of panic hit her before she narrowed them a little and looked directly at him. From his spot Itachi looked over as well since he had wondered the same thing. Why do you ask? You have never wondered before. She asked. Well, like you said earlier, you said that summoning contracts are rare to come by since not many shinobi actually have them. And it made me wonder just how you managed to get yours. The snake contract is a very powerful summoning contract. My Jiji told me about one of his past students that went bad and took off when I was only a few years old. Gigi told me that he had the snake summoning contract and took it with him, so it made me curious to know how you have it." Naruto looked back at Anko, but when he did he was surprised to see an angry Anko lunge at him with an angry and upset look on her face. She landed on him, but Naruto quickly turned the tables and managed to use his greater physical strength and flip her over onto her back, while he managed to pin her hands to her sides, as well place his knees on hers to stop her from kicking him. Itachi was going to help, but Naruto gave him a look that told him not to interfere. "Don't you dare say that. I earned that contract and that bastard betrayed me," she shouted as Naruto put his hand over her mouth since they did not want any nearby teams to hear them. "Anko is still in the second exam. You must try and be quiet," he said, but felt a little taken back when he saw tears cascading down her face. "Anko-chan. He promised he would look after me, but instead he turned his back on me, saying I outlived my usefulness and branded me forever with his curse mark. I trusted him." She sobbed as Naruto was not sure what to do, so he just hugged her into his chest and wrapped his arms around her. Itachi watched in silence but listened in and felt his heart go to his friend. "Tell me what happened to you, Anko-chan, tell me so I can help you." Naruto gently pushed as Anko sniffed a little before she explained. She explained how 6 years ago when she was 4, the snake-san in Orochimaru had taken an interest in her and had taken her under his wing and made himself her guardian and mentor. She had spent 4 years with him and he had even taken her with him when he had turned his back on the village. At first she said he was a nice person who made her feel at ease, but then would disappear for long periods of time and each time he had become more and more sinister-like. Then one day when he came back he bit her out of the blue and put some kind of seal on her neck that caused her to fall into excruciating pain as it made her body feel like it was on fire and being ripped in two. Afterward when she had woken up he had shaken his head at her, saying it had not given him the desired result he had wanted before, just leaving her where she was and never looking back. 2 days later she had been found by a team of hunter nin from Konoha where she was quickly returned. "Why has my father and mother not tried to get rid of this seal?" Naruto said with a look of anger on his face as he looked at the seal on her shoulder, but felt Anko shrug. "I'm not too sure. The Hokage once said that without knowing the formula Orochimaru used, it would be difficult to destroy it. Plus they said he put some of his essence into it, making it darker, and it made those uneasy to try and tamper with it in case it backfired." Naruto nodded, and though it did make sense, he understood where they were coming from, though it still made him pissed as he covered the seal up. "Anko-chan looked at me," he said as Anko looked up at him. "As you know, I am practicing and training to be a Genjutsu master, and after seeing this seal and hearing your story, I will make you this promise right here and now. I promise I will make Orochimaru pay for hurting you, and I will get that seal of you. I promised it on my way to the shinobi," he said as Anko looked up at him with shocked and wide eyes. "I second that," Itachi muttered, making the two look at him, forgetting he was even there. "We will make Orochimaru sorry for ever hurting you, Anko-san. We will bring you justice." "Eyes," Anko said quietly before she grabbed Naruto and Itachi from where he lay and hugged them both tightly. "Thank you both so much," she muttered, making the two boys smile and return the hug to her before they decided to call it a night and prepare for the second day of trekking through the desert of Suna. Next morning, the trio woke as soon as the sun hit their faces and quickly packed or sealed their stuff away before making their way back towards the sand village. Anko looked happier than either of the two boys had seen her before as she summoned her snake summon, which quickly led the way again, though this time at a quicker pace, since none of them wanted to spend another 4 days in the sweltering heat of the Suna desert. As they walked they felt Kami smiling on them when they found a few rows of cacti on their path. Knowing that cacti stored water within them, Naruto cut off some of the cacti parts and the trio drained what they could from the cacti and got more water to last them an extra day if they needed it. They walked for a few hours and were feeling good about themselves since they were having a good time until Itachi and Anko noticed Naruto had stopped. Naruto placed his index finger to his lips. "There is someone here," he said, instantly making Anko and Itachi on guard as they grouped together back to back in a triangle formation. "Where are they?" Anko asked as Itachi had his Sharingan activated when Naruto had his eyes closed, searching around them. After a few moments of searching, his eyes narrowed 20 meters east of them. "There." They all turned to the spot Naruto had pointed at before firing off their attacks. Pain. Kakak no Jutsu. Suiton. Tepidama. Senijashu. The 3 attacks urged forward together right to the spot where Naruto's sensor abilities pinpointed. Just as they neared, a trio reddish-orange balls burst out of the sands and hit the attacks, causing a small explosion to occur that knocked sand all over the place from the gust of the attack. As the sand and smoke cleared, a figure jumped out from the smoke cloud covered in a light brown cloak with an Anbu mask covering their face. Looking at them they could not tell whether the cloaked figure was a male or a female. "Duiton. K. Zenbin," the figure said in a voice that was monotone and must have had a voice change to it since they could not tell their gender. The flurry of wind made a shot from the user's hand and towards the team. Before they hit, Naruto slammed his hands to the ground. Doten. Dorikeki. As the wall came up and successfully stopped the wind from striking them, the figure leaped over the wall and pushed themselves forward and towards the group. They landed in the middle of the group, making the trio jump back. Naruto unsealed Shusui and swung at the masked shinobi, but was blocked by a chakra-enhanced kunai. "Why are you attacking us?" he asked as Anko came up from the right side and kicked the shinobi, who then managed to duck out of the way. "I can't let just anyone get to the next round of the exams now, can I? You three have come quite far in such a short amount of time," the figure said, making the three look at them in surprise. "So it is part of the test. We have to get past you in order to get to the next round," Naruto said as he watched as the unnamed shinobi nodded. Naruto looked at Anko, who was still trying to hit the shinobi, and nodded to her, who then nodded back. Both pulled away and jumped to fire distance before the unnamed ninja saw Itachi making hand signs. "Pain. Msenka no Jutsu," he called out as 5 fireballs shaped like flowers shot towards the shinobi. They hit their target, though when the attack cleared they saw a log in its place. "Kawarimi," Naruto said. He searched around but sensed them underneath Anko. "Anko, beneath you." Anko jumped just as hands shot out of the sand that went to grab her ankle as they shot out of the ground following after Anko and delivered a hard kick to her abdomen that made Anko get the wind knocked out of her. As she fell, Itachi came up from behind her and caught her, while Naruto sent a flurry of shuriken towards the enemy but deflected them with a ray of their own shuriken. "Mizurappa," Naruto said as a jet of water shot out of his mouth. "Pain. Hisekishu," the enemy said as ash poured out of their mouth and formed a protective layer in front of them that the jet of water hit instead. Before Naruto could make a move, the figure appeared next to him and punched him, making him fall back. Before he could land, though, the figure quickly appeared behind him and kicked him in the back as well, before finally throwing him towards his friends. When he landed, Itachi grabbed a kunai with a paper bomb on it and threw it towards their enemy. It exploded just as it went past her head and quickly saw they had used the kawarimi once again. "You will have to do better than that." The shinobi appeared behind them and used the wind on them again. "Pain. Bakuheki no Jutsu," Itachi said as a wall of flames erupted in front of them which stopped the wind. However, the shinobi jumped through the firewall and lunged at Itachi, and the two began to spar. Naruto recovered from the hits from earlier and went forward with Anko to help their teammate. As the figure managed to trip Itachi up and made a kunai appear out of their sleeve and drove it towards Itachi, Naruto appeared beside Itachi, blocking the strike with Shusui. Anko came up to the side and kicked the figure, which managed to connect this time. However, the enemy shinobi grinned underneath their mask before they suddenly dispersed in a gust of wind. "Wind clone," Naruto said as they looked where they had been standing before a voice rang out behind them. "Gyutin. Taifu Kajeki," they said as a tornado of wind erupted from their palms and shot towards the team. "Disperse," Naruto said as the trio jumped away. But when they did, what they guessed was clones came up from behind them and kicked the three of them away. The three landed with a thud as the clones dispersed in the wind again as the shinobi approached them. "Maybe I should use my new sword technique," he thought, since he really did not want to use Mokuton for this. He could not risk being exposed as a Mokuton user just yet. "We need to work together. Whoever they are no, they must be stronger, maybe a Jonin level like Makoto-sensei. Why do we get stuck with someone who is a high-level ninja? Why couldn't we get it?" Anko whined as she stood up. "I guess they thought we were different from the others. I don't think we should disappoint," Itachi said as the three nodded. "If we work together we can do it," Naruto said as the three readied themselves. "Not giving up yet. How do I know you are worth my time?" the ninja asked. "Watch and see," Naruto said. "Senijashu," Anko called out as two snakes erupted from her sleeves. They struck at the shinobi, who jumped back. When the masked ninja did, he or she saw a flurry of kunai from Naruto and Itachi heading towards them. "Ton. Datapa," they said as a blast of wind erupted from her, knocking the kunai away. When she looked towards them, she saw Itachi and Anko had vanished. Looking up, she saw the two coming down towards them and engaging the masked shinobi. Itachi kicked high while Anko attacked low, making the shinobi work a little harder than before, but still managed to rather elegantly dodge the attacks. As she attacked, the masked shinobi noticed Naruto had now vanished. Her eyes searched around, all the while defending from the other two. She saw Anko have an opening and went to kick her, but stopped when a thud was heard behind them. Looking round, she saw a bottle of water on the ground that was used to collect the water from the cacti from earlier. "Sentu no Yumi," a voice said from behind, revealing Naruto, who had used the camouflage to hide himself from the enemy. Their eyes widened a little from the name of the and looked down to the bottle of water that was still before the water suddenly shouted out of the bottle and created a sharp spire about 5 feet high. The shinobi cursed inwardly and had to jump forward towards Anko and Itachi in order to get out of the way. When they did, though, Anko's foot hit the ninja's stomach hard and Itachi threw a kunai that grazed their right arm. Shaking out of her stupor, the ninja went to make some hand sign but felt another presence from behind them. Naruto appears from behind and has both his hands on Shusui. The masked shinobi noticed the blade has a blue aura around it, showing Naruto is pouring chakra into it. Bringing the sword up for a moment with both his hands as he channeled his chakra through the blade before swinging it down, making an after image be left in its place, form how quickly he brought the blade down. Kiri Shigure. He said as the blade hit the kunai that was being used to stop it, but it cut right through it and the tip of the blade managed to slice across the ninja's cheek and a bit of their shoulder. Shit. The shinobi said it was aloud without the voice muffler, revealing to all of them that it was a woman behind the mask. The now revealed Kunoichi jumped in the air way before making a few hand signs. Shakutan. Kajimsatsu, she said, making the trio look in surprise before 3 swirling balls of gas, just like what they had first seen earlier, appeared and shot towards them. Oten. Dorakeki, Naruto said as he shot mud out of his mouth to make a mud-like wall in front of him and the others, which they all crowded behind as the explosion hit, making the wall quickly crack and get destroyed. It pushed the trio back and made them land on the sand, but they quickly got back up. What was that? Scorched style, I have never even heard of that before. Is it some kind of bloodline? Anko asked. An old bloodline of Suna, though I am unsure of how many there are that can use it, since I don't think there are many left. Itachi said as they readied for another attack, but instead saw there was no one there. Naruto asked as they looked at Naruto to see him concentrating before he let out a relieved sigh. They're gone. I can just about sense her leaving the area. So we pass then and can keep going back to the village? Anko asked as Itachi nodded. Thank Kami. She said before dropping to the ground, which was quickly followed by Naruto and Itachi as they could finally catch their breath. Man, that match was intense. She was so strong and her hits were hard. Not as hard as Bachan, but they still packed a wallop. Naruto said as the others agreed with him. She was very skilled. From what I could see from her speed and strength and following her movements with my Sharingan, she must have been Jonin level. I think my Ka-san would have even had a bit of a struggle with her. Itachi mentioned, panting slightly from the fight. Naruto grinned. Well, whoever she is, I want to fight her again one day. She seems like an awesome opponent. He said, making Itachi and Anko shake their heads, but had to admit they agreed with him. As they rested, they noticed a small scroll sitting a little beside them that they just noticed. Itachi took it and looked at the symbol on the scroll and showed a symbol of the exams. I guess that's for us? Naruto asked. Since we passed this test, I guess this is just to confirm it. The Kunoichi must have left it here just before she departed. They all accepted the answer and took another few minutes to rest from their recent skirmish. Elsewhere, the masked shinobi dropped down beside a rock formation a few miles away from the battle she had just been in and took a few ragged breaths as she got her bearings together. Those breaths were actually pretty good. She breathed out as she hung, making her form get covered by a small cloud of smoke. When it disappeared, it showed Sakura, the proctor of the exams. She winced a little as she bandaged a cut on her shoulder before getting it seen to later when she returned to the village. She then traced over the small cut on her cheek. The blood had dried off, but she was surprised that the trio, Naruto mainly, had even managed to hit her. Those kids are quite something. She thought, having been impressed by Naruto in the first exam, which prompted her to want to test him during the second. I may not have been going all out, but to actually wound me and make me use my Shokutan is not an easy feat. Flicking the joint in her neck, she began making her back to Suna, all the while thinking. That blonde kid has some skill. He might just win this exam. Next day, 2 gate guards stood at the entrance to the sand village as they watched over the horizon. As they watched, 3 figures in cloaks that covered their body made their way towards them. The 2 guards readied themselves for some kind of fight but saw the kids' faces when they got closer and recognized them from the other day. As the trio got near, they took off their hoods as Naruto stood forward and showed the scroll they were given the other day. So you 3 actually made it back? One of the guards asked, looking a little impressed. It was one of the fastest times for the Suna survival exam. You're the first team to make it back. Well, don't we feel special? Anko said as her arms were a little sunburned from where the sun had managed to get them. Naruto and Itachi were in a similar state. Once the trio had suppressed the disguised Sakura, they continued their way through the desert, though this time at a quickened pace, as they now just wanted to get to Suna as quickly as possible. The desert quickly became one of their least favorite places. After another night of camping and a lot more running, Naruto finally managed to sense the village nearby as he recognized the signatures there from the other day. So what do we do now? Itachi asked the guards as they pointed to the scroll in Naruto's hand. Open it up. Now that you have arrived at the gate, you can now open the scroll. The other guard said as the trio looked at the scroll and shrugged. Naruto opened the scroll before it began to shine. He placed it on the floor in front of him and took a step back. After a couple of seconds, smoke covered the scroll before it quickly got swept away and revealed a smiling Makoto looking at her team with a proud look. "Hasan?" Itachi said, surprised, while Naruto and Anko grinned at seeing their sensei. "Well done, all 3 of you," she said as she quickly glomped the trio in a massive hug. "I knew you would all do it, but I was still so worried all the same. So since we made it back, does that mean we pass? Naruto asked with a hopeful expression while Anko did the same, though Itachi was a bit more suppressed. Makoto laughed a little before nodding. Yes, congratulations, you have passed the second round of the exams. She said as Naruto and Anko fist pumped the air while Itachi smiled. After getting their stuff together and getting well done from the gate guards, they made their way towards their hotel, since there were another 2 days to go for the other teams to arrive before they would find out what was next for the third test. Chapter 10 Exam Interlude. Naruto grinned happily as he walked through the gates of Konoha with the 2 guards, giving him a friendly wave as he walked past. Itachi and Anko walked beside him while Makoto was behind them, all happy to be home. The 2 days they had off after the second exam was a welcome pit stop for the trio, since walking in the hot desert of sun for 3 days had taken its toll on them. After the entire 5 days were up, they were reported to the Kazuki office where they saw that to their surprise only 2 other teams had made it. One was the Iwa team while the other was a team from Kumo. The Kazuki was a man in his mid-30s with dark plum red hair with tanned skin and brown eyes. Around his eyes he had dark rings around them like he had not had enough sleep and wore the traditional cage robes. As he congratulated them, he told them all about the purpose of the Chunin exams and that they were used as a deterrent of war so that it can help build better relationships between the shinobi villages of the world. Afterwards they each had to pick a number in order to figure out who would fight who in the matchups. It was decided that since there were 9 of them, the first 3 matches would be single matches, while the fourth would be a triple threat match. Naruto ended up picking number 8, Anko got 1, while Itachi got 4. When they revealed what numbers they all got, Naruto found out the names of everyone in the match, while also seeing who his opponent would be in the first match. Or in Naruto's case who his first 2 opponents would be. Anko of Konoha vs Raito of Kumo, Madara of Iwa vs Itachi Uchiha of Konoha, Furitsuchi of Iwa vs Jay of Kumo, C of Kumo vs Naruto Namikaze of Konoha vs Akatsuki of Iwa. Though Naruto mentally groaned at the thought of starting off with 2 opponents rather than 1, he sucked it in and just got over it. Besides, he figured it would be a great test of his strength. Though he noticed that when he looked over at the Iwa team, the girl from the first test was staring at him. At first it looked like a confused frown as if she was trying to figure something out before she scowled a little and looked away. He decided that girls were just too weird for him to understand. Okay everyone. Makoto said, stop them. I'm going to go see the Hokage and tell him we're back. The rest of you can head on home and get some well-deserved rest. Though I expect you all to be training for the next portion of the exams. She said as the 3 nodded. Now since I am Itachi's mother as well as sensei, I am going to be able to help him every day get prepared for the exams in a month's time. That won't mean I will leave any of you out though. If you want my help, just come to the Uchiha clan compound and I will help. Thanks sensei, but I think I might get a few of the older ones to help. Kurenai-sen said she would help me if I got past the first 2 exams, as did Ibiki. I might ask them for some help. She said as Makoto nodded before looking at Naruto. I might ask Jiji and Bachan to help me prepare. Makoto nodded again, but reminded them to come get her if they needed help, since she wanted to help all her students equally, which both Naruto and Anko thanked her for. The group departed and Naruto made his way back to his home. When he arrived home he found it rather more silent than usual and wondered where everyone was until he tried to sense them. To his surprise he sensed Kushina and his siblings all outside in the backyard. When he walked out he stopped right in his spot and felt a bang of hurt in his heart at the scene in front of him. It was Kushina holding a kunai in her hand and was showing Iji and Mito how to properly hold and throw one at a wooden post. Both were using wooden kunai since they were too young to use the metal ones at the moment. She's teaching them. He thought as his hands shook a little from the scene, but quickly shook himself out of it when little Mina, who was chasing a butterfly, spotted him and let out a happy gurgle as she began making her way over to him. Naru. She said as Naruto's eyes softened and bent down to hug her a little and nuzzled her little nose with his own. Hi Mina-chan, have you been a good girl? He asked as Mina happily nodded before giggling madly as she began playing with Naruto's blonde hair. Despite him not being around much, those around them could see how much Mina adored her eldest brother and was always following after him when she could, though her little legs could not take her very far. Even though he was distancing himself from his family, there was just a little part of him that could not bear distancing himself from Mina. Plus she had solidified her spot in his heart when her first word was his name, much to everyone's surprise. Naranai. Naruto heard as the footsteps belonging to a small child were rapidly coming towards him. He looked to the side and braced himself as a blur of blonde with a few red streaks in it jumped into him and hugged him tightly. I missed you so much. Mito said as she gave Naruto a big sloppy kiss on the cheek, making Naruto hesitate a little before plating a small kiss on the top of her head. Iji quickly followed after his sister and hugged his older brother around the waist while Kushina walked up to him at a slow pace. Welcome home Naru-chan. Well done for getting into the third part of the exam. She commented as she took Mina from Naruto much to the little girl's dismay. Yeah, thanks Ka-chan. I'm just lucky to have a great sensei and teammates. He said as Kushina nodded a little. Really, Mikoto Baka is a good sensei? Who knew? She said teasingly about her friend though stopped when she saw Naruto give her a small glare. Don't speak about Mikoto sensei that way Ka-san. She has done her best and I am forever grateful to be under her tutelage. He said sternly before rubbing his eyes a little and turned around to head back inside. I'm going to bed. I'm a little tired from the trip. Kushina didn't reply but looked at Naruto head back inside with a slightly struck look on her face. Naru-chan has never glared at me before. She thought before shaking her head. He's just tired and needs his rest. She turned around to see her children with slightly sad looks on their faces as Naruto walked away before the twins went back to their wooden kunai practice and Mina went back to chasing butterflies. If she had paid more attention she would have noticed Naruto use San instead of Chan like he normally did. Later on that evening Naruto lay in his bed as he looked up at the ceiling as the light from the moon gently shone through the curtains of his window. He had stayed in his room to rest for most of the day and only really went down when his father came home and they had dinner round the table. Most of the dinner talk was taken up by Mito and Iji, who were talking about their day with Kushina, while Mina was either gazing into space or was laughing at the funny faces Naruto was making at her. When it got to Naruto and the exams, he only gave them short answers and didn't get into the details since he was not really in the mood for talking. Both Minato and Kushina frowned a little at that and wanted him to tell them more, however he just stayed mostly quiet, ignoring them when they asked for more details. Afterwards he took his dish and cutlery and had them washed before he went back to his room. He was going to visit Hiruzen tomorrow to get some training in for the exam's third round and hoped Tsunade and Shizun would join them as well since he knew there was talk about showing him the Shimsen Jutsu which he was looking forward to. He looked at his alarm clock to see it was 11 p.m. He was about to shut his eyes before he heard his door open up slightly and could hear little steps coming towards the bed. He sat up and saw little Mina walking towards him wearing her little purple pajamas while holding her teddy in her arms. Mina-chan, what are you doing here? It's late and you should be in bed. He said as he saw her rub her eyes with her tiny hands before she looked at him and put her arms out. Stay with Naru. She said, making him hesitate a little before he let it be. He smiled and went forward and picked his baby sister up. He lifted the covers and put himself and Mina under them, with Naruto leaning on his side while Mina was snuggled up next to him. Mina snuggled into her big brother's chest as Naruto wrapped his arms around her to keep her warm and safe. Love you Naru. She said yawning before she immediately fell asleep. Naruto looked down at his baby sister and gently kissed her forehead. Good night Mina-chan. Sweet dreams. Just when Naruto fell asleep Kushina passed his door to see that it was slightly open. When she took a peek her face softened and had a warm smile appear on her face when she saw her youngest cuddled up with her oldest. She tiptoed back before gently and silently closing the bedroom door and made her way to hers and Minato's room. Next day, I am impressed by Naruto. You and your team sound like you had quite the experience for your exams. And to finish the second round in 3 of the 5 days is an impressive feat. Hiruzen said as Naruto finished recounting the first 2 rounds to Hiruzen, Tsunade and Shizun, who had welcomed him back and told him well done for his efforts in the exams and for making the 3rd round. Now what do you know about your 2 opponents? Well that's just it. I don't really know anything about them. I can only make guesses by their size and personalities. We did not have any chance to see any of each other's abilities. Tsunade pondered as she thought about it. You said one was called Akatsuki who was from Iowa and the other was called C who was from Kumo. How big would you say they were? Very big, bigger than other kids my age. He said, making them all nod. In that case I can bet they will favor their physical strength and will end up lacking in speed. We can work on your speed and make you faster than ever. Plus I will be drilling you into Taijutsu every day until you can stand anymore. She said grinning, making Naruto grin back. Plus I bet this boy from Iowa will use earth jutsus since they are very common for shinobi from Iowa and the boy C from Kumo will favor lightning jutsus for the same reason. Shizun added with Tsunade and Hiruzen nodding at the logic behind it. So we work on his speed along with teaching him to counter earth and lightning. Wind we can do. But Naruto does not have a lightning affinity. Then we focus on water and earth techniques. Counter earth with earth and then use water against lightning. The two are both each other's enemy. Hiruzen said. Plus I can work on my kinjutsu and kinjutsu when I am on my own. They all nodded and made a quick plan of what the training schedule for him would be like for the next month until it was time for him to leave for Suna again. Shizun would train him in the mornings until 1. Then an hour break for lunch until Tsunade would get him until 2 to 6. Then in the evening he could focus on his kinjutsu and kinjutsu. Where are you up to in your kinjutsu? Hiruzen asked. Naruto grinned and got out a small book from the storage seal on his right wrist. I'm in the middle of level 4 at the moment Chiji. I may have a couple of months, maybe a year at most until I am ready for level 5. He said. Hiruzen whistled, showing he was impressed. He would be surprised if this time in the next decade Naruto was already at his parents' level of genjutsu or maybe even higher above them. Now that we have that covered, we can let Naruto know of the new techniques we will be teaching him. Shizun said as Hiruzen and Tsunade nodded in agreement. Really? What techniques? He was a little excited at the thought of learning something new. Shizun put her hand out and Naruto watched as a green aura wrapped around it, making Naruto realize what it was. Ishimsen. He said as she nodded. It's time we taught you how to heal yourself and others around you if the time ever comes. Since you have great control for your age, no doubt you will be able to pick it up quickly, though we may have a way of cutting that time down greatly. Shizun added as she motioned to Hiruzen, who then made the ram seal and created a clone next to him. The clone technique. But I already know the clone technique. Ah, but this is not like the illusion clones. Hiruzen said as he tapped on the clone's head, showing it was solid. These clones are very real but can be dispersed if we do it or they are hit hard enough. Plus any memory or action they have or do will go straight back to the original. Normally we would not show this to you, since it is a B rank that requires a lot of chakra, however since your chakra levels are already nearly the same size as Shizun, and you have great chakra control, it means we can teach it to you early. So any of the things I try to learn will be shortened because the clones will also learn it as well. I'm not surprised you figured it out. You are a smart cookie, Naru-chan. Tsunade said. But yes, that is what we are aiming for. We will be able to teach you a lot in just a month if you make a few clones to learn it at the same time. So for new techniques, Shizun Ni-chan will teach me the Shimsen and Jiji will teach me the Kage Bushin no Jutsu. Then what are you going to teach me, Ba-chan? When he asked, Tsunade grinned while Shizun and Hiruzen looked a little panicked. No doubt they both knew what she was going to teach him. Are you sure you want to teach him, Tsunade? He might not be ready for it just yet. Hiruzen asked almost in a pleading tone, but Tsunade waved it off. I have no doubt in my mind he will be able to learn it and master it to a degree in time for the exams. Besides, I have never taught this to anyone before and I think teaching it to Naru-chan would be the right thing to do. Naruto looked a little confused since he was unsure of which technique Tsunade was talking about since she had a few techniques which she had never taught anyone, not even Shizun. Motioning him to follow her, Naruto was led outside by Tsunade, who had Hiruzen and Shizun following behind them, both looking a little pale. She stood in front of one of the Sarutobi clan training fields that the Sarutobi clan had, but Naruto swore he heard Hiruzen mumbling under his breath. This Naru-chan is what I will be teaching you. When people see you do this, they won't want to go anywhere near you. Grinning to herself, she raised her right fist high in the air for the three to see. Her right hand glowed bright blue and Naruto could see it getting denser before it suddenly disappeared around her hand. Ooh, Tsunade cried out as she brought her right fist down onto the ground and punched it with all her might. As soon as her fist hit, the entire training field cracked and began to burst in a big explosion, making a big cloud of smoke and gravelly smoke go through the area. Naruto, Hiruzen and Shizun managed to use their chakra to keep them in one place, since some damage had been done even from behind Tsunade, while the entire training field had been completely leveled. Whoa. Naruto said to himself. He had seen Tsunade use her super strength abilities many times, even in their spars together, but every time it made him look on in both amazement and a little bit of fear. Why, you're going to teach me that? Naruto said in amazement as Tsunade turned around to face him and grinned at him. I am, but remember Naruto, this technique of mine is very dangerous and therefore you must always be very careful since one false move and all that chakra you build up in your hand could be released too early or too late and will result in your hand being blown to pieces. Naruto gulped. Also you must not teach another person this technique without my approval. The last thing I want is too many shinobi knowing my trademark technique and it somehow being used against us. Understand? She asked as Naruto nodded his head. Naruto grinned happily. The three older shinobi smiled at his eagerness, but before they could push forward and begin the training, Anbu appeared. Tsunade-sama, Sandame-sama, Shizun-san, the Hokage has requested your presence in his office. He says it is of the utmost importance. The trio all looked in surprise and curiosity to what Minato was asking of them. We will be right there. Hiruzen answered as the Anbu disappeared. Well Naruto-chan, you can stay here if you like and practice or you can head on home and we can begin tomorrow. We best go see what your father needs. Hiruzen told the young blonde. Okay Jiji, I'll see you all later. Naruto said as Shizun and Tsunade painted a kiss on his forehead each before they trio sunshine away. Naruto stood there and watched them go before a thought crossed his mind and took this as a good chance to do something without his parents or anyone else knowing about it. I think I'll head home. I have something I want to learn and surprise everyone with at the Chunin exams. He thought to himself before grinning and running back home. Hokage office. Tsunade, Hiruzen and Shizun arrived in the Hokage office and were surprised to see Minato, Kushina, Jiraiya and Kakashi all standing there talking amongst them before seeing the new group arrive. I am glad you are all here. Jiraiya here has important information for us which the three of you need to hear. Minato said, though they could see he had a happy smile plastered on his face. Tsunade, Hiruzen and Shizun looked towards Jiraiya, who looked a bit more serious than he normally did as Kakashi and Kushina stood off to the side. The prophecy from the toads has changed, and I now know for certain whom it speaks of. The prophecy speaks of two children born from two powerful parents that reside in a leaf and will stage a great revolution in our world and will lead us to an era of peace. The three shot their eyebrows up again as Hiruzen spoke up. I have an idea of who you mean, but I would like you to say it anyway. Mito and Ig, I know in my gut they are the children of prophecy. I am sure of it, as are Minato, Kushina and Kakashi. Okay, well that's all fine and dandy. Tsunade interrupted as she stood with her hands on her hips. But why gather us all like this? Surely this is something you could have told us at a separate time. Since Ig and Mito are the children of prophecy, we need them to be ready when the time is right. We know it early, but we think it is best to start their training early to make them as strong as possible for when the time comes. Kushina said, which shocked the three. Kushina-sama, don't you think 5 is a little young? I mean, yes, the three of us began training Naruto when he was 5, but that was because of the Kyuubi attack. The twins won't have an incident like that during their youth, I imagine. As true as that may be, Shizun-san, the twins are special as we have just found out while Naruto is not. We know what we're doing. Jiraiya said as Kakashi nodded. Tsunade, Shizun and even Hiruzen were a little taken back by the comment from Jiraiya, but it disappeared since they knew just how wrong Jiraiya was. Kushina and Minato too were a little set back by the comment, however they did not act on it. Anyway, with this information we will all be needed to begin training them as soon as possible. We want to create a charter for when we train them and what we will each teach them. Minato said. We are thinking I will teach them Taijutsu, Kushina can focus on Kenjutsu and possibly Kenjutsu, Kakashi will take stealth and trap making. Swan and Shizun, if you take medical ninjutsu then we can. No. Kakashi, Jiraiya, Kushina and Minato's head turned sharply to Tsunade who gave them all a glare. Hiruzen and Shizun stood behind her and just had emotionless looks on their faces. No. What do you mean no, Tsunade-sama? Kakashi asked. What do you think it means, Haddock? I am not training them. I have already promised to help Naruto with his training for the exams. We already have a schedule for him and the three of us have promised him. Time. Jiraiya said, walking forward and touching her shoulder. The twins are more important. We can easily find someone to take over Naruto's training for the month. I'm sure they will understand. The twins need to come first in this. He said before he felt great pain in his hand as Tsunade grabbed it tightly, causing a few bones to crack a little. And when will you understand that I won't turn my back on him in his time of need? Unlike some. She said as she turned around and began walking out of the office. What do you mean by that? No one has turned their backs on Naru-chan. Kushina said, frowning a little at the statement and felt more confusion when she heard Tsunade scoff. Tsunade left the room while Hiruzen and Shizun said their goodbyes before leaving along with the Senju woman. You alright, sensei? Minato asked as Jiraiya held his hand. I am surprised Tsunade said no. I thought she would have jumped at the chance to teach the twins. Don't worry about her. I will talk to her and I will show her that the twins need her more than Naruto does. We can have someone train the kid, right? He asked as Minato and Kushina nodded. They need to see that Mito and Ig are going to need our help a lot more than Naruto ever will. It's for the greater good, right? Kushina said. However, please don't say that Naruto is not special, Jiraiya. He is special and I don't want people saying he is not. All children are special. She glared at him a little while Minato sat back and breathed in deeply while Kakashi shrugged his shoulders and hopped out the window while pulling out his Uchiha book. I know. Jiraiya said, quickly dismissing it but not wanting to get on the redhead's bad side. Well, I will see you all tomorrow. I however have some research to do. He said perversely before shining away. That man will never change. Kushina said while Minato smiled a little at his sensei's antics. With Naruto, good thing Toussaint and Ka-san are not here, otherwise they would probably not approve of me trying to learn what I need for that technique. Naruto said to himself as he quickly opened the door to his father's office and snuck in. Walking in, he quickly walked towards his father's desk and then bent down on his knees. From underneath the desk he hit it 3 times before a small cabinet suddenly opened up revealing a couple of scrolls. He had found this secret cabinet by accident when he tripped over his own feet when he was 7 and noticed the small hidden cabinet. After finding out how to get in, which was easier than he imagined, and was surprised his father didn't put some kind of locking seal around it. Bit of a rookie mistake, but Toussaint probably never imagined someone would actually have the stones to do this. Naruto thought, smirking slightly. I don't think the Toussaint would be too happy with this, but he does owe me at least this much. As he looked through the scrolls he quickly saw the openings he was looking for. On the side of the scroll it had the rank of the one Naruto wanted to learn. It was an A rank that most would have said Naruto was nowhere near ready for, but he thought otherwise. From his right wrist he quickly poofed out a scroll and brush with a little bit of ink and quickly opened the scroll up and began copying the contents that were written down on them. Thanks to learning Kenjutsu, his speed in writing was extremely fast and he quickly had all the contents of the scroll written down in less than a minute. His eyes traveled across the copy scroll he had just made, checking everything he needed was written on it. When he saw it, he quickly sealed his equipment away along with the new scroll while placing his father's scroll back in the cabinet and locked it up. He quickly got to his feet and left the office. When he closed the door behind him he had a small smirk on his face. It never ceases to amaze him that he was able to take from his mother and father's library anytime he wanted and never get caught. Heck, he even managed to do it one night when they were in the house. Then again, Shizun-ni-san did say I have pretty impressive stealth skills. I could probably paint the Hokage monument in broad daylight if I wanted to and still get away with it. He knew his father and mother would probably be a bit displeased when they found out, but the reaction on their and everyone else's faces when he used to say was going to be well worth it. After shaking his head he left for his room when he quickly began to study from his Kenjutsu level 4 book. Next day with Anko. Anko panted a little as she ducked a swipe from Ibiki Marino, a man in his early 20s and who worked for the T&I division in Konoha. Since she arrived in Konoha, Ibiki had taken an interest in her and showed her a thing or two from time to time. Ad and Anko loved hanging around the T&I building. The torturing screams from there were music to her ears. To the side of the small field was Kurana Yuhi, who was watching Anko fight Ibiki, since the two had agreed to help prepare Anko for the exams. I won't let Naruto and Itachi gap get any bigger from me. I need to catch up. Especially if I want to kill him one day. She thought before she charged and engaged Ibiki into jutsu while using her snakes to try and bite the hell out of him. But Itachi sat meditating in the middle of one of the Uchiha training fields with his eyes wide open, showing his matured Sharingan which was scanning around the area. After a few moments a barrage of shuriken shot towards him. However, Itachi quickly got up and with great speed threw his own shuriken, which countered every single one of them. When he stood up his mother appeared behind him and went towards him with her tanto, however, instead of moving he let the blade pass through him. When it did, instead of any blood being spilled, Itachi merely faded away like a mirage. Very good, Itachi-kun. Mikoto said as she looked to her right to see Itachi standing there nodding at his mother before her own Sharingan flared as mother and son lunged towards each other. But Naruto breathed easy as he held the sheathed shusui in his left hand as he crouched on his spot. His eyes were closed and he was focusing on everything that was around him. He could hear and sense everything and everyone around him, which included Shizun and Hiruzen who were watching from the side. As he finished taking a breath his eyes shot open and with great speed he sped forward before stopping a few meters as a small boulder was in the way. His blade was now out of its sheath, but Naruto was slowly sheathing it back in. Just before he put the whole way in, Naruto muttered under his breath before the clink of the blade being fully sheathed ran out along with a loud crack to be heard. Everyone looked to see the boulder was now cut clean in two. Naruto grinned while Shizun looked towards Hiruzen who had an equal grin on his face. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoy it. If you want the next part of this video, turn on that bell notification. Like, subscribe and comment down below. And also check out the others videos I have created and enjoyed it. See you guys next video.